Hey, everyone! If you enjoy my quantum audiobooks, you can support me by becoming a Patreon member. Your support helps me keep creating, and you'll get exclusive perks. You can also access my audiobooks directly through Google Drive. Check out the link in the description. Now, let's get started.
Feeling Hermione's panic, Cyril also opened her eyes at this time, became a little more serious, and looked at the three-headed hell dog in Hermione's arms. Perhaps smelling an unfamiliar breath, the sleeping three-headed dog suddenly sniffed, and the six eyes gradually opened. The three of them looked at the three-headed dog of hell who had gradually woken up, and their hearts were beating wildly. When they had just come into contact with magic, how could they have seen such a terrifying magical creature? It is also fortunate that this three-headed dog of hell is not wild, and it is still in a state of just waking up, otherwise it may really swallow them all one by one. Just as Hermione turned around and ran away, Cyril jumped out of her arms. Cyril. Hermione screamed because she saw Cyril face the terrifying monster. Meow. Cyril barked at the still-dazed Cerberus three-headed dog. Suddenly, the Cerberus three-headed dog, who was shaking his head and yawning, suddenly woke up and stared at the little Cyril at his feet. Hermione's face turned pale with fright. She quickly ran back and hugged Cyril, and then ran out without looking back. Amazingly, after being called by Cyril, this terrifying three-headed dog not only did not pursue but even took a step back. The three dogheads showed a look of horror at the same time. Is he afraid of Cyril? Of course not, he was afraid of the kitten's owner. Do you think Augustus will leave the Philosopher's Stone here? Anyway, Augustus is very interested in the Philosopher's Stone that can make people immortal. As a wizard who is proficient in alchemy, it is very necessary to be able to study the principle of the Philosopher's Stone. So Augustus came here a long time ago. When passing through this level, the three-headed dog of hell was very stunned and roared at Augustus a few times, only to be tortured by the impatient Augustus with the moon reading. This three-headed dog, who didn't know whether to live or die, never dared to roar in front of Augustus again. Seeing that he was all obediently holding his tail and bowing his head, he didn't dare to snort. Augustus didn't kill him for the sake of its caretaker and only tortured him well in the monthly reading space. Even so, the three-headed dog shivered at the thought, that terrifying demon. And that time Augustus happened to come with Cyril in his arms. Of course, the three-headed dog knows this kitten, that devil's pet. Seeing Cyril, the previous nightmarish experience was suddenly recalled. How could it dare to be arrogant, and took 2 steps back in fright, not daring to scream again. After Hermione ran out with Cyril in her arms, she closed the wooden door all at once and cast a lock on the door, before covering her wild beating heart and gasping loudly, obviously frightened. "Oh my gosh, what the hell are you doing? You even turned around," Ron exaggeratedly said, as if you were dying. Hermione glared at him and ignored him, but looked at Cyril in her arms curiously, showing a thoughtful expression. She seemed to have seen the monster just now and took a step back. Was she frightened? Incredible! Hermione was sure that if the monster hadn't retreated just now, it would have been able to catch up with her. But it was not reasonable for a kitten to scare off such a big monster, a black dog, so Hermione temporarily suppressed her doubts. On the way back, the three of them had lingering fears on their faces. What are they doing? Locking a monster in the school? Ron said indignantly. What are your eyes used for? Didn't you see where he was standing? Hermione became more and more disliked by this stupid Ron, who was nothing compared to Senior Augustus. I didn't see his feet again, I was looking at his heads, maybe you didn't notice, he has 3 heads. I have to say that Ron's IQ is really worrying. Although it is a shame in pure blood, it seems that even the Weasleys have never produced anything more stupid than him. It's standing on a trapdoor, which means it didn't happen to be there. Hermione paused, as if recalling the scene, then continued, it must be guarding something. Hermione's words stopped both Harry and Ron. Watch what? Harry asked thoughtfully, frowning. I think so. Hermione is indeed a very smart little witch, and at the same time, with the encouragement of Augustus, she has a lot of courage. Under the circumstances just now, she can still observe so carefully and can analyze these details through these details. To these for more information. Okay, if there's nothing wrong, I'm going to send Cyril back. Otherwise, I don't know if any of you will come up with a clever plan to die. Maybe it will be worse and be fired. Harry and Ron were both taken aback by Hermione's sarcastic words. When Hermione left with Cyril in his arms, Ron said something sleepwalking. 66, shouldn't it be worse to die than to be fired? Harry was speechless for a while after hearing this, and then the two went back to the bedroom together. After separating from Harry and Ron, Hermione walked towards Slytherin's bedroom with Cyril in her arms. Cyril, did you save me just now? When passing a corner, Hermione thought and finally couldn't help asking. But just after asking her, she frowned in annoyance. How could the kitten answer her question? I think so, little Hermione. Just as Hermione was thinking, a magnetic voice suddenly woke her up. Cyril the kitten meowed when she heard the sound and jumped out of Hermione's hands. Holding Cyril by the back of the neck, ignoring the dawdling of it to please, "Au noli Augustus said, this time the 3 laps will be avoided, but if we do it again let me go to the back kitchen and bring you back. I don't think I need to say the consequences." Senior Augustus. Seeing the person coming, Hermione's eyes lit up and she cried sweetly. "Senior, did you ask Cyril to help me?" Hermione asked in surprise when she heard Augustus teach the kitten. "Of course, otherwise do you think that 3-headed hellhound would let off the intruder so easily?" Augustus said angrily. "Senior, thank you." Hermione got Augustus' affirmative answer, and she felt moved in her heart. Compared with boys of the same age, Augustus was simply the prince in her mind. When she needed help, the other party would magically appear. This completely satisfied the little girl's white horse, the image of the prince. "Oh, then how are you going to thank me?" "Okay, my little princess, I think I should send you back." A spark flashed and immediately the scene changed, and it was another fire escape. After having the previous experience, Hermione didn't feel overwhelmed by the body snap technique. After landing, she smiled sweetly at Augustus before returning to the girls' dormitory reluctantly. Feeling that the little girl's affection for her had grown a lot again, Augustus smiled in satisfaction. Cyril at his feet let out a pleasing cry as if taking credit. As a result, Augustus pulled the cat's ear. The next day, Augustus was awakened by his younger cousin Draco. After promising him to join the Quidditch team yesterday, the kid stayed up all night with excitement, woke up early this morning, and let Augustus teach him some Quidditch tricks. The Slytherin student who dared to break into Augustus' bedroom like this was probably Draco. If anyone else dared to do this, they would definitely face Augustus' thunderous wrath. With a sigh, Augustus expressed his helplessness to his little cousin. He wanted to sleep a little longer, but after hearing Draco chattering excitedly, he really couldn't sleep and could only get up. When he got up, he found that Draco was already fully armed at this time and even put on his helmet, which made Augustus couldn't help but stroke his forehead. When I took Draco through the hall, I met Q, who was going to the library. She happened to have no class in the morning, and Penelo went to class again, so she could only go to the library alone. Seeing Augustus, Q immediately smiled and greeted him, but when she saw Draco's dress, she suddenly showed a surprised look. "Draco, are you going to practice Quidditch?" "Of course, I'm on the Slytherin Quidditch team. I'm going to ask my cousin to teach me some tricks of the game and blow up Potter." Draco is still very familiar with Q, who often walks with his cousin Penelo, and when he mentioned Quidditch, he immediately said with a smile. When he said this, a strange light flashed in Q's eyes, but not against him. "Senior, are you trying to teach Draco Quidditch? Can you teach me? I'm on the Ravenclaw team too." The little girl looked at Augustus eagerly, her beautiful eyes looking very touching. Augustus thought for a while anyway, teaching one person is teaching, and teaching 2 people is also teaching, then nodded. "Then let's come together." "Yeah." When the little girl got Augustus's approval, she jumped with excitement. She knew how strong Augustus was in Quidditch. Although Augustus had only participated in 2 competitions last semester, his heroic presence on the field had already made Q worship unusual, or said every girl at the academy had screamed at Augustus' performance on the field. With Augustus' guidance, there is no doubt that her Psi game will improve by leaps and bounds. After Q went back and prepared in a hurry, he rushed to the grass in front of the castle. When she arrived, she found not only Augustus and Draco on the grass, but also Gryffindor Captain Wood and the famous savior Harry Potter. Wood was explaining the rules of Quidditch to Harry, but he looked at Augustus from time to time, and it could be seen that he was very afraid of the new captain of Slytherin. "There's no way. He was scored into the medical wing by Augustus twice. Can you not be afraid?" Augustus ignored Wood and Potter, found an open space, and began to teach Q and Draco some Quidditch skills. "Draco, Q, your positions are both seekers, although my position is different from yours, but most of the skills are the same." 99. Seeker, as the name suggests, is only responsible for finding the snitch, not for scoring goals or anything. So under normal circumstances, during the game, people should put all their energy into the process of finding the snitch and catching it. First, let me talk to you about how to find the snitch. The speed of the golden snitch is extremely fast, and its whereabouts are uncertain. It wanders around, sometimes appearing and disappearing. As a seeker, you must have extraordinary eyesight to catch its whereabouts. In terms of talent, you must have no problem, otherwise you would not choose this position. I can tell you, there are only 2 points. 1 point is to use his magic power to perceive the position of Jin Fees. Quidditch is not allowed to use magic spells, but it does not affect your clever use of your magic power. The golden snitch's flying speed is extremely fast, which also means that its wings vibrate very fast and use magic power to sense the vibrations in the field. The sound source with the fastest frequency makes it easier to determine the general location of the golden snitch. After Augustus said this, Draco and Q were already stunned. It turns out that seekers can still play like this. Why have they never heard of it? Here are some thoughts of my own, and I've only told you so far. Augustus' message is clear, and that's not to tell anyone else and cherish such skills. Q and Draco nodded, indicating that they remembered. Augustus nodded with satisfaction and continued. The second point is that you must always pay attention to the opponent's seeker. Sometimes you may not find the snitch at the first time, and you will be preempted by the opponent's seeker. In this case, if you can always pay attention to the opponent's every move once you find that he has made a move, it does not mean that you have found the snitch too. When you haven't found the snitch, as long as the opposing seeker has obvious changes, follow up immediately. This is also the awareness that some good seekers must have. After Augustus said this, Cho and Draco nodded in agreement, and they understood it quickly because it sounded easier understandable. In addition to finding the snitch, speed of flight is also important to seekers. I also have some experience with flying. In this regard, Q and Draco's eyes lit up. They both knew how fast Augustus was flying. The scene where Augustus rode to the top of the field still makes them fresh in their memory. Seeing Augustus talk about flying skills, the two listened more seriously. Of course, Augustus knew what the two were thinking, and he didn't hide anything, so he shared his experience. The first point is that you can use your magic power appropriately to make the connection between yourself and the flying sweeping away closer. And at the same time, you can also make your body attached to the sweeping and not easy to fall off. This is more difficult, and I will teach you in detail later. The second point is that when flying, you should lean forward slightly and your legs should contract, so as to minimize the resistance of the wind to you and increase the speed. The third point is that when turning around, you can exert force on both hands and feet at the same time, so that the force before and after sweeping away will increase the speed of turning a lot. About flying, I want to say about these 3 points, the rest still need to be comprehended by yourself. After hearing Augustus say these 3 points, both Q and Draco looked thoughtful. Obviously, they didn't understand it thoroughly, and Augustus didn't explain it any further. I'll teach them later in the specific flight. So he went on to say, the last point is, as a seeker, you have to be prepared to be attacked by the opposing seeker. In the game, the opponent will suppress you by colliding and so on. At this time, you can have many ways to deal with it. For example, in Q, you can avoid the collision through superb flying skills, which can not only make the opponent waste time, but also make you take this opportunity to surpass the opponent and catch Jin phase first. As for Draco, I think you can dodge by changing positions on the sweep or directly collide with the opponent. I think after my training, you should be able to ram most people. Draco nodded smugly. For this, he was still very confident. At least bumping into Potter is not a problem at all, Draco thought to himself, and glared at Potter, who was listening to Wood's introduction to the rules in the distance. Okay, then ride on the sweep and follow me, and do some flight training below. After Augustus finished speaking, he took the first step into the sky. Although Augustus swept away on a flying sky, his movements and stature were extremely unrestrained, and he looked unusually handsome. Potter looked envious, while Wood remembered some unpleasant experiences and his face was not very good-looking. Under Augustus' training, Cho and Draco's Quidditch skills improved rapidly. Draco had done some simple training with Augustus before. Although he looked very thin, his physical fitness was far superior to his peers. Augustus intends to let Draco play in the next game, because Draco has really improved a lot and is already qualified for the seeker position. And Augustus doesn't care much about this kid's pitfalls anyway, even if the opposite, even finding the snitch, can't win the game in his hands. Ask for flowers. Usually at the end of the game, Slytherin must be ahead by more than 150 points, and it is not so easy to come back. Anyway, my brother will be super god all the way. As a little cousin, you can roam freely. I have to say that Draco is still very happy with his cousin Augustus under the hood. The time in the academy passed quickly, and most of the first half of the semester passed by inadvertently. Today, it is already Halloween. Augustus wanted to take Penello to the Ice Lake Castle to spend a good night, but he felt that the Ice Lake Castle was too deserted this Halloween. So after spending a day there during the day, the two decided to stay at school. Have dinner with everyone. What Augustus didn't know was that Hermione had been sad all day today. Here's the thing. Because of Augustus's notes, Hermione's understanding of spells is getting deeper and deeper, and she has already grasped the general spells. In the morning class, Professor Flitwick taught the floating spell. As a magician, the basic skill is to float into the sky. That is, to have the ability to make objects fly. Professor Flitwick's words obviously satirized Mrs. Hooch, because this woman can't even cast a floating spell. Have you all got the feathers? Everyone will raise their feathers to show that they have it. Very good. Now don't forget the spells and gestures we just taught. Immediately afterwards, under the leadership of Professor Flitwick, everyone reviewed the grants and gestures, and then let the little wizards practice. As beginners, what they tried to float was just feathers, which were extremely light, not the way Augustus could float a hill. After Professor Flitwick finished the task, Draco frowned and practiced twice, but without success. Augustus hadn't trained him on spells, so this kid didn't perform very well. Ron, on the other side, also pretended to be waving his wand, but as a result, he didn't even show his magic power. It is estimated that this basic magic spell will take a week of practice to be able to barely cast it. Hermione on the side couldn't stand it any longer. Enough, stop waving your wand, okay? You're about to poke someone in the eye, besides your spell is wrong. In fact, although Hermione did not say 623, she did kindly remind Ron, who would have hurt the self-esteem of this kid. Ron blushed and said, "You are so smart, you are try it out." Hermione got a little angry when he said this, picked up her wand and waved it and said in her mouth, "Wingardium Levio." With the standard spells and gestures and the steady output of magic power, the feathers suddenly floated up under the guidance of the wand, flying higher and higher, and Ron was stunned when he saw it. What is slap in the face? Ron only feels hot and sore on his face now. The other students were also stunned by Hermione's one-off success, and they stopped their movements and looked at the feathers that were about to fly to the roof in astonishment. Flitwick did not expect that Hermione would succeed in her first attempt, which made him very happy. This year, another talented student finally came out, so she happily gave Hermione a 10. Ron gritted his teeth, his self-esteem took a serious blow, but it was clear that he was unaware of his own inadequacies. After class, Ron complained to Potter and Seamus with a displeased face. "It's la vaya se, not la vaya sa. It's a thorn, I can't stand it, no wonder she doesn't have any friends." However, before he finished complaining, Hermione bumped him hard from behind and ran away with a look of grievance. Also, he kindly reminded him to correct his mistakes, but was told that, how could a girl as sensitive as Hermione not feel wronged and angry? Ron was really bad, Hermione reminded him, but he said such bad things behind his back because of this trivial matter. It was really a villain's behavior. Ron's words stinged Hermione deeply, because thinking about it carefully, she had been in Hogwarts for a few months, and she really didn't have any friends. No, she still has Augustus. Thinking of Augustus, Hermione suddenly felt some comfort in her heart. Under the grievances, she very much wanted to seek comfort from Augustus. However, Hermione, who hadn't even eaten her lunch, searched for a long time at Hogwarts and couldn't find Augustus, which made her sad and heartbroken. In desperation, she could only hide in the bathroom in the basement and cry secretly. Up. When Augustus returned with Penello, Hermione was not seen at the table in Gryffindor. Looking at the very realistic jack-o'-lanterns on the ceiling and the hazy mist, the surroundings were arranged in a very Halloween-like atmosphere, but Augustus frowned, because he suddenly remembered that it seemed that Hermione encountered the giant on Halloween. Weird attack, this made his heart skip a beat. After saying a word in Penello's ear, Augustus rushed towards the basement. Although Penello didn't know why Augustus was so anxious, he didn't ask much. The girl was very smart and considerate. Not long after Augustus left, Quirrel ran in a panic. "Trolls in the basement, there are trolls in the basement." He staggered and ran all the way, and his shouts suddenly silenced the originally harmonious hall. Dumbledore stood up frowning, the smiles on the students' faces froze, and everyone was stunned for a moment. "Did you hear that?" Then Quirrell pretended to faint. His fall suddenly magnified the fear in the students' hearts, and they were still young and had a natural fear of trolls. But I have to say, Quirrell is just insulting the IQ of himself and other professors. You, a Hogwarts professor, were frightened and fainted by a low-level troll. You are showing your IQ and the lower limit of strength. However, the students were obviously unaware of the conspiracy, so they soon screamed and left their seats one after another, planning to escape. The loudest of them all was Ron. But before the scene got out of hand, Dumbledore used a loudspeaker spell. Quiet. I have to say that the amplifying spell and the majesty of the headmaster are very effective, and all the students suddenly quieted down and looked towards Dumbledore. Don't panic, everyone. Now the prefects lead the students of their respective colleges back to the dormitory. Professors, follow me to the basement. The majesty of Principal Dumbledore was outstanding at this moment, and he calmed down the scene all of a sudden. The students felt relieved when they saw that the principal was so calm. Also, can trolls defeat the strongest white wizard of the century? Clearly not. Soon, the students returned to the dormitory in an orderly manner under the leadership of the prefect. Although Penello was a little worried about Augustus, she was not too worried because she knew how strong her boyfriend was, and a mere troll would not pose a threat at all. Harry and Ron hurried to the basement, not out of friendship, of course, but out of conscience. Ron was being dragged by Harry. Snape frowned when he saw that Quirrell was gone. He didn't go to the basement, but went directly to the third floor. Quirrell's stupid tricks could not deceive him. Not to mention that Dumbledore was heading towards the basement with Professor McGonagall and the others. Augustus had already arrived. When he appeared in the basement, he saw the troll smash the door of the women's bathroom with a stick in his hand, almost hurting Hermione. Such a thrilling scene made Augustus feel anxious for a while, followed by uncontrollable anger. After being in this world for so long, he has never been so angry as he is now. Seeing that the troll raised the stick in his hand again, Augustus' anger could no longer be suppressed. In a blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Hermione and hugged the frightened pale girl. Then, the magic wand in his hand instantly turned into a magic sword. The mighty-looking wooden stick in the troll's hand was instantly cut off by the magic sword. At the same time, the ugly troll was also shaken back and forth by the powerful magic power. Originally, Hermione had already closed her eyes and waited to die. From her point of view, her weak body could not withstand the blow of such a huge weapon. However, what she did not expect was that the imagined pain did not come, but a familiar and warm embrace greeted her. "Am I dreaming?" Opening her eyes, Hermione saw that Augustus was holding her in his arms, and he was blocking the troll's attack. Seeing this scene, Hermione said with some confusion. Augustus, who was in a state of rage at first, was dumbfounded when he heard Hermione's words and felt pity in his heart. "Baby, this is not a dream. You almost turned into a ghost like Tau 17 Jinyang." Augustus held the girl's hand tightly and said worriedly, "Isn't this a dream?" Hermione woke up suddenly, realizing the situation. "Senior, are you here to save me?" The little girl's eyes turned red with emotion. "Of course." With Hermione behind him, the magic sword in Augustus's hand exuded a little cold light, and the aura around his body became colder and colder. Obviously, he planned to crush this blind troll into pieces. Before Hermione cried out in worry, Augustus' figure disappeared instantly and then appeared on top of the troll's head. In Augustus's point of view, this low-level troll didn't even have the qualifications to let him shoot. But now he is so angry that he must kill this dirty thing with his own hands to dispel the anger. Uchiha flame slash. Almost in an instant, a black brilliance bloomed from the magic sword in Augustus' hands, and the flames of destruction emerged. This is a kind of melee swordsmanship he developed when he was in the Naruto world. With the flames that burn everything, no one can survive under the shadow level. As for this giant monster, there is no room for resistance at all, and it is still under the weapons. Cut off in astonishment. The sharp magic sword cooperated with the flame of destruction that burned everything. Almost instantly, the ugly and clumsy monster was chopped into pieces, and then it was engulfed by black flames. The sprayed blood was evaporated by the high temperature of the flame of destruction before it even had time to sputter. And soon, there was nothing but a pile of black coke on the ground. From Hermione's point of view, the ugly and terrifying troll that nearly killed her just now was instantly wiped out by Augustus' attack. Hermione might still feel a little cruel in normal times, but now, Augustus is simply the prince who saved her from trouble, full of fantasy and romance. This heroic and powerful scene suddenly made her forget the sadness of the day and the thrill just now, and her heart was all tied to Augustus. At this time, Harry and Ron also rushed in, just in time to see the scene of the troll being killed instantly. Immediately afterwards, Dumbledore and a few professors were now in the basement. After they arrived, they were stunned to see the scene in the basement. "Where's the monster?" Professor McGonagall asked with some puzzlement, and at the same time felt a little unhappy that there were so many students in the basement. Her question suddenly made Harry and Ron swallow their saliva, and Harry pointed with some fear to the pile of black marks on the ground not far away, and whispered, "I think it should be the one." 39s. Following Harry's instructions, the professors immediately looked towards the place where the troll was burned to the ground. "Look closely, isn't the black coke the shape of a troll?" Here came Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, and Professor Flitwick. The three of them are not mediocre, and it is natural to see that it is indeed the corpse of a troll. "August, what the hell is going on?" Dumbledore frowned and looked at Augustus, who was comforting Hermione. He felt a powerful black magic aura from the surrounding magic fluctuations. The dark aura from the coke was even stronger than the original Black Phoenix fire. And evil. In his opinion, all of this must be inseparable from Augustus. Hearing Dumbledore's questioning, Augustus' eyes suddenly turned cold. The anger in his heart had not yet been vented, and Dumbledore had obviously stirred the anger by telling him that, "Albus Dumbledore, find out who you are. You are the headmaster of Hogwarts, and I should be the one to ask you. Why such an ugly troll appeared at Hogwarts, and you didn't have the slightest unbeknownst to me, even this troll almost killed Hermione. I think if you don't give me an explanation, you can move out of the principal's room tomorrow. These words of Augustus struck the hearts of everyone present like a thunderbolt. And no one thought that Augustus would speak to Dumbledore like this. Dumbledore's face was also turned blue and white by Augustus' remarks without showing any sympathy. As the most powerful white wizard in this century, he has never been scolded by someone like this before. Even Voldemort never dared to do so. Yet Augustus did so, and he had nothing to do. Because nothing wrong with every word Augustus said. Yeah, why would a troll so dangerous for a student show up in a school basement without him knowing? Isn't it his responsibility as the principal that the student's life is threatened because of his negligence? And as one of the school's directors, Augustus Blake, does have the power to remove him from the position of principal in conjunction with other school directors. What Augustus said made him unable to refute. Even though his inner anger was abnormal, Dumbledore had to endure it. In fact, Dumbledore knew some things, but he chose to let Harry and his companions experience some dangers so as to grow faster, but he did put other students in danger. Ignoring the selfish old guy, Augustus gave him a cold look, then left the basement with a stunned Hermione in his arms. 10 more completed. The author is already exhausted, asking for all kinds of support. Although something happened last night, it didn't affect Augustus's mood to sleep late. But somewhat helplessly, his sweet dream was disturbed again. Cousin, get up. Today we have a game between Slytherin and Gryffindor. As captain, you should be there early. 39s. At 6:30, Draco rushed into Augustus' bedroom on time like an alarm clock. He was fully armed and he was ready to fly away. It seemed that he couldn't wait. Augustus, who was sleeping late, was suddenly awakened, 66.99. Looking at the excited Draco, Augustus could only feel his anger rising. It seems necessary to let this kid know what it means to get up. Unhappy Augustus directly cast a gag spell on his little cousin, then tied the body with a rope and hung it upside down with a golden hook and hung it directly. Being interrupted by Draco like this, Augustus was no longer in the mood to sleep any longer. He also remembered that there was indeed such a game today. As the new captain, it seemed really bad to be absent from the first game, so I could only sigh and get up. But in any case, disturbing his sleep was unforgivable, and Augustus hung Draco for half an hour and let him down after he had finished washing and tidying up. However, despite being hanged for half an hour, after Draco was put down, he was still excited and kept urging Augustus to hurry up to the arena. Augustus sighed deeply at this, and it seems that it is not a good thing to improve Draco's physical fitness. If you're so impatient, you can be my substitute this year. On the way to the hall, Draco was still excited and chattering all the way. Augustus, who couldn't stand it, was finally annoyed and threatened with a bad face. His threat was really useful. Suddenly, Draco choked in his throat when he said half of what he said, and he didn't dare to talk nonsense again. However, when greeting the other students, this guy still had a smug look on his face, and he was about to mention that he was about to participate in today's Quidditch match. In this regard, Augustus can only choose to ignore it, and at the same time make up his mind this summer special training must be put on the agenda. When I came to the lobby, I saw that the Slytherin Quidditch players had gathered together and were talking about today's game while having breakfast. Augustus nodded to them and went to the Ravenclaw long table and met with him. Breakfast with Penelo. Ravenclaw and Slytherin students have already seen this psi, no wonder. Although Slytherin girls have some taste for this, they do not dare to show it. Ravenclaw girls, while they admired Penelo, they welcomed Augustus. Even if this Slytherin genius is already famous, it's always alright to look at it. With such a handsome guy sitting next to him, breakfast is so much more delicious, right? Did you have a game with Gryffindor today? Will I skip class to cheer you on? Penelo fed Augustus a mouthful of toast and said with anticipation in his beautiful and bright eyes. Her words instantly made Augustus smile slightly. Of course, he knew that Penelo would never skip class. Of course, except for sometimes being kidnapped by him, she would be allowed to skip class to watch her game. It seemed that in Penelo's mind, she was already number one. His girlfriend wanted to cheer him on, so Augustus had no reason to disagree. He nodded immediately and told her that there would be a celebration event in the evening. Penelo gave him a sullen look and continued to feed him breakfast, apparently tacitly acknowledging that he did not refuse. The two people's show of affection envy the single men and women around them. At the Gryffindor long table, Hermione has been paying attention to him since Augustus came to the hall. The words that were said in her ear at night made her face blushed again. Sitting on the long table in Gryffindor, Hermione naturally learned about the match that was going to be held today. No way, as a freshman participating in the Quidditch match, Potter has attracted a lot of attention, and even Snape, the cold and gloomy guy, couldn't help but come over and sneer. Just as everyone was excitedly discussing the upcoming Quidditch match, a white owl flew over the hall. Augustus knew the owl, probably from Professor McGonagall, and he had seen it a few times. What people care about is not the owl, but what it is grabbing and sweeping away. Soon, the owl swept away the flying sky and threw it on Potter's table. Immediately afterwards, Augustus heard Ron's exclamation from Gryffindor. "Wow, Nimbus 2000. His exclamation immediately attracted the onlookers of other freshmen. Also, for these freshmen who are still saving their pocket money to buy strange beans and chocolate frogs, the latest model of Nimbus 2000 is indeed unimaginable. Professor McGonagall seems to appreciate Potter, thought Augustus, or Dumbledore's instructions. Just when the Gryffindor table was very lively, there was another movement in the sky above the hall. But this time it was not an owl, but a group. There are a dozen of them, and the most surprising thing is that each of these owls grabbed a handful of flying and swept away. The Nimbus 2000 just disassembled has surprised the students. I don't know what it will be this time. Looking at this quantity, it should be impossible to be Nimbus 2000, otherwise it is too expensive. It may be Nimbus 1999, which has been recently reduced in price. Most students think so. The owl quickly flew to Slytherin's side. Apparently these flyaways are for the Slytherins. This suddenly brought the Gryffindor players to their hearts. On Ravenclaw's side, Augustus finished breakfast accompanied by Penello. Seeing the arrival of the owl, after speaking in Penello's ear, he returned to the long Slytherin table. The owl swept away Facian and placed it on the table of the Slytherin players. Just when they were wondering who sent it, Augustus came over. "Open it, this is my gift to you as the captain. I hope that in future games you will be able to exert all your strength and win higher glory for Slytherin." 35. Although Augustus's words were calm, they moved the Slytherin team members for a while. When they opened Facian and swept away the package, they were all stunned. Because everyone receives Nimbus 2000. Today's fourth watch, the author is a handicapped party and has been coding, and it will be sent out after writing, "Everyone forgive me." Also, thank you for your subscription support, very grateful. More than a dozen Nimbus 2000. Even from a pure-blooded family, the team members were a little appalled by the expense. The market price of a Nimbus 2000 is 200 gold galleons, which is almost the cost of an ordinary wizard family for several years, and now Augustus has given away a dozen of them, and even the substitutes have received them. How can this be? Don't shock them. With more than 2,000 gold galleons, no other student except Malfoy can spend so much money. What they didn't know, however, was that Augustus could make so much money by making just 1 or 2 potions. Students at other academies were also stunned by the generosity. Turned out to be all Nimbus 2000. When did the latest model of flying swept away become so common? Especially the people of Gryffindor, thinking about the game later, Slytherin will have Nimbus 2000 in their hands, they will feel deep despair. Fortunately for them, however, Augustus said something right after that. "Don't use this for the time being in today's game, you are not familiar with it. And using this seems like we are too bullying, doesn't it? I don't think it is necessary. But Draco, since Potter used the Nimbus 2000, you can use it too, and the others should use the original to sweep away." Augustus' words immediately made the Slytherin team members smile and nodded. With Augustus around, do you still need a Nimbus 2000 to win? Of course, this was just an ordinary game, and in the final Quidditch Cup, Augustus didn't mind letting all the players ride the Nimbus 2000 to knock down Gryffindor's morale. Hearing Augustus' announcement, although the Gryffindor team members felt humiliated, they all breathed a sigh of relief. The humiliation is humiliated. If the other party really has a Nimbus 2000, it is really a little bit. The odds are gone. Only Porter was a little angry after hearing this, and looking at his appearance, it seemed that he planned to perform well in the next game. Augustus didn't care about this. He hoped that Potter could catch the snitch and let Gryffindor experience what it means to despair. Because of today's game between Slytherin and Gryffindor, both houses are on vacation at the same time. Soon, under their respective preparations, both sides came to the Quidditch arena. The Quidditch field is somewhat similar to a football field, with soft grass on the ground, but the field is much larger and the game is not played on the ground. There is a tower at intervals around the arena, which is built very high and is an auditorium. When Augustus led the Slytherin players to come, it was already full of spectators. Slytherin and Gryffindor are on vacation together, and the students are basically here. In addition to the students from the 2 academies, there were also some wizards outside the school, as well as students who skipped classes. In short, the auditorium was full. Every year, Gryffindor and Slytherin are the most exciting games, so many people come. If it is Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw, it is estimated that the attendance rate will not be so high. Without further ado, here Augustus is already talking to the players about the tactics of the game. His tactics are very rough, that is, pass the ball to me. The batsman clears the way for him, the other two seekers, Marcus and Horn, snatch and pass for him and nothing else. Yes, no, it's that simple. As for his goalkeeper and seeker, Augustus only said one sentence, that is, you can play whatever you want as long as it's not too tricky. He even said to Draco in the bedroom, you can do whatever you want, just don't get hurt. So strong, so confident. Compared to the relaxed atmosphere of the Slytherin waiting area, Gryffindor's side was much more solemn, as they both had to figure out how to contain Augustus and how to score as many points as possible. Unfortunately, neither of these two problems can be solved so easily. And our savior Potter, because of the reason he was playing for the first time, was already nervous, and his heartbeat accelerated at this time. Wood encouraged Harry but apparently didn't have much hope for a savior. As the curtain opened, Augustus took the lead in rushing to the sky, and at the same time the Slytherin players also rushed out. The Slytherin players did not fly around the audience like Gryffindor, but quietly suspended in the sky, spread out and formed a formation, looking cold and full of deterrence. With black clothing plus the arrogant posture suddenly suppressed the momentum of Gryffindor. Japanese symbol, Japanese symbol, Japanese symbol, Japanese symbol, Japanese symbol, SEEKING. As defending champions, they have a proud qualification. At the forefront of the formation is naturally the handsome and dashing Augustus. His slender figure and unique temperament make him stand out among the Slytherin team. People in the audience recognized him at a glance. That one-of-a-kind genius, is he now the captain of Slytherin? Suddenly thunderous cheers came from the audience. Augustus 35. Except for the Gryffindor fans, almost all the audience cheered. And even many Gryffindor girls couldn't help but whispered, no way, that figure is really handsome. Thinking of seeing this brilliant goal again today, many spectators showed excitement on their faces, and their cheers grew louder. Penelope, Q, and several Ravenclaw girls stood in the crowd, looking at Augustus' handsome figure with brilliance and joined the cheering ranks. The girl was infinitely proud of such a scene, and the object everyone was cheering on was her beloved boy. On the other side, Gryffindor was silent. Wood sighed in his heart. He was worried about his future fate, but as the captain, he had to stand up at this time. Cheer up, remember the tactics we just specified. The opponents are not that scary. As long as we try our best, we can definitely beat them. Remember, we are Gryffindor, the strongest team. 99s. Wood shouted with all his strength, and his words finally made the Gryffindor players regain some confidence, and their faces regained their composure. As a novice, Harry's face was full of envy in the face of this wave of cheers. He who has been neglected since childhood yearns for such cheers. If you think the latest chapter is not well written, or if you have any comments, even if you come to the comment area to leave a message. Although I sometimes cannot reply due to restrictions, but I read it every day. Work with the cheers of the waves, the race is about to begin. Mrs. Hooch was the referee, standing in the middle of the court with her broom in hand, waiting for the players of both teams to take their places. After the team members took their places, Madame Hooch pinched her waist and said with a serious face, I hope you can compete with your level and style. She just said this and kicked the box containing the balls with her feet, and then the Quaffle, Bludgers, and Snitch took off one after another. Please get ready, the game is about to start. Immediately afterwards, Mrs. Hooch blew her silver whistle vigorously. 15 broomsticks rose from the ground and rose high into the sky. The game is on. As soon as the Quaffle got out of the control of the magic power, it was thrown high. Just when all the team members were just preparing to act on 627, the next moment, a silver lightning flashed across. I saw Augustus grab the Quaffle and swerve gracefully, passing a Slytherin player. Followed by an acceleration rushing towards the opponent's goal. A zigzag lightning-shaped trajectory swept across the court, almost in the blink of an eye, and Augustus crossed half the court. Most of the Gryffindor players didn't even react. Augustus had dribbled past them. Only 2 girls reacted very fast right behind him. Augustus knew these 2 women, one named Angelina and one named Katie Bell, and both women were beautiful and skilled. And as second-year rookies who had just joined the team, they were already very good, and from the time they were able to quick reaction to keep up with him can see it. However, it was only barely able to keep up. Augustus is now using his own modified flying sweep. The speed is not very fast, but it fits him very well. The whole body is silver and looks very cool. Augustus named it Silver Arrow. Under the superb flying skills, Angelina and Katie could only watch Augustus ride out of the dust, unable to stop them. Soon, apart from goalkeeper Wood, there is no more obstacle ahead. Augustus streaked across the sky like a silver lightning, and in a flash he had come to the attack zone. Wood's skills are indeed very good, but that is relative to others. In Augustus' view, Wood's goalkeeper is useless. Almost instantly, Augustus threw the ball like a cannonball. Because of the speed, Wood couldn't react at all. Whether it was the angle of the shot or the trajectory of the quaffle, Wood couldn't see clearly, which made him unable to defend at all, and could only instinctively rush in one direction. However, at the risk of nearly falling from the flying sweep, Wood didn't touch the quaffle at all. Without a doubt, the ball went in. All of a sudden, the whole court became quiet. Everyone had never seen such a quick goal, and they didn't react for a while. Beautiful goal scored. Slytherin leads 10-0. Lee Jordan, who was the commentator, suddenly reacted and shouted, "I have never seen such a fast goal. Augustus' speed is terrible. This goal Jin is beautiful. It seems that our genius has become stronger after a year of honing." Lee Jordan's words seemed to ignite an oil barrel, and the audience erupted violently, and an astonishing cheer burst out from all the stands. All the Slytherin students jumped up excitedly, and many students from other colleges also joined the cheers. Only some of the Gryffindor lion cubs looked bad-looking. The girls looked at the handsome and elegant figure and immediately covered their chests with excitement, their eyes full of small stars. The game resumed very quickly, but the Gryffindor players were obviously stunned by Augustus dismounting just now. Into the hands of Augustus. There was another shout at the scene. I saw Augustus take a deep breath and then swoop down to the ground. The player on the opposite side was about to intercept Augustus and lost Augustus in a blink of an eye. Augustus rushed to the ground like a bullet, and then suddenly pulled up again just a few feet from the ground. A big right angle appeared in the eyes of the audience. Only this simple action, when Augustus returned to the original after the height, there is only a pursuit hand and a goalkeeper left in front of him. Needless to say, the goalkeeper, of course, is Wood. And the pursuit hand, it is Angelina, this difficult little girl. The chances of the ball being blocked are high in a two-man defense, so Augustus is going to play some tricks. I saw him waving his hand behind him and seeing his instructions, Slytherin's batter immediately made a move. The bludger, which was scurrying, was hit hard. Seeing this, Angelina and Wood were both heartbroken. After watching last year's game, they didn't know what the other party wanted to do. However, they have absolutely no idea how to defend. The next second, Augustus shot. The quaffle does not fly directly to the frame, but to other directions at a weird angle. In the eyes of everyone in amazement, the quaffle first hit the bludger that flew over, and then, under the collision angle, bounced directly into the frame. This kind of magical goal has never appeared before, and no one can think of it, even imitating it. Until last year, this 2.8 Slytherin genius, Augustus, was under the attention of everyone, hit such a goal. The first time, the audience was boiling, and some people even suspected that Augustus had used magic for cheating, but it was later proved that such a goal was all about skills. It is precisely because of this miraculous goal that Augustus has been recognized and admired by all the players. It is because of this that he is known as a Quidditch genius. And this time, after a long period of time, seeing such a goal again, even if they were already mentally prepared, the audience was still deeply amazed. It was a visual and psychological impact. There is no doubt that the audience is boiling. Augustus 35. From the auditorium, there was a tsunami of shouts. Both of Augustus's goals were fantastic. The first was lightning fast and the second was gorgeous. Quidditch is a popular game in the wizarding world. People think that for such a goal, of course they cheered without hesitation. Even the loyal fans of Gryffindor in the face of such a goal had no choice but to express their amazement and applaud. In the Gryffindor auditorium, the Weasley twins cheered ecstatically, applauding the goal. But they took it with a grain of salt and didn't make any gestures because Augustus was a Slytherin. On the other hand, their younger brother Ron, who looked like he had eaten poop, was out of tune with the surrounding atmosphere. This is when the character is revealed. Those who have no measure are always worthy of being weak. In the cheers of the audience, the faces of the Gryffindor players were solemn. Although they had already made psychological preparations, they were a little confused by being beaten like this at the beginning of the game. Angelina. In desperation, Wood can only bet the odds on their genius pursuit. Maybe compared with Orphagus, Angelina still has a big gap, but 17 Angelina can already be called a little genius, at least when playing against Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, can finish off the opposite side. Hearing Wood's call, Angelina nodded firmly. This bright and dashing girl is indeed a sight on the field. With a nod from Angelina, Wood passed the ball far to her. Gryffindor strikes back. Attack! With Angelina at the core, the Gryffindor players start rushing towards Slytherin's goal. Augustus also returned to the defense, but there was no specific action, but he seemed to enjoy the cheers in the audience. In fact, he really didn't mean to defend, and Augustus even spared the audience. He specifically passed the area where Penelo was and smiled at the girl. This made Penelo suddenly immersed in happiness. Of course, he also strolled around the Gryffindor auditorium by the way. As to whether he went to provoke or went to see Hermione, only he knew. Every time Augustus passed an auditorium, there was a burst of cheers. Looking at his appearance, there is no meaning to stop Angelina. Also, you ask Augustus to bump into a pretty girl, it doesn't fit his image either. From Augustus' point of view, it's up to Marcus and the others to do things like defense. At this point, Gryffindor finally used their tactics. There is no 1-to-7 technique like Augustus, they can only take second place if they want to score, with the highest level Angelina as the core plus teamwork to shoot the ball. It has to be said that Gryffindors are still at a certain level, otherwise it would be impossible for them to compete with Slytherin for the Quidditch Cup every year. I saw Angelina holding the quaffle, easily dodging most of the interceptions and rushing out of the frame. Except for Marcus, who can interfere with her a little, no one else can even touch this nimble girl. But in the end, she was stopped by Marcus with perseverance. Seeing this, Angelina immediately passed the quaffle in her hand. Katie has been keeping parallel with her, and it seems that she is waiting for this moment. In desperation, Marcus and the others could only go after Katie again. When they surrounded Katie, they suddenly discovered that Katie still had the quaffle in her hands. Then the sound of a goal sounded. Gryffindor finally broke the embarrassment of 0. It turns out that their core has always been Angelina, Katie just to attract fire. Gryffindor's ball can be said to not only highlight Angelina's superb skills, but also show excellent teamwork. The entire attacking process looks very smooth and full of harmony. It seems that under Wood's leadership, Gryffindor is much stronger than last year. Augustus didn't care. Did you score a goal? Great, that means it's our turn to attack. Orphagus is not so much a return defense, but a return to get the ball. Slytherin's goalkeeper is a girl, quite decent, maybe not very good defensively, but the serve is good. Almost instantly, the ball flew to Augustus' side. Before Gryffindor could catch his breath, Slytherin attacked again, another flash of lightning. Angelina could only helplessly follow behind, but she couldn't catch up. Even during the offense, Augustus relied on Gryffindor players for cover, throwing off Angelina with a few gorgeous drifts. Looking at the slender figure in front of her, Angelina felt a little powerless. But remembering her own goal just now, Angelina cheered up a little and didn't give up. As long as you bite the score, you have a chance. Now 627, whether it can prevent Augustus' goal depends on Wood's intuition. Or maybe it's luck. Perhaps it was Augustus' behavior that was too high profile. At this time, the Gryffindor batter seemed to be unable to bear it any longer. I have to say, this batter is still pretty ruthless, hitting the bludger directly to the back of Augustus' neck. If it was an ordinary person who was hit by this, it is estimated that he would faint immediately. For such a sneak attack, the Slytherin team members were furious and dared to attack their captain like this. It was really courting death. Almost in the next second, Marcus rushed over like a bulldozer, and before the opponent could react, he kicked him out. It's just that this guy seems to have two brushes and it didn't fall directly. In Quidditch, such a collision is allowed. Of course, Augustus was aware of the bludger sneaking up behind him. He glanced at the Gryffindor batter who was kicked away by Marcus with some dissatisfaction and decided to teach this kid a good lesson next. Still, thanks for your help, Augustus sneered and threw the quaffle in his hand. The moment his home batter hit the bludgers, Wood's face became a lot ugly. Is this making it harder for him? Sure enough, the quaffle thrown by Augustus no doubt collided with the bludger that was flying towards him and Wood blew up again. The ball bounced quickly into the frame again. Slytherin leads 30-10. Lee Jordan's excited announcement immediately aroused cheers from the audience. Even with such a goal just now, the enthusiasm of the audience is still unabated, which is really exciting. Seeing this scene, the batter just now turned pale, and he also realized that he had made a very stupid mistake. The so-called pig teammates are nothing more than that. Thanks to this classmate for the assist, I think the spirit of Gryffindor is so warm, 35. Lee Jordan's commentary immediately made the audience burst into laughter, which made the Gryffindor players look a little ugly. Next, Gryffindor attempted to attack again in the same way as before, but maybe it was inspired by the batter just now. When Wood made a long pass, he used a little more strength, and the pass was a little far, and it was not delivered to Angelina in the first time. Augustus wouldn't do rude things like hitting a girl, but that doesn't mean he won't steal the ball. He won't let go of such an obvious flaw. Almost as soon as Wood shot, Augustus moved. As a shadow-level powerhouse, Augustus has an extremely precise grasp of every ounce of strength. As soon as Wood shot, he knew it was a good opportunity. Sure enough, the red quaffle passed a little too far, and Angelina had to move a bit to receive it. Just when Angelina was flying to catch the ball, a figure passed by her. Under Angelina's shocked and angry eyes, Augustus swiped the ball with one hand and smiled at the girl by the way. Then, only the back is left. The ball just thrown from Wood's hand swiped by Wood's side again, making a precise hit. Wood froze. Of course he knew that such a goal would be a disgrace to his side. They didn't even cross the halfway line and the ball was returned again. Unlike the faces of the Gryffindor team members, the audience is much more excited. This kind of anticipation and reaction speed is indeed a genius of Slytherin. Just 10 minutes into the game, Augustus scored 3 brilliant goals. Angelina's pretty face was full of helplessness. She really had no way to steal the ball just now, even she was a little discouraged, not to mention the other players. Slytherin had already opened the point difference at 30-10, and at this time, our savior was still watching the whole game, stopped at the opening position and didn't move. He didn't know how to fight at all. Just when Potter was a little overwhelmed, suddenly a golden ball flapped its wings and flew past him. Snitch. Seeing the snitch, Harry was overjoyed and quickly chased after him. In his opinion, it's time to make a difference. Draco originally listened to Augustus' words and devoted all his energy to finding the snitch. But after searching for a long time, he couldn't even see the shadow of the snitch. At this time, he remembered Augustus' words again and always paid attention to the other side's seeker. So part of his attention has been on Potter. Originally, he was still laughing at Potter stopping there like a fool, but he didn't expect Potter to move suddenly, and Draco jumped in his heart and quickly followed. It's a pity that Potter just flew and danced in the sky like a convulsion. He even nearly fell into the sky and swept away several times. His Nimbus 2000 seemed to be drunk and started to go crazy. Draco laughed when he saw this and left a sentence when he passed by Potter. "Potter, your Nimbus 2000 is a pirated copy." After speaking, he chased after the golden snitch, who had already been discovered by him. Draco's words instantly made Potter flush with anger. But now it's a problem for him to make sure he doesn't fall off, let alone the trouble of finding Draco. Here, Augustus scored another magnificent goal, but when he returned to defense, he saw Porter, who was convulsing. "Is Quirrell the rat doing the trick again?" Augustus snorted coldly. Now Hermione certainly couldn't disturb Quirrell by burning Snape's robes, so at this rate, Potter might actually fall. At that time, people thought that we Slytherins were cheating. Augustus thought helplessly. And Augustus felt that it was necessary for this kid Draco to compete with Potter and let him take a hit. Then there was a flash of scarlet in the eyes, and the pupil power of the kaleidoscope was released, breaking the disturbance spell on Potter. Suddenly, Harry stabilized his body. Before he could think too much about why the sweep would get out of control, Potter suddenly accelerated and caught up with Draco. The two begin a fierce competition for the snitch. Seeing this, Augustus twitched the corner of his mouth and started to continue his scoring show. The cheers in the audience got louder and louder as time went on, because the game was almost over. Lightning goals, fancy goals, steals, drifts. Augustus's various wonderful performances aroused cheers from the audience, and the score was quickly enlarged. When the time came to 30 minutes, Slytherin had a huge lead of 160-30. In such a huge difference, 13 goals were contributed by Augustus. Gryffindor continued to struggle under the leadership of Wood, and it only allowed them to win 30 points from Slytherin. Damn. Wang Liao Zhao. At this time, if you want to win by scoring goals, it is already an impossible thing. But the people of Gryffindor haven't given up completely, because they know there is one hope on their side, and that is the snitch. They also noticed that Harry and Draco were chasing the snitch. Just catch the snitch and they can turn it around. With this glimmer of hope, Gryffindor's players began to grit their teeth, desperately blocking the Slytherin attack. In response, Augustus just smiled. "Do you think the golden snitch is a hope for a comeback? Why do I just feel that the golden snitch will be the trigger for your despair?" With this thought in mind, Augustus once again received a pass from Marcus. Seeing that the battle between Potter and Draco was about to be decided, Augustus smiled coldly, rushed out, and turned into a silver figure. Augustus attacked with the ball again, and both sides knew that it was time to decide the winner. The score is now 160-30. The Gryffindors knew that if they wanted to rely on Harry to catch the snitch and win, they had to hold off to avoid the score being pulled above 150 points. To this end, everyone in Gryffindor, including the batter, went into a final frenzy. 3 pursuers, 2 batters, 5 in total, surrounded Augustus in the middle. As for the rest of the Slytherin players, they can't handle much anymore. Just surround Augustus and leave him with no space to pass the ball. It has to be said that they are a bit stupid to do this, but also very smart. Marcus wanted to support Augustus, but after colliding several times, the 5 Gryffindors, 627, worked together to squeeze them out. It can indeed be seen from this that Gryffindor's teamwork ability is still very strong. Seeing that Marcus was knocked away by his side several times, the Gryffindor team members were relieved, thinking that this had worked. The batter who attacked Augustus just now even became arrogant, constantly harassing Augustus. Really looking for death, Augustus felt like his temper was being provoked by this guy. Want to bump me? Good, courageous. Looking at the eager hitter, a coldness flashed in Augustus' eyes. He has never collided with anyone in the competition. On the one hand, he feels that this is detrimental to his image. On the other hand, he feels that it will appear that he is too bullying. Simply put, no one can stand his blow. However, this ignorant guy didn't know Augustus' situation at all, so he really bumped into him. Then let's count the accounts just now. The next moment, Augustus' face turned completely cold. Without any intention of dodging, he directly collided with the batter. I thought this would at least slow down the opponent, but the moment the batter touched Augustus, he knew that he was wrong, and it was very wrong. After colliding with Augustus, he only felt that his whole body was like being run over by a full-speed train. His bones and internal organs were moaning, and the whole person was slammed at a speed several times faster than the collision. He flew out, and at the same time as he flew out, a blood mist spewed out of his mouth, and then his eyes went black and he lost consciousness. In the eyes of the audience, one of the 5 Gryffindors that surrounded Augustus, one of the batters collided with Augustus and then flew out instantly and fell like a kite with only a broken string. Because it was too sudden, no one even had time to cast a floating spell on him. Augustus didn't use all his strength, otherwise this guy just now could go directly to see the god of death. But even so, this funny will definitely have to lie down in St. Mungo's hospital for the first half of the year. For this kind of guy who doesn't know how to live or die, Augustus was kind enough not to kill him directly. The end of the batter immediately made the other 4 Gryffindors tremble for a while, and they dared not make any excessive moves, let alone collide with Augustus, and could only simply surround them. But soon the Slytherin team caught up with Marcus and they had an advantage in numbers. How could 4 people limit Augustus? Soon, Augustus dumped them. Perhaps outraged by Gryffindor, Marcus and the rest of the Slytherins began to take revenge, and soon one of Gryffindor's 3 Seekers fell too. In this case, no one can stop Augustus from scoring. At the last minute, Wood touched the ball that Augustus threw with his finger, but it was no use, the ball still went in. In front of Augustus, there is no such thing as a goalkeeper. The strongest spear penetrates all shields. Slytherin scored again. The score was pulled to 170-30. My god, is Slytherin going to be massacred? This game is so bloody. The score is already 140 points. Lee Jordan shouted loudly in the stands to mobilize the atmosphere in the game. Because of Gryffindor's stupid actions, they lost 2 players directly, and now there are only 3 people left to attack. Angelina, Katie Bell, and a hitter. 3 people wanting to score in the hands of Slytherin is simply difficult to reach the sky. Although Angelina tried her best, facing the siege of 3 people, she still had nothing to do. Soon the quaffle in her hand was just snatched by Marcus and another pursuer. Girls are at a disadvantage in some ways. As for Gooey Fake You, it was naturally in Augustus' hands. For no reason, Augustus scored again. The score was pulled to 180-30. Wood was once again scored a goal by Augustus. His eyes were bloodshot. Since he became the goalkeeper of Gryffindor, he did not know how many goals he intercepted and received countless cheers. But only when facing Augustus, he felt a deep powerlessness. In the whole game, Augustus scored 15 goals in front of him. It hurts more than slapping him 15 times. As long as they score another goal, even if Harry does catch the snitch, they will be powerless. If this is the case, then their Gryffindors will really be recorded in the Quidditch annals and become the laughingstock of everyone. He caught the snitch, but he still lost the game. Thinking about it makes him feel ashamed. Under the humiliation, Wood also broke out. The last ball, I swear to defend it. On the other side, Potter was slammed out by Draco. Draco, who had been trained by Augustus, was not something that Potter's small body could hit. Looking at the teammates who fell from the air one after another, and the shame and anger on the captain's face, Potter gritted his teeth and rushed over again. This time, the golden snitch actually flew 2.8 vertically to the ground. In order to catch the snitch, Draco and Potter had to chase vertically. Soon, the two were getting closer and closer to the ground, and Draco even saw dewdrops on the grass. Yet the snitch is still flying down. Draco's heart jumped wildly. He knew that if he didn't change his direction, he would really hit the ground, and then his head would definitely blossom. Which is more important, the golden snitch or little life? Draco unquestionably chose the latter and turned his direction unwillingly. However, Potter, who was chasing with him, gritted his teeth and continued to chase the snitch. At the last minute, Potter's mentality outperformed Draco. It's just a little bit closer and he's about to catch the snitch. And this time, Augustus rushed to the goal again. It may be a little bit related to the plot recently, and I will write some innovative plots below. Wood, I think I'm going to win this victory again. One-on-one with Wood again, Augustus looked at the dignified Captain Gryffindor and chuckled. Augustus' words made Wood's face a little livid. As the captain of Gryffindor, he naturally had his own pride. His goal was to lead the Gryffindor players to win the Quidditch Cup. Augustus' words made him very unwilling. I admit that you are very strong, but let's wait until you win, Wood replied, and he threw himself into the defense. Augustus twitched the corners of his mouth and said nothing. He told Wood with his actions that the game was almost over. Seeing that Augustus was about to attack, Wood only felt a tingling in his scalp, especially when he found out that Augustus wanted to attack. But whether as Gryffindor captain or goalkeeper, he has to keep his body in front of the goal. This is his pride. Taking a deep breath, Wood was ready, and a flash of determination flashed in his eyes. Seeing Wood's appearance, Augustus sighed a little. He had beaten him so many times and had the courage to stand in front of him. I have to say that Wood is indeed a good captain and a good goalkeeper. It's a pity that I met him at 17. I'm sorry, I've been merciful. After a few seconds of charging, the strength of Augustus' arm exploded and the quaffle was thrown out like a cannonball. Because of the speed, there was even a sound like air being torn apart on the way. As the last goal of the game, Augustus doesn't want to play any more tricks, just use the most profitable way. In the face of such an attack, there is no other way than to block it with your body. Wood didn't even have time to flash this thought. He blocked the quaffle and was hit hard by the ball. I thought Wood had caught the ball, however, to the horror of all the Gryffindors. The quaffle had no intention of stopping after hitting their captain Wood, and the force on the top was not at all due to Wood. The obstruction was removed. A huge impact force acted on Wood, and almost in the next second he even rushed to the frame with the ball. The quaffle spun and impacted Wood's abdomen, and then, with Wood, rushed into the frame. At the same time, Harry stood up from the sweep and suddenly grabbed the snitch. Immediately after, he fell and rushed out on the grass for a long distance. At this time, the audience fell silent. Such a violent goal is simply thrilling. Quidditch, to put it bluntly, is a sport that wizards use to relieve the pressure in their hearts. It is a game that tests the body and is even more brutal. Wizards are like muggles watching a football match, eager to see wonderful goals, and even the more violent the better. And this goal by Augustus perfectly interprets what is called the aesthetics of violence. Even with the goalkeeper smashing the goal frame, is there a more domineering goal than this? After the audience was silent for 3 seconds, it boiled instantly. Snape even turned out countless Slytherin flags with silver snakes on a green background, and everyone in the audience stood up and shouted loudly. The Gryffindor fans sighed. Even Wood was crushed like this. What else could they say? In the face of such a goal, even they had to express their amazement. This is just like when O'Neill smashed the rebound, which was a bit shocking. This Slytherin genius is too strong. At this time, Potter stood up from the ground. He didn't know what was going on in the sky where he was standing, clutching his chest, and vomited, and then a golden object spit out from his mouth. It was the golden snitch. Throughout the audience, Lee Jordan immediately discovered this situation and cheered loudly. Oh, look what our Harry Potter has caught. It's the snitch. Look, Harry Potter has caught the snitch. Everyone followed his instructions and immediately saw Potter in the arena. Draco covered his face in pain. He didn't expect Potter to actually catch the snitch, which made him, who was always proud, unacceptable. In the voice of Lee Jordan, Harry happily raised the snitch in his hand. Although he was only a rookie, he also knew what it meant to catch the snitch. We won. There was a happy smile on Harry's face, eager for everyone's compliments. However, to his astonishment, the other Gryffindor team members did not show any excited expressions. All of them looked dejected, which made his smile froze a little. At this time, Lee Jordan's explanation sounded appropriately. Oh, poor Gryffindor, poor Harry Potter. They managed to catch the snitch, but unfortunately they were powerless. Our genius Augustus has pulled the score to 160. Even with the addition of gold, the snitch's 150 points, Gryffindor still lost. The only good thing is that they managed to narrow the difference to 10. At least it looks better. Originally, he wanted to say something else, but Professor McGonagall had already drawn out his wand, and it seemed that he wanted to turn him into a pig. Let me announce that this Quidditch match, Slytherin won. With his announcement, the cheers in the audience raised a notch again. In front of such a wonderful game, they had forgotten the division of the academy, and everyone was shouting for the winner. The loudest among them is naturally the 4 words Augustus. As the MVP of this game, Augustus rode a silver arrow, flew around the arena, raised his right hand to greet everyone's cheers, and his handsome and dashing posture suddenly attracted a lot of screams from girls. At this time, our savior Potter, holding the golden snitch in his hand, was completely ignored. If there was no Augustus, he would indeed be cheered by everyone. Unfortunately, now he can only play with other Gryffindor team members. Together experience the pain of failure, and their captain Wood has been sent to the medical wing by Augustus for the 3rd time. Potter stood in the middle of the court, a little confused and overwhelmed. Augustus also noticed Potter below, sneered and ignored it. How could he not see that the golden snitch had been manipulated? Otherwise, with Potter's first-year level, he could be caught so easily. If the snitch is so easy to catch, then Quidditch is the point of it. Maybe in another 2 years, Porter will indeed develop into an extremely good seeker, but sorry, not yet. Others can't see the anomaly of the golden snitch. Can Augustus still not see it? If I guessed correctly, it must be Dumbledore's fault. He wanted Porter to build self-confidence in Quidditch and gain the support of students and professors. It's a pity that it was all ruined by Augustus. Looking at the audience, sure enough, our headmaster, Comrade Dumbledore, was looking ugly. He never thought that Augustus could lead Slytherin so much ahead. In January, the weather is getting colder and colder. The castle was covered with several feet of snow, and even the lake was covered with hard ice. The owls have to carry letters through the snowstorm in recent days, which makes them in a very bad mood. Every time they land on the table, they have to scream and jump, so the auditorium changes when the letter is delivered. Very noisy. Weasley's twins were punished for enchanting snowballs that chased Quirrell around and smashed into the back of his hood. Quirrell, who was pretending to be flustered at first, had a seizure after being smashed into the back of his turban. He directly petrified the two of them and handed them over to Filch. Because of this incident, few students dare to make fun of him recently. The excitement brought by Quidditch has not dissipated, and the weight of the course is layered on all students. Even the arrogant Slytherin snakes began to complete their schoolwork obediently. The fire in the common room is always surrounded by a large group of students working hard. At this time, whether it was Penelope, Hermione, Q, or even Alice Astoria and other girls, they were all seriously reviewing. In desperation, Augustus could only accompany Penelope to review together. However, his so-called review is really a bit too leisurely. Since 17 years since the game, our savior Harry and his good partner Ron seem to have made a major discovery and become mysterious. When Augustus occasionally went to the library to borrow books, he saw them rummaging around in the library chaotically looking for something to write. Augustus just shook his head helplessly and didn't pay much attention to it. Dumbledore's training plan seemed to Augustus to let Harry play at home. But what quickly made him speechless was that Hermione seemed to be involved in these two idiots too. Although Harry and Ron were late last time, they really had the intention to save Hermione, which made them forgive Hermione, and their relationship was not too tense. It is estimated that the two know that their IQ is not enough, and they must get Hermione's help to continue the game. Little Hermione had a strong sense of responsibility. Seeing that Harry and Ron's findings seemed to be of great importance, she hesitated and agreed to help. On this day, Augustus was leaning on the sofa and reading a book, when Hermione asked about Nick Meller. This made him feel a little emotional, and unconsciously the plot has developed to this point. It's time for Hagrid's journey to raise the dragon and the Forbidden Forest, and it seems that the time to meet the dear Dark Lord is not far away. Soon Christmas came and Penelope reluctantly went back at the insistence of the Klewots. Before leaving, he guiltily gave Augustus a deep kiss. Augustus understood this and told her that it would be after Christmas, to pick her up. The same is true for Hermione. The little girl has just entered Hogwarts and she must go back for her first vacation. Not long after sending off his girlfriend, Augustus also left Hogwarts with Draco. Narcissa wrote him to go back with Draco for Christmas this year. Augustus did not refuse this because he spent every Christmas at Malfoy Manor. Malfoy Manor was very busy today. Dobby, the house elf, was very busy. Narcissa shuttled through the manor, directing the elf to decorate and cook dinner. When Narcissa saw Augustus returning with Draco, she happily gave the two of them a big hug and seemed to miss them very much. Originally, Narcissa wanted to have a good chat with Augustus, but Lucius came over and called Augustus into the study. Sitting on the soft and delicate mahogany guest chair, Lucius greeted the elf and counseled a pot of hot black tea, poured 2 cups gracefully, and carefully added a slice of lemon to Augustus. "August, how is Zyarlong at school? He has been spoiled since he was a child, and this time he will live alone. Narcissa and I are worried about him." The first thing Lucius asked was Draco, although he seemed strict, but he really loves Draco after all. He is the only child of the Malfoy family. You should know very well that Hogwarts will take good care of the students, and Malfoy's name is still very useful in Slytherin. Augustus gently stirred the black tea in the cup with a spoon. The taste of the black tea at Malfoy Manor is still so fresh and strong. "That's because you helped him a lot. Narcissa and I are the most at ease with you taking care of him," Lucius said with a smile. But that Potter's admission this year was a bit annoying, and Draco seemed to be on the right track with him. Augustus took a sip of his lipstick tea, not wanting to talk about it on the margins. "Potter, savior. How does he make you feel?" Mr. Malfoy asked quietly. The Weasley family's idiots were hired as sidekicks and their vision was not very good. The two of them were counting down to grades together, and they were a bit stupid and arrogant and very reckless. Augustus casually spit out a series of sarcasm. I feel like I'm just a victim of It's Just a Vase packaged by the White Wizard. Sounds good, doesn't it? Lucius drank his lipstick tea. But even if we know that the savior is so clumsy, so what? Hearing Lucius' words, Augustus smiled slightly. Uncle, I think you are wrong. It's not that you can continue to maintain your current status if you don't want to do anything. The motto of the White Wizard is for the greater good, and those who can say this will not be without desire. Beg, what do you mean? Lucius narrowed his eyes and raised his teacup. It's actually very simple. The 630 White Wizard just wants the world to develop according to his script. Augustus sneered. He wants to stand in a detached position to control everything, but I don't think a pureblood family like us is in him. There will be a happy ending in the script. Yes, Lucius raised his eyebrows. Compared to the more civilian mixed bloods, he would not choose the few purebloods standing in the upper ranks. 35. Besides, we were already opposed to him, and some hatred can't be forgotten if you just forget it, right? Augustus' tone became a little cold. How many purebloods died at the hands of him and the Order of the Phoenix people back then? How many families were cut off? Even Black's glory was nearly ruined. 35. I can understand your feelings. Lucius' expression was also a little gloomy, obviously recalling bad memories, but soon his squinted eyes flashed some different light. Our pure blood will not be shed in vain. The reason why we are safe is because no one can deal with him for the time being. Maybe when you grow up we will have hope, Lucius said half-truthfully. Dear uncle, I think you are mistaken about one thing. In Lucius' puzzled eyes, the corner of Augustus' mouth raised a cold arc. That is, I've grown up, and Dumbledore, he's old. Following Augustus' words, a powerful and cold aura emanated from him. And at the same time, the majestic magic power that had been hidden in his body was undisguisedly released. With extremely high talent and constant practice, Augustus' magic power has reached the level of a top wizard. Maybe Voldemort and Dumbledore in their heyday are better than him in terms of magic. But unfortunately, Voldemort is still in a state of half-life and half-dead, and he has not even succeeded in condensing his body, let alone talking about magic. And Dumbledore, who is now more than 150 years old, the aging of his body has brought about the depletion of his magic power. Maybe in a few years, his magic power will fall below the threshold of a top wizard. In short, the magic power that Augustus is showing now is so powerful that there are few in the entire British wizarding world that can match him. And Lucius, who was opposite him, was only a professor-level existence. The powerful breath that Augustus exuded made his scalp tingle. As a former Death Eater, Lucius was extremely sensitive to the aura of this level, and almost at the same time that Augustus showed his strength, he showed a horrified look. Definitely an existence on the same level as the Dark Lord. Has it reached this level? Although he knew that his nephew's talent was extremely strong and hidden deeply, but in Lucius' view, Augustus was at most similar to him, but what he didn't expect was that it would be like this. Even Voldemort in his heyday made him feel nothing more than that, didn't he? Taking a deep breath, Lucius could only feel his heart beating wildly. August, when did you? Lucius stopped halfway. He didn't know where to ask. Dear Uncle Lucius, I don't think there's any need to hide anything from you. What I want to tell you is that even if Voldemort returns, this era doesn't belong to him, and I have the strength to make him die again. And Dumbledore, he is old, and I observed it for a long time at Hogwarts, and he is no longer my opponent. Looking at Lucius, who was still in shock, Augustus said slowly. With the strong aura around him restrained, Augustus sat down and continued drinking the black tea that was characteristic of the Malfoy family. After the abyss-like aura dissipated, Lucius heaved a sigh of relief, and the crushing on the level made him feel deeply powerless. But even so, he still feels a mess in his mind now, and it is obviously difficult for him to accept such a strong impact for a while. His nephew turned out to be an existence on the same level as the Dark Lord. Seeing that Lucius was hard to digest for a while, Augustus didn't wait for him to ask anything and said to himself, Uncle, I think you must have discovered something recently about the mark on your hand. 35. Lucius was surprised by Augustus' words, and then he sighed and nodded. Now that Augustus' strength has reached this level, he doesn't intend to hide anything. I noticed when I was at Hogwarts that the Dark Lord did not seem to have been eliminated. He was hiding in a dark corner trying to recover his strength. I think you can also see it from the changes in the Dark Lord's mark. Hearing Augustus' words, Lucius nodded. He also knew that the Dark Lord was about to make a comeback, but this didn't make him happy. The last time the Dark Lord led, almost made half of the pure-blooded nobles disappear. If it wasn't for him enough smart, it is estimated that the Malfoy family will also become history. Seeing Lucius' concern, Augustus chuckled and continued, "Uncle, as the best in pure blood, I don't think we need to follow the orders of a half-blood wizard. In my opinion, the Dark Lord is nothing more than under the banner of pure blood. He was just completing his dream of domination. You can also see that his actions did not bring much benefit to pure blood wizards. On the contrary, he almost made pure blood history." 35. Augustus' words made Lucius clench his fists, and in his thinking, Augustus continued, "I think the glory of pure blood can no longer be placed in the hands of Voldemort, the poor man who failed once." Augustus pursed his lips and said with deep meaning. Lucius, who has been in the official and aristocratic circles for a long time, couldn't hear the deep meaning of Augustus's words, and suddenly thought, for a pure-blooded noble like him, everything is based on interests and the same as interests. What matters is the continuation of the family. Lucius thought a lot in a short period of time, and finally, he glanced at the Malfoy snake staff in his hand with some complexity. "How sure are you?" 10. Augustus replied without hesitation. "What do you need me to do?" In the end, Lucius finally made up his mind. The strength Augustus showed and what he said just now made him choose a position. Seeing Lucius nodding, Augustus smiled with satisfaction and convinced Lucius, which meant that there was half a chance that pure blood would be used by him. As Lucius said before, the pure-blooded nobles needed a powerful person to lead them, and they also chose the Dark Lord who was born of mixed blood as a last resort. And the result, obviously, was tragic. In this case, the doubts about the Dark Lord have long been hidden in their hearts, and if there is no intervention from Augustus, they may continue to work for him under the high pressure of the Dark Lord, but the loyalty is gone. At this time, as long as Augustus showed his strong strength and excellent leadership, he could easily conquer these pure-blood wizards who were on the move. After all, as a top pure-blood family, Black must be more reliable than the cruel Dark Lord, right? Especially when Augustus's strength is not much different from that of the Dark Lord. If Lucius can be easily persuaded by him, then other pure-blood families will not be so stubborn, and even just let Lucius come forward. Next, Augustus, Wang Hao and Lucius talked about the magic potion and other things. Now he needs to make full use of the resources on hand to expand his power and network. The influence of pure-blood nobles is not small. I believe that under his expansion it will definitely play a huge role. Throughout the Christmas holidays, Augustus spent some time with Penelo and spent the rest of the time subduing the pure-blooded nobles and expanding his influence. Now that the Muggle world has come to 1991, Augustus feels that the wizarding world should also usher in a gorgeous change. Augustus really likes to enjoy life, but this does not mean that he has no ambitions. On the contrary, he never wants to be subservient to others, and he has always positioned himself as a man on the top of the mountain. All Augustus has to do now is to lay the foundations of the mountain under his feet so that he can look down on the ground without the danger of falling. After Christmas, Augustus enjoyed his academy life with peace of mind. During the holidays, he had already dealt with all the important things and left some trifles to Lucius. All he had to do now was to accompany him, girlfriend. Well, yes, this guy is now reviewing Penelo's homework, although the girl's grades are already excellent, but she seems to like Augustus teaching her about magic. In order to make the girl happy, Augustus was willing to do the same, and of course in return they would spend the night at Ice Lake Castle. Augustus had just finished a date with Penelo that day when Hermione stopped him. He hasn't seen the little girl a bit lately, because Hermione is running around, and Augustus is slightly unhappy about her helping Potter. "You said Hagrid had a dragon." Augustus looked at Hermione with a look of surprise. "Impossible, how did he hide such a big guy?" No, just a little dragon just born," Hermione explained. "Well then, what does this have to do with me?" Augustus wanted to tease little Hermione. But keeping dragons is against the law. Hermione was a little anxious. If the Ministry of Magic finds out, they will fire Hagrid, maybe even send him to prison. "Hagrid is very good." I have to say that little Hermione is still very kind, and Hagrid actually has an average relationship with her, but seeing the other party encounter difficulties, the little girl still eagerly wants to help, which is very in line with her character. Augustus smiled helplessly, because he found that he actually liked Hermione a little bit, even though he himself didn't like helping people for no reason. "Oh, so you know it's illegal," Augustus suddenly realized. "Then why do you want to get involved in this kind of illegal thing?" Hermione felt aggrieved. "Hagrid is our friend. It seems that our little Hermione has not been infected by the complexity of the outside world, and is still very simple and straightforward." Of course, Augustus wanted to protect Hermione's point, but the guy still raised his mouth and shook his head and said, "According to Article 342 of the Magical Creatures Protection Act of England's Ministry of Magic, Anyone who tames a dragon without permission will be punished with a minimum of 10 years in prison and a minimum of 2 years for co-conspirators. Baby, your wonderful life has just begun. Why do you have to mix things up? But don't worry, I'll visit you in prison when I'm free. Just pity Mr. Granger and Mrs. Granger. First, the well-behaved daughter became a little witch and then was thrown into prison. Gosh, I wonder if the Ministry of Magic would even allow muggles like them to visit prisons. Don't say it. Hermione was about to cry. After all, for a little girl like her, prison was a place she couldn't understand at all, and Augustus' attitude made her a little sad. I finally decided to come to you to discuss. The little girl's eyes were a little red. She obviously relied on Augustus to come to him, and she didn't expect to get such an answer. Okay, darling, I'm just joking with you. Seeing that he had almost amused her, Augustus took her little hand and coaxed. It seemed that the little girl really cared about his attitude. Then you come to me, and how can I help you? 5. No, Hermione finally broke into a smile. It's Draco, he found out about it, and he'll report it to the professor. Harry said they'd try to get the dragon away, but gotta make sure Draco doesn't talk about it during this time. I know Draco listens to you so. It's Draco again. Augustus rolled his eyes helplessly. His little cousin was really in a relationship with Potter, and wherever Potter appeared there would be traces of him. During the winter vacation, he was busy with other things and didn't have time to train this kid. He must not let him go during the summer vacation. Okay, I'll try. Augustus finally nodded. Thank you. Hermione looked at Augustus happily, knowing that the other party was looking at her own face. Otherwise, it would be impossible to help Hagrid and Harry. Don't say thank you to me in the future, of course. You can show it with action. Hearing Hermione's thank you, Augustus put the girl in his arms and stared into her eyes. Asterisk. Under Augustus' deep gaze, the little girl had no resistance at all, and shyly gave him a kiss. At night, Augustus saw Draco in the Slytherin lounge, but the kid seemed a little absent-minded. Draco, Augustus tried to soften his tone, you've been looking uneasy lately, what's the matter? Draco was obviously not used to such a kind Augustus, and his eyes flickered. No, it's nothing, cousin, I'm preparing for the final exam. Oh, Augustus frowned, so you're not thinking about Hagrid's dragon? Dragon. What dragon? Draco was a little flustered. What are you talking about, cousin? Point 0. Augustus was both angry and funny, and this kid was so busy when he talked about dragons that no one could see it. Enough, Draco, I already know all about it. After staring at his cousin for a while to make sure he wasn't cheating on himself, Draco replied dejectedly. Yes, cousin, you always know everything. Of course, Augustus said angrily. That's a dragon, that idiot Hagrid doesn't deserve it, Draco said excitedly. I've been watching them for a long time and I know where it's been hidden. I'm going to steal it, it's mine. Speechless, Augustus looked at his little cousin and asked, then what? What and then? Draco looked confused. Augustus groaned in pain. Yes, what can you expect? He's just a child. Where do you want to keep it? Don't tell me it's in this room. You don't know how to keep it. Dragons are against the law. Even if your father could exonerate you, I don't think you'd be happy to go around the wizarding court in Wisengamor. 9. Draco obviously didn't think about it that much. Maybe I can beg my dad to let me keep it. The little cousin asked with some uncertainty. I thought about it. Should I let the protagonist raise a dragon? A worker like a black dragon? Augustus is also speechless. When will his little cousin grow up? Draco, I have to say, can't you just think about your strengths and make the appropriate choices and decisions? Draco looked confused, not knowing what Augustus wanted to say. Hey, idiot, first of all you should think about how angry that half-blood giant Hagrid would be if you stole the dragon. Maybe he would tear you apart. Secondly, after you did this, Harry and Ron would how many ways do idiots try to trouble you? Not to mention that you don't even know where you stole the dragon and put it in your hand. Just for these few points, it doesn't make any sense for you to steal that dragon. Of course, if you just want to be angry with Potter, that's the exception. No, although I do want to fight against Potter 630, but I really want to raise a dragon. Draco said with a drooping head in frustration. It seemed that he was hit by Augustus' words. Seeing this, Augustus sighed and said, Dear little cousin, don't you remember at all that you are the young master of the Malfoy family? 99. Draco still didn't understand. Seeing this, Augustus doesn't intend to say anything deep in meaning to this guy. It's a waste of time. Simply put, you can't keep the dragon you stole, and the half-blood giant Hagrid can't keep it now. The Ministry of Magic won't allow him to keep a dragon. They're still worried about it. In this case, they would definitely choose to send that Norwegian Ridgeback. So where do you think they would send it? Draco thought for a while and asked uncertainly, a dragon farm in Romania. Nonsense, of course it is there. Augustus glared at him and continued. As far as I know, your Malfoy family has always held shares in the Romanian dragon farm, and the share is not small. That is to say, your family he is one of the owners of the Romanian dragon farm. When Hagrid and Potter sent the dragon there, wouldn't it mean that the dragon was given to you to raise? Instead of stealing the dragon yourself, why not wait for them to take the initiative dragon for you? Augustus said tactfully, and upon hearing his explanation, Draco's eyes became brighter and brighter, and when Augustus finished speaking, he jumped up with joy. Cousin, is what you said true? Of course, because I am also one of the shareholders of the Romanian dragon farm. Augustus helplessly rolled his eyes at his little cousin and said angrily, yeah, that's really good. I'm going to find Potter now and P***s off that megalomaniac. Draco said excitedly, it was perfect to not only get the Norwegian Ridgeback, but also to make Potter look like he was eating dung. Fortunately, his cousin reminded him, otherwise such a good thing would be in vain. Missed, however, before he ran out of the lounge, he was stopped by Augustus. Come back to me. Augustus was really about to cry stupidly by his little cousin. What's the matter, cousin? Do you think that with Potter's temper, you will send dragons to Romanian dragon farms after being mocked like this? Although Romanian dragon farms are the best at present, this does not mean that there are no dragons in other places. Field, don't you think that when Potter and the others send the dragon, there's no way to go back and it's not too late for you to? Augustus raised the corner of his mouth and said, he felt that he was really helpless, and he was actually teaching his little cousin to do bad things. Oh, cousin, what a great idea you have. Thinking of Potter's shit-eating expression soon after, Draco was instantly excited. In fact, Augustus didn't just want the two boys Potter and Ron to be crushed. He mainly wanted to help Hermione. After all, he had promised the little girl not to let Draco speak before the dragon was sent away. Although this result is not the same as Potter and others imagined, it has already fulfilled little Hermione's entrustment, right? I think little Hermione will not care who the owner of the dragon farm is. Maybe she will be very happy to know that he is a shareholder. Thinking of this, Augustus couldn't help laughing. It seems that the benefits of expanding the sphere of influence are many. The stake in that dragon farm was the one he had acquired during the holiday. But when it comes to dragons, Augustus has other things to gain. This starts with his Berserk elixir. Since his 3-color rage potion was circulated on the black market half a year ago, it has instantly become the most sought-after magic item of the year, and every time it is put on the shelves, it is quickly sold out. There are even wizards from other continents who come to Bogenbach to buy this potion. Because the effect is really violent, and the supply is in short supply, the price of this drug on the black market is now high, and I don't know how many people are looking forward to getting it. Some time ago, a dark wizard from North America found Bogenbach, hoping to buy the Red Rampage Enchantress, but because of lack of money, he chose to exchange magic items. Bogenbach was reluctant at first, but when he saw what the item was, he was stunned. Very decisively chose to exchange with that dark wizard. There is no reason, just because it is a dragon egg, and it is also an extremely rare black dragon egg. There are many kinds of dragons, such as Hungarian bee stinger, Norwegian ridgeback, etc., some of which are strong and weak, with different qualities. But the black dragon is one of the strongest breeds recognized by all wizards. Even many people think that the black dragon is the strongest of all dragon species. It is black in color and is known for its ferocity and ferocity. 2.8 It usually only appears in extremely ferocious places. Every time a black dragon appears, there will be a bloody storm. Under normal circumstances, wizards cannot hunt black dragons at all, because black dragons have abnormally powerful magic resistance. Unless a wizard of the level of Dumbledore, the attacks of other wizards can only tickle it. The price of catching a black dragon is extremely heavy, and there have only been a few cases in the wizard's 1,000-year history. In general, the black dragon basically exists on the same level as the black phoenix. The power and rarity of the black dragon have made them synonymous with terror. As for the black dragon egg, let alone think about it. It has not been seen for over 100 years. I did not expect that someone would be willing to exchange it. The value of this dragon egg is definitely more than the price of a bottle of red rage potion. How could Bogenbach see it, so he changed it decisively? Of course, there is also a possibility that this dark wizard chose to exchange even if he knew that he couldn't tame him even if he hatched. According to the Platinum blog, this guest exudes strange fluctuations all over his body. His face is extremely gloomy, and his eyebrows are filled with killing intent. Augustus didn't have to guess to know that this person must need the increase of the violent potion to take revenge. For those who generally need this kind of potion, except that killing is life-saving, Augustus didn't think that in order to save his life, he would let the North American wizard take out something like a black dragon egg in exchange. But no matter what he did, the deal was not a loss at all and it made a big profit. One is willing to fight and the other is willing to suffer. There is nothing wrong with it. The black market is not a kind place. Therefore, this precious black dragon egg came into the hands of Augustus. If it was a normal dragon egg, Augustus wouldn't mind throwing it to Draco to raise it. The key point is that this is a black dragon egg. The brutal black dragon is not something that Draco can tame. If you swallow him in one bite, Narcissa won't be heartbroken. So Augustus thought about it and decided to keep it by himself. He originally wanted to gather the power of the three favorites of the sea, land, and air. Originally, in his expectation, it was the ice lake lizard dragon, basilisk, and Costin. But now it seems that although Costin has grown a lot under his training, it doesn't seem to be of much help. A powerful magical creature, the appearance of the black dragon egg at this time just made up for this regret. Is there any more power in the sky than the black dragon? As long as this little black dragon is trained well, his three favorites of sea, land, and air will be gathered. Needless to say, the Ice Lake Lizard Dragon is not only powerful, but also very loyal to him. For this, I have to thank Ravenclaw. As for the basilisk, Augustus decided to conquer it himself next year. Although this basilisk has been around for thousands of years, he didn't think he would be unable to conquer it with full firepower. As for this black dragon egg, Augustus has already placed it in the alchemy room. Of course, he is not in a hurry to hatch the little black dragon. He has other ideas. Augustus wanted to try it out. What would be the effect of combining alchemy, potions, and black dragons? He doesn't really care about the so-called dragon in this world, and even the famous black dragon is not to his taste, so he thinks that he can try to transform it, and transforming it according to his own aesthetic is the most interesting, isn't it? During this time, Augustus felt that his strength had entered a bottleneck period, so he began to focus his cultivation time on other things, one of which was transforming the black dragon egg. Of course, there is one more important thing, that is, he began to consider the fusion of magic and chakra. This idea has been around for a long time, but there has been no clue. Now that the strength has entered a bottleneck period, Augustus feels that it is necessary to use the training time to study the fusion of the two energies. Augustus always has a feeling that when he completes the fusion of magic and chakra, his strength will increase by leaps and bounds. However, it is still too far to say. The road has to be taken step by step. Augustus decided that it is better to find a breakthrough first. For this reason, he has been running to the library more recently. Generally, when Penello is reviewing, he will read the materials on the side. He has a deep understanding of chakra, so the task now is to find out the essence of magic. There will always be some surprises waiting for him in the library at Hogwarts, especially the forbidden area. After thousands of years of accumulation, there will definitely be some whimsy and unique insights. On this day, this kid Draco came to Augustus again, saying that he wanted him to cast an invisibility spell for him. Augustus only found out after asking clearly that this kid wanted to watch the scene where Potter and the others sent the dragon away. It seems that this kid still attaches great importance to this matter. Augustus couldn't stand his entanglement and finally cast an invisibility spell on him, but told him not to make a sound during his invisibility. The tower at night was terrifying, but a touching farewell party had just been held in this terrifying place, and Norbert was taken away by some of Charlie's friends. Draco watched with relish while imagining how to mock Potter well tomorrow. When he was going downstairs, he happened to meet Filch, who caught Harry and Hermione, who had forgotten to take the invisibility cloak, and was scolding them severely. Seeing this scene, the boy was instantly happy and burst out laughing. "Who's there?" Filch turned his head immediately, staring hard at where he was. Draco panicked, one of his feet accidentally stumbled and he fell on the stairs. The invisibility charm suddenly failed, revealing in front of everyone. Seeing everyone staring at him, he panicked. Filch smiled, hee hee. "Come here, Mr. Malfoy." Filch took it as his duty to fight against the students, and of course it was impossible to let these little guys go. Soon they were brought before Professor McGonagall. "I feel very angry," Professor McGonagall said in a somewhat excited voice. "4 students don't sleep in one night. I've never heard of such a thing before. You, Miss Granger, I thought you were more sane, but I didn't expect you to be so disobedient. As for you, Beau Mr. T, I thought you valued the Gryffindor 630 honor very much, but it seems that I think too much. You 4 are going to be locked up. One is, and you, Mr. Malfoy, no matter what it is, you have no right to wander around the school in the middle of the night. It is very dangerous. 50 points will be deducted from each of you." 50 points. Hearing Professor McGonagall's punishment, the little guys suddenly widened their eyes, their faces filled with disbelief. Knowing that it is almost the end of the due date, deducting 50 points from each of them at this time is simply bad news. Gryffindor will deduct 150 points for this, and they, who were originally ranked second, are now firmly in the bottom one. As for Draco, although he was a little shocked at first, it was nothing to think about, but rather gloated. Anyway, my cousin has already given Slytherin an unknown number of points. Even if he was deducted 50 points because of him, Slytherin is still firmly in the first place, and it will not have any impact at all. Seeing the pale look on Potter's face, Draco suddenly felt better. Now, Mr. Filch, you can take them to Hagrid's confinement. Professor McGonagall seemed to be really P***** off and showed no mercy at all. This kind of punishment was already quite severe. Just as Filch was walking towards Hagrid's hut with a few little guys, Augustus appeared by the Black Lake. Of course, Augustus wasn't as bored as Draco to see the difference between a man and a dragon. He felt the fluctuation of the hook jade necklace he sent out earlier. As for which one, of course, it was the one for the little mermaid. Of course, Augustus knew very well what that meant. It was estimated that the little mermaid had come to the shore to play again. Augustus was very fond of this beautiful and very pure little mermaid, so it was rare that he did not sleep in the middle of the night and ran to the Black Lake. It was only after the arrival that I discovered that it was not only the little mermaid Anna who came here this time, but also her clan. Looking at the water, even Augustus was a little surprised. I have to say that mermaids are really a unique race, at least in terms of magical talent and appearance. But although these mermaids are very beautiful, Augustus still feels a little uncomfortable, just like when he was dating a girl, the other party suddenly brought his parents. Anna, what's going on? Augustus looked at Anna, who was a little guilty, and asked with a slight frown. Respected wizard, it's all my fault for some reason I have to ask Anna to bring us here. I think we can talk. Just when Augustus was a little confused about the situation in front of him, the very beautiful mermaid next to Anna said. Augustus stared at her for a while, until the mermaid twitched uncomfortably before nodding. To be honest, Augustus didn't like the current situation. Although these mermaids looked very bright, they made him feel a little passive, but for the sake of the little mermaid, let's listen to them for now. When the night was getting darker and darker, Augustus finally walked towards Hogwarts under the moonlight. His conversation with the mermaid clan was over, and he now had a dark blue scale in his hand, which looked extremely exquisite, and it exudes powerful magic fluctuations. This is the token of the mermaid family. After listening to the story of the little mermaid Anna's mother Sylvia, Augustus was a little surprised to learn that the current situation of the mermaid family is not very good. The mermaid family does have great strength and excellent appearance, but they have fatal shortcomings. That is, their numbers are extremely rare and their bodies are very fragile. These shortcomings have caused their numbers to decrease all the time. According to Sylvia, they are the only mermaids left in the UK at present. There are probably no more than 20 mermaids living in the Black Lake. Simply endangered magical creatures. If only a small number is enough, the key point is that in this case, there are still many creatures in the Black Lake that are eyeing them. As an important magical creature reserve, Hogwarts is inhabited by many rare magical creatures, of which the Forbidden Forest is the main area and the other area is the Black Lake. As the scope of Muggle activities and mining gradually expands, the living environment of magical creatures is gradually shrinking. In order to protect these magical creatures, and also to prevent them from harming Muggles, the Ministry of Magic has to transfer these magical creatures to other protected area. Among them, Hogwarts is an important protected area for magical creatures, and there are all kinds of magical creatures in the Forbidden Forest. Magical creatures such as unicorns, the Strauss, etc., have only been transferred in recent decades. Similarly, many magical creatures have been transferred from Black Lake in recent years. Some of these magical creatures, which are more aggressive and difficult to entangle, also caused a lot of pressure on the mermaid family. The number of the mermaid family was originally very small, because the targeting of these magical creatures has dropped to a low point in recent decades, and now there are only less than 20 left. Anna's mother Sylvia, as the current patriarch of the mermaid clan, had to take on the important task of continuation of the race, and find a new living environment for the clan. Otherwise, their clan would really be extinct in the Black Lake. In fact, not everyone in the mermaid family has powerful magic power. There are not many mermaids with extremely high talent like little Anna, and in addition to the scarcity of numbers, it is really powerless to face such a situation. For the continuation of the race, they had to think about something. In this case, the daughter sneaked out, which immediately frightened Sylvia. If she was caught by those dangerous magical creatures in the Black Lake, she would lose her only daughter. But to her relief, Anna finally found it and was safe, but to her shock, her daughter came back with an extremely powerful magic alchemy necklace. As the patriarch of the mermaid clan, how could she not know the preciousness of this necklace? especially when she discovered that the necklace also contained a powerful guardian spell. From this necklace, Sylvia could see that the human her daughter encountered must be an extremely powerful wizard, and she was also proficient in alchemy. This level of alchemy items is not something that ordinary wizards can have, not to mention it was given to a little mermaid who met for the first time. In her opinion, a wizard who can have such a level must have a great influence in the human world, and maybe it can help them. Moreover, judging from Anna's description and the precious necklace she gave, the other party seemed to like Anna very much. After thinking for a long time, Sylvia finally decided to seek help from Augustus, so there was the meeting just now. After listening to Sylvia's words, Augustus thought about it and agreed to help, because he happened to know that there was a place suitable for mermaids to live. Yes, it is Loch Ness. The environment of Loch Ness is much better than that of Black Lake, at least there are no dangerous creatures in it, and it will not affect their survival. Except, of course, the ice lake lizard. And the range of Loch Ness is also very large, which is very suitable for the mermaid family to live. After moving there, Augustus can also let the ice lake lizard to ensure their safety. Augustus also didn't want the little mermaid to be found in the Black Lake, or to be attacked by magical creatures in the lake, nor did he want the little mermaid to be saddened by the death of his people. For the things he likes, Augustus doesn't spare a little help from himself. Although Sylvia's behavior tonight made him a little unhappy, he still had a good impression of this beautiful race in the end. And it is also a very good thing to be able to live a group of beautiful mermaids around the Ice Lake Fort, isn't it? So Augustus told them about Loch Ness. After listening to Augustus's introduction, the mermaids immediately expressed their deep yearning for Loch Ness, where the Ice Lake Castle is located. Sylvia and Augustus agreed that after the semester ended, she would lead the tribe to Loch Ness with him, and even handed over the token of the tribe to him. In the grateful eyes of the little mermaid, Augustus disappeared by the Black Lake in the moonlight. Wang Hao Augustus was still in a good mood when he went back, because seeing Sylvia's appearance, it seemed that he was happy to continue getting along with Anna. It seems that tonight's trip to the Black Lake is still very meaningful. But what surprised Augustus was that on his way back, he met an acquaintance. I saw Filch was walking towards him with 4 students, all of whom he knew, 2 of whom were still very close to him. That's right, it's Hermione, Draco, Potter, and Weasley. Augustus thought about it for a while and immediately knew the situation. It should be that Yayu was caught and was going to the Forbidden Forest to be locked up. Looks like Potter will meet the Dark Lord soon. Of course he didn't care what happened to Potter, but with Hermione and Draco there, he couldn't care less, who knew if the 2 of them would be hurt. So I could only sigh and walk up. The senior male. Cousin. Seeing the figure walking towards them in the dark, Hermione and Draco suddenly cried out in surprise. Mr. Black, I don't think it's legal to show up outside the school so late. Unlike Hermione and Draco's surprise, Filch said with a disgusting expression. Of course, I know this. For this reason, I will put some more in this year's budget to recognize the dedication of employees working late at night. At the same time, as a student, I decided to punish myself and take the initiative to go to the confinement with you. Augustus chuckled and said to Filch. Augustus' words immediately made Filch cowardly. As the administrator of the school, of course he was very aware of the implied meaning of Augustus' words, that is, as the school director of Hogwarts, I can pay you a little more. Similarly, me too, I can get you out of here anytime. In fact, Filch regretted his words just now. After all, Augustus' identity is there, the head of the Black family, but unfortunately he didn't react immediately. He also saw that Augustus didn't mean to embarrass him with a squib, so he shut up wisely. With Augustus around, Filch didn't dare to use any punishment to intimidate the 4 little guys, and led the way honestly, during which Augustus made a random excuse to cover up what happened outside of school late at night. Filch led them to Hagrid's house, where the big man had been waiting for a long time, with his huge 633 crossbow and a full quiver slung over his shoulders. Okay, Filch, I'll leave this here. Hagrid turned to the 4 and said, How are you, Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Mr. Black? Come on, follow along, we're going to the Forbidden Forest. The half-giant Hagrid didn't seem to be at all afraid of the Forbidden Forest in the middle of the night, and his face was very relaxed. Augustus didn't react to this either. He came here purely to protect Draco and Hermione. Otherwise, he would have gone back to sleep a long time ago. Of course, he really wanted to meet Voldemort, especially since he was in a state of embarrassment. Look, as for fear, it is even more impossible. If all the magical creatures in the Forbidden Forest go together, it is estimated that it will not hurt him. But the 4 little guys were different. They had already had an ominous premonition, and when they heard Hagrid actually say it, they couldn't help but feel scared. The Forbidden Forest at night is eerie and silent, as if something will jump out of the darkness and hit you at any time. Thinking of entering this dark forest, Hermione squeezed Augustus's hand tightly and the two were very close. Of course Augustus would love to do it. After the group walked Psy into the forbidden forest, Hermione couldn't help but hugged Augustus's arms with both hands, obviously a little nervous and scared. For girls, the forbidden forest at night was indeed a bit scary, especially when the sound of a few alarms sounded from time to time. In the case of a werewolf howl, the road on the ground is very difficult to walk, or there is no road at all. The roots of the intertwined trees stretch out in a mess, and Hermione accidentally tripped. Fortunately, she held Augustus's arms in both hands and did not fall, but this had also caused her to stick to Augustus. It was dark around, and the two walked at the back, and no one noticed their ambiguous relationship. Perhaps the darkness offset the shyness in Hermione's heart, and the girl let Augustus put her arm around her and move on. Hagrid walked ahead to clear the way, and his pet Fang followed them. After walking for a while, he suddenly pointed to the ground not far away. "See that shiny thing on the ground? The silvery white, that is the blood of unicorns. One of the unicorns in the Forbidden Forest got hit by something badly. This is the second time in a week. I found one dead last Wednesday. We're going to fight to find the unicorn and make it free from pain." The unicorn, although rare, did not attract much attention from Augustus, because it was obvious that the little Hermione in his arms was more interesting to him. His hands around Hermione's waist were beginning to be dishonest. In front of him were Hagrid and Harry Ron. How could Hermione dare to stop Augustus, so he could only let his hands do the trick? The tense atmosphere added to the excitement, and Hermione soon felt a little weak, almost half-hearted, leaning on Augustus. Harry and Draco walked tremblingly and suspiciously, feeling that the murderer was hiding somewhere. Not to mention Ron, he hid behind Hagrid the whole time, his entire face wrinkled, and he didn't even have the courage to look around. On the other hand, Augustus and Hermione at the back, one seemed to be taking a stroll, the other blushing, looking like they were on a date. Hermione was a little scared at first, but because Augustus kept holding her little hand, she felt a lot more at ease. Later, because Augustus was secretly bullying her, she used all her energy to suppress the numb feeling. Where can there be fear? As they get deeper, Hagrid seems eager to find the injured unicorn sooner, asking to split into pairs. There was no doubt that Augustus was with Hermione, Harry with Draco, and himself with Ron. Draco had a guardian alchemy item he made on him, so Augustus wasn't worried about Draco's safety, and it was nothing to make this kid scared. Augustus and Hermione were very close, walking slowly in the Forbidden Forest. They could feel each other's heartbeats. Maybe it was Augustus' calmness that infected her, and the little girl was no longer afraid. In addition, because they were alone, the two really regarded it as a date. On the way, the two of them accidentally encountered a centaur. But after seeing Augustus' face clearly, the centaur immediately showed a look of horror and ran away in a panic. This made Augustus speechless. He really couldn't understand, was he so scary? After walking for nearly half an hour, the result was getting deeper and deeper into the forest. Later, the trees became extremely dense, and the path was almost impossible to walk. Through the tangled branches of an ancient oak tree, you could see an open space ahead. Augustus saw Harry and Draco standing there. The two were looking forward in amazement. Following their gaze, Augustus's eyes suddenly froze. A white thing gleamed on the ground. Yes, a unicorn. It was dead. The children had never seen such a beautiful and tragic scene. Its slender legs remained unnaturally straight in the way it had fallen. Its mane lay on the dark leaves, white as pearls. Harry had just taken a step closer to it when a sudden rustling sound made him stop and stand there dumbfounded. A bush on the edge of the clearing was shaking. Then, out of the shadows flashed a hooded figure which slowly crawled on the ground like an approaching beast. It came to the unicorn, lowered its head, aimed at the wound on the side of the corpse and started drinking its blood. Just then, a sharp pain pierced through Harry's head, something he had never felt before, as if his scar had suddenly caught fire. His vision was blurred, he staggered back and fell to his knees on the ground. Draco screamed in horror. That dark shadow turned and floated towards them. Harry and Draco were frightened by the shadows, and Draco ran away without looking back, while Potter tripped over a tree root. Of course, Sombre didn't spare Augustus and Hermione, but before he even had time to make any threatening action, he was repelled by a blue light swung by Augustus. Guardian Array, following the trajectory of Augustus' wand, a circle of silver light appeared around Hermione. Although Voldemort was still very weak, he still wanted to ensure that Hermione was safe. The black shadow fell and stood on the spot. The black robe blocked his face. But he didn't need to guess to know that his face would not be good-looking, and the strange thing was that he didn't make the next move. Of course, Augustus knew why Voldemort didn't attack again. For Voldemort, the first priority now is to save his life, and murder is second to him. When he found that his opponent was a little difficult, he naturally didn't want to put himself in danger. It took him a long time to condense his half-dead appearance. Need to drink the blood of the unicorn to maintain, enough to see how weak he is now. Augustus looked at the shadow in front of him playfully, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. I'm sorry you all need to sleep first, Nirvana abode. Hermione in her arms suddenly felt sleepy for some reason, and then she didn't know anything. Augustus placed Hermione gently and put a blanket on the ground, which was very considerate. As for Potter, let him fall to the ground naturally. The shadow on the opposite side didn't react at all, just silently watching all this happen. Augustus took a few steps forward slowly, stepped out of the magic circle, and calmly stared at the shadow on the opposite side. After a long time, he opened his mouth and said, Dear Dark Lord, we met again, but it's been a long time since you've become so embarrassed. Ah, 99. Augustus' words sounded mocking to Voldemort, with some doubts and some fear. Long time no see, has he met this young-looking student? But no matter whether he has met or not, the two magic spells that the other party used just now are things he has never seen before, which makes him have to be cautious. Of course, if it wasn't for the loss of strength, just for the slightest sarcasm in Augustus' words, Voldemort would not let him leave alive. Whether it can be killed or not is another matter. Sombre was quiet for a while, his voice a little hoarse. You are very courageous, young wizard, and also very talented, reminds me of my childhood. Now tell me your name. Hearing Voldemort's words, Augustus suddenly laughed too. How could Voldemort recognize him after so much has changed over the past 10 years? So he smiled and said, Dear Lord Dark Lord, I remember that you used to call me your godson affectionately. Why, after walking on the brink of death for a while, did you forget everything? Augustus's words were like a shock, causing Voldemort's body under the black cloak to tremble. You are Augustus. Augustus chuckled, of course, 55. However, after figuring out Augustus' identity, the Dark Lord suddenly felt even more angry. Is the Black family going to send out a second traitor? Did you come to see my joke? At the beginning, he recognized Augustus as his godson, although it was in recognition of the contributions and sacrifices made by the Black family for him, and the power and influence of this Black magic platinum family were all he needed. But even so, Augustus' betrayal still made him. Feeling annoyed, in his opinion, what Augustus is doing now is like rubbing salt on his wound. It's fine if you have to think so. Augustus looked at Voldemort hidden in the black robe and didn't want to hide his sarcasm at all. Humph, Voldemort snorted coldly, although he wanted to kill the godson who betrayed him now, but reason stopped him. August, as my godson, a true pureblood, why are you standing opposite me? I am still weak, but soon my strength will be restored, and the time will be when darkness returns. Do you think you will be forgiven by me for your present behavior? Why not come back to me and restore your former glory? Voldemort resisted the killing intent and began to coerce and lure Augustus. Thanks for your interest. Augustus was amused by Voldemort's performance. As for the question of allegiance, I think you've got a bit of a mistake. If the black robe was lifted, Augustus would surely see the puzzled look on Voldemort's face. Then the corners of his mouth curled up and said, ****. That is, if you have the courage, see who forgives who. After Augustus finished speaking, the expression on his face turned completely cold. In this state, Voldemort dared to pretend to be in front of him and put on an aloof appearance to coerce and lure him. Damn, Voldemort couldn't help furious. Let me teach you the humility you deserve. Don't worry, it won't kill you, but I promise you won't like it. 99. Very good, I want to see how you teach. Augustus took a step back, his figure flashed a faint silver light and began to flash quickly, and then appeared not far away if it was close. He has 10,000 ways to kill Voldemort in his current state, but killing it is useless. Voldemort has a Horcrux and he can still be resurrected. He just wanted to play with the Dark Lord who didn't know what was going on. Voldemort's eyes flashed with murderous intent, he waved his wand, and a green light struck Augustus with the breath of death. Seeing this, Augustus also understood that even Voldemort in this state is still strong. It is not accurate for him to be scared away by centaurs in the original book. He should have felt the existence of the Guardian spell on Potter, and Dumbledore's breath. If it was you in your heyday, maybe I would take it seriously, but unfortunately you are not qualified now. Augustus watched Voldemort and his body gradually emitted powerful waves. The green light that looked extremely dangerous disappeared quickly under a blue light from Augustus and soon disappeared. Seeing this, the fear and anger in Voldemort's eyes were even greater, and he swept the wand in his hand forward, and suddenly a large amount of magic power poured out, and the flames and lightning splashed wildly everywhere and attacked Augustus indiscriminately. Augustus reached out to Voldemort with his left hand, and with a grip of the void, a powerful magical force immediately bound the Dark Lord. I think I should let you figure out the current situation. Looking at Voldemort, who was under his control, Augustus smiled coldly. Voldemort was pinched by an invisible big hand and pulled directly into the air. In the confusion, the black hood fell off. What appeared in front of Augustus was an abnormally ugly face, with dark gray skin, snake-like features, long and narrow eyes, and no hair. It looked extremely sinister and cold, and in short, it made people feel very uncomfortable. Perhaps seeing the ridicule and disgust in Augustus' eyes, Voldemort's mentality suddenly exploded, and he has fallen into this state. He cares more than anyone else, and now he is like a wounded beast, very sensitive and irritable. Voldemort, who was under the control of the wizard's hand, instantly turned into a black mist, twisted and disappeared in midair, and then appeared not far behind Augustus. At the same time, a blazing fire 633 snakes are pouring in. Under the anger, Voldemort directly used the fierce fire. He didn't want to kill Augustus at first. In his opinion, Augustus still has great use value. But being ridiculed and teased by this humble godson over and over again, he was completely infuriated, and the killing intent in his heart no longer existed. Can't hold back. Even if he is fighting to consume the mana that is not easy to accumulate, he will kill Augustus. Different from the black fiery fire summoned by Augustus, the fiery fire that Voldemort summoned was crimson like magma, which seemed to be very strong. In Voldemort's hideous expression, Augustus was instantly engulfed by the flaming serpent. Seeing this, Voldemort took a breath and snorted coldly. Even if Augustus is his nominal godson, as long as he gets in his way, no one will let him go. Solving Augustus, Voldemort glanced gloomily at Potter, who fell to the ground. Although he is full of killing intent now, he has no intention of touching this boy. Who knows if the damn guardian spell is still there? Just when he was about to leave, suddenly, a voice came from behind him which made his body froze, and an unbelievable expression appeared on his face. It seems that I still overestimate you. Did a little fire snake exhaust your magic power? I thought you would last a while longer. I saw the flaming snake that engulfed Augustus suddenly let out a shrill roar, and then the lava-like body suddenly burst open. After the fiery serpent dissipated, only Augustus remained. Around him is a layer of dark red bones, protecting him in the middle, and an inexplicable energy rises above the bones, which looks strange and powerful. Even Voldemort was shocked by the scene in front of him. He couldn't see what kind of magic it was, but the powerful aura he felt from it made him understand that it was definitely unforgivable spell-level magic, and even more so. Voldemort's face was full of incredulity. In his opinion, the fiery serpent he had just released with all his strength, even if the Hogwarts professor came over, could not escape death, but Augustus was unscathed. What this meant Voldemort certainly knew very well. Has it grown to this point? 66. Voldemort's pupils shrunk fiercely, feeling that the magic power in his body was exhausted, and the gloom on his face became more dense. He no longer cared how Augustus humiliated him, and now he must think about how to escape. Otherwise, the semi-substance formed by hard work is about to disappear, and it will take him a long time to start over again. He doesn't want to try again because of the pain and hardships involved. Seeing himself taunting like this, Voldemort remained silent, and Augustus couldn't guess what the other party was thinking. This made others shake their heads. Two of the strongest people in the British wizarding world, Dumbledore and Voldemort, one old lost the heart of a strong man, and the other lost his heart of a strong man because he was half dead and afraid of death, which really made him feel a little boring. Not even a decent opponent could be found, which is indeed a very helpless thing. Why, my dear godfather, are you running away? That doesn't fit your Dark Lord name. Of course, I don't have to keep you if you beg me. Augustus stood in the rudimentary form of Sousa, looked at Voldemort in front of him, and said with a playful expression, "As the famous Dark Lord, Voldemort has never been humiliated like this. Even if he is reduced to this level, other wizards dare not even mention his name, but tonight he was deeply forgotten by his godson." The ridicule, and even the chance of escape, was a little slim. How could it not sting Voldemort's proud heart? "August, I'll give you one last chance if you really want to oppose me. In the near future, I'll let you not even kneel before me and beg for mercy." Faced with a choice, Voldemort said sternly, in this case, he also fought hard, and the big deal would be to lose the semi-substance that he finally condensed. Anyway, his Horcrux is still there, and he can still be resurrected, but it will take a lot more time. That's it. Seeing that Voldemort was still threatening to warn him, Augustus also laughed angrily. Why do these people always fail to distinguish the situation? Flame of destruction. The scarlet kaleidoscope suddenly turned, and suddenly, boundless black flames condensed from the void and swept away towards Voldemort. In the black flame, there was an aura of annihilation, which made Voldemort, who had not completely escaped from his soul body, feel a shudder. He had a hunch that if he was engulfed by such flames, he would definitely lose a lot. Maybe not dead, but 2.8's recovery of strength will be a long way off. He couldn't bear to think about why Augustus could control such a terrifying flame, and almost instantly, the black flame came to him. Suddenly, the black cloak was lit. The body just touched the black flame, and Voldemort suddenly let out a scream. The burning from the soul is not comparable to ordinary flames. Under the horror, Voldemort was also ruthless enough to cut off all the places where the flames touched. So there was another scream. When Voldemort dispelled the black flames from his body, he was left with the strength to breathe. Burned by the flames of shattering, even if Voldemort slashed off the place he touched at the first time, it still caused serious damage, and the Dark Lord can't find any complete place on his body now. Glancing at Augustus mixed with resentment, Voldemort's body suddenly twisted and disappeared. Even if he escaped this time, his vitality was severely damaged. Or in other words, the original vitality was severely damaged, and now it has been injured again. Augustus sneered at this and did not pursue it any further. He just wanted to teach Voldemort a lesson, or it would be useful to keep it. If Voldemort's half-entity was destroyed by him now, wouldn't he have no valid reason to get the Philosopher's Stone? At this time, Hagrid and the nearby centaurs Firenze also hurried over to wake up the sleeping Harry. What happened? Hagrid was nervous when he saw the unicorn corpse on the ground. Augustus gave a rough description, of course, only said that Harry was stunned, and naturally ignored his battle with 17 Voldemort. The surrounding environment has been restored by him with the restoration. This point of the wizard is indeed extremely powerful, and the destroyed things can be easily restored under the control of magic, which is unimaginable in other worlds. The centaur Firenze, looking somber and terrified of Augustus, pulled Harry aside and said something puzzling. Harry then seems to have decided that Snape was planning to steal the Sage's Stone in order to bring the Dark Lord back to life. After the centaurs finished speaking, they left in a hurry, and before leaving they glanced at Augustus in fear. After this night's experience, Potter seemed to be convinced that Voldemort had returned, and even little Hermione believed it and became worried. There was nothing Augustus could do about it, because Voldemort did come back. Time flies, and the exam that everyone thought would come for a long time came quietly before everyone was caught off guard. The weather was very sultry, and the large classroom where the questions were answered was unbearably hot. However, those who approached Augustus all had alchemy items that could keep their bodies at a constant temperature, so there was no response, and the other students were sweating profusely. The professor gave everyone a new quill for the exam, all with anti-cheating spells. As for this part of the written test, Augustus had no suspense and answered it easily and happily. The theoretical knowledge of each subject was extremely simple for Augustus. After inheriting the profound knowledge of Ravenclaw, how could such an exam be difficult to pass? There are also practical exams. Professor Flitwick told them to walk into the classroom one by one to see if they could tap a pineapple across a desk. Professor McGonagall watched them turn a rat into a snuff box. The more elaborate the box, the higher the score. If the rat's whiskers remained on the box, points were deducted. Whether it is directing a pineapple to dance or turning a cute mouse into a small snuff box, Augustus does not have the slightest difficulty in handling it, and the professors are happy to give him a full score. In the opinion of the professors, Augustus can honestly come to participate. Just as Augustus had imagined, little Hermione hurried to find him the next day. "You want me to go with you to steal the Sage's Stone?" Augustus looked at little Hermione with a look of surprise. He certainly couldn't show what I was looking forward to. "What makes you want to be involved in such an obvious crime? And if I remember correctly, this isn't the first time I've reminded you, baby. It's more serious than raising a dragon." Hermione was anxious. "But if we don't do anything, you know who will get it and come back to life. When he wants to rule the world, Hogwarts may not exist." Augustus laughed. "Oh, Hogwarts isn't here anymore. Let's see, maybe we can switch to Durmstrang. I heard they have a good black magic course over there. Lovely Beauxbatons. I hear they're full of flowers and cute little animals." "Don't worry, I won't leave you." Hermione didn't know what to say, and finally she could only express her worries. But the world might be destroyed. Destroy the world. Augustus was also a little drunk. "Don't you think that the name of the Dark Lord will definitely make it his mission to destroy the world? He is not a lunatic. At most, he is only ruling England. The Ministry of Magic is not very happy either. They don't even allow wizards to use magic in front of muggles." Hermione was also a little overwhelmed by Augustus' rebuttal, and said stupidly, "Is it a good thing for the mysterious man to rule the world? At least it must be a bad thing to keep the current system." Augustus looked into little Hermione's eyes and said with deep meaning. Hermione was stunned, apparently not fully understanding Augustus' words, but she thought of something and said slowly, "But this way many students in the school will be killed because of the mysterious man's return, and the British wizards will die a lot." "So, you're going to risk your own life?" Augustus sighed. Little Hermione's point is still the same as in the original book. Although it is very good, she will always put herself in danger. This is Augustus didn't want to see it. But who made him like this little girl? Since there is always danger, let him protect her. Little Hermione didn't understand why her life would be in danger. No, if you get caught, at most you'll be fired. Augustus was helpless, the little girl was really naive. Okay, let's not mention whether the defensive magic arranged by the professors is fatal. I personally think it is very likely. After all, you know the importance of the protected things. If you let you break in easily, what's the point of that? Augustus successfully saw the little girl's face turn pale. You are planning to go tonight. Have you ever thought about the possibility of meeting Professor Snape? Well, this is according to I don't quite agree with your statement. Even met the mysterious man himself. Do you think they will show mercy to you? Hermione obviously didn't think about this at all. In her opinion, the worst consequence would be dropping out of school. She was really scared and struggling, but Augustus looked at the little girl silently. He just wanted to teach Hermione how to think about everything before acting, and of course, to make fun of her. Hermione looked a little overwhelmed, like a drowning person grabbing a straw, and finally couldn't help throwing herself into Augustus' arms. Senior, tell me, what should I do? The little girl was already choked up a little, obviously very confused and tangled. Then, first of all, the result of the final communication was that Augustus, reluctantly, agreed to steal the Philosopher's Stone with the three of them. It has to be said that the little girl Hermione is more and more able to use her biggest weapon as a girl. After promising Augustus that he would stay with him during his vacation and be obedient, Augustus quickly relented. Harry was of course very happy. Although he was always ignored by Augustus and abused in Quidditch by Augustus, these seemed irrelevant in the face of Hogwarts survival. Although Goosey is a little arrogant, his strength is indeed first class. Otherwise, it would not have been possible for him to be the first in his grade for 3 consecutive years. With the leadership of such a strong senior, this operation of stealing the magic stone has another layer of protection. 3. As for Ron, it was naturally reluctance. This idiot seemed to have a crush on Hermione lately, but the little girl was so attached to Augustus that she didn't bother to pay attention to him. Coupled with the reasons that Augustus never looked him in the eye, Ron, a boy with a narrow mind, naturally didn't like Augustus anywhere. Too bad no one cares about his opinion. Harry wished the operation a success and would love to have Augustus on board. Needless to say, Hermione was the first to seek help from Augustus. So in the end, this guy could only swallow his dissatisfaction in his stomach. That night, the four met in the corridor on the second floor. Augustus cast a disillusionment spell on himself and little Hermione, and the two marched close together. Harry and Ron were both gay and arched into the invisibility cloak together. When the four came to the corridor on the third floor, suddenly, a voice came from the corner. Hey, those little devils have been busy taking exams recently, and Peeves didn't have a chance to play tricks on them. Would you like to have a grand farewell ceremony tonight? For example, one for the silly boy from Weasley, Chrysanthemum Remnant. In Augustus' speechless eyes, Peeves came over from the corner in distress. 66.99s. Augustus is also drunk. Is this Peeves a funny guy invited by monkeys? Why can he always meet him when he is invisible? Ron, under the invisibility cloak, blushed because of Peeves' self-talk just now, and something strange appeared, which immediately attracted Peeves' attention. Who? I know there's someone there. It must be a night-walking kid. Come out or I'll go find Filch. 39. Peeves looked at the place where Harry and Ron were in surprise. In this regard, Augustus had to rely on the stealth detection ability of Peeves. As expected, he was a guy who lived for thousands of years. This trick and the ability to return to the night are simply amazing. Reach the top. However, thinking that tonight was his action to obtain the Philosopher's Stone, Augustus didn't want to be exposed because of these two pig tamemates and Wang Hao Peeves, so he helplessly released the illusion spell on his body. Suddenly, the figure of Augustus appeared in Peeves' eyes. Originally still excited, thinking that he had caught Peeves, the night wanderer suddenly froze. It turned out to be this guy. Uncle Peeves was really unlucky tonight, but he dared not run. In the end, Peeves could only look like he was about to cry and said, "Can I pretend I didn't see it?" "Yes, but you are not allowed to say a word before the holiday." Augustus looked at Peeves and said unquestionably. Immediately, the expression on Peeves' face became even more bitter, but he nodded, as if he had been taught a lesson by Augustus. With Augustus' permission, Peeves immediately disappeared at the end of the corridor at a speed of 120 yards. So what surprised the Hogwarts students was that even on the day of the holiday, they didn't see Peeves' bibi, which made them puzzled. Was it trained by a great god? After dealing with Peeves, Augustus and Hermione came to the room of the three-headed dog, Lu Wei. Harry and Ron followed behind them, not daring to make any more noise. They also knew that if Augustus hadn't been there just now, tonight's plans would definitely be in vain. Senior, Lu Wei will fall asleep under the music. After entering, we only need to play the harp. Hermione was hugged by Augustus's arm and reminded in a low voice. Augustus shook his head at this, pinched little Hermione's small nose and said, I don't think that three-headed dog really wants to see me. 35. After finishing speaking under Hermione's puzzled eyes, pushed open the wooden door. It was just a little unexpected that after entering, I found that the three-headed dog was asleep, and the harp beside it was still playing. Seeing this scene, Augustus didn't know that someone had already stepped forward. Snape must have gone down. He cast a spell on the harp. Harry obviously saw it too and said with an ugly face, Then let's go down. Little Hermione started looking for the trapdoor. But soon she found a little depressingly that the front paws of the three-headed hellhound happened to rest on the trapdoor. Ron, let's move its claws away together. Feeling the urgency of time, Harry pulled Ron and was about to start to remove Lu Wei's claws. But it was stopped by Augustus. Is your wand made to rust? It only takes a little levitating spell. Looking at Harry and Weasley, who had already wiped their sleeves, Augustus said helplessly. Not wanting to hear these two people say that, Augustus pointed at the three-headed hellhound with the sycamore wand in his hand. Floating spell. Immediately, the huge body of the three-headed hellhound slowly lifted into the air, moved back a certain distance, and slowly descended again. The huge body was like a light feather under the command of Augustus, and Harry and Ron were instantly stunned. Looking at the trapdoor exposed in front of several people, Ron couldn't help but say, Is this still a little floating spell? Remember that he had just completed the arduous process of flying his feathers shortly before the exam. Augustus ignored him, waved his wand again, and suddenly the trapdoor opened. Looking at the dark people below, Ron couldn't help but took 2 steps back. It seemed that he planned to be the last one to go down. Hermione couldn't help but glared at him, a little contemptuous. Just then the harp suddenly stopped playing and the magic on it failed. The purring of the three-headed hell dog Lu Wei suddenly stopped. The 3 little guys looked up and their faces turned pale. This terrifying three-headed dog has woken up. Seeing a few little guys barge in, Lu Wei suddenly bared his teeth and drooled all over the place. However, when he saw Augustus beside Hermione clearly, his huge body shuddered. As a watchdog, Lu Wei dared to say that the last thing he wanted to see was this demon. However, he is now sure that this was not a dream, this demon really came again. Remembering that he was still baring his teeth just now, Lu Wei suddenly whimpered, Don't provoke this demon. Immediately, this extremely vicious-looking 3-headed hell dog actually lowered its head with its tail tucked like a pug, and hummed. Also, people who have experienced 1 monthly reading really don't want to try it again, not even a dog. Hermione, Ron, and Harry rubbed their eyes in disbelief. The 3-headed dog that had been bothering them for a long time was solved so easily. Augustus didn't even say a word. It was afraid become like this. At this moment, Harry suddenly felt a little like a clown. Seeing that this 3-headed dog was so funny, Augustus didn't intend to teach it anymore and said, Since Mr. Weasley dare not go down, let's go first. After he finished speaking, he hugged little Hermione's soft waist and jumped down first. If Hermione jumped down alone, she would definitely not help screaming. This was a natural reaction, but leaning against Augustus' warm arms, Hermione suddenly felt not afraid at all. Soon, Augustus felt that he was about to land, so another floating spell was thrown out, and the 2 of them were suspended in midair. Some dim light around them allowed them to see their surroundings, dense black vines. It doesn't seem to be in any danger, Hermione said with a sigh of relief after balancing her arms around Augustus' neck. Really, primary school girl, I don't think so. Although I haven't been to the magical plant class a few times, I still know these vines. For flowers. Is there anything special about these vines? Because she hadn't experienced it herself, Hermione couldn't tell what kind of plant it was for a while. Augustus laughed without answering, took out a doll from the space folding bag, and threw it away. This is a magic item he found in the room of requirement, a stand-in doll, which can help you block a certain degree of magic damage. In Augustus's opinion, it is a bit useless, so he doesn't care much and uses it as a tool for exploring the path. After the doll fell on the black vine, the vines that were originally quiet began to move, and soon the doll was entangled. Seeing this, Hermione opened her mouth in surprise. If they had landed on it just now, it would definitely be the same fate. Involuntarily, the little hand on the neck of Hermione's owner, Augustus, tightened again. Is this the devil's vine? Hermione asked uncertainly, frowning for a while. Yes, it seems that you have read quite a few books, elementary school girl. Hearing Augustus' affirmative answer in praise, Hermione smiled sweetly, screamed. What? Harry and Ron fell straight onto the devil's vine. Oh, 2 idiots. Looking at Harry and Ron, who were gradually entangled by the devil's vine, Hermione couldn't help sighing and said, compared with Augustus' reaction, the two were simply hilarious. "Oh, what the hell is this? I can't move," cried Weasley, grimacing. Harry was also entangled, but he noticed Augustus and Hermione floating in the air. "Senior Augustus, save us." Augustus didn't intend to waste too much time here, so he nodded. Burning flames, with the wave of his palm, a crimson flame spread out immediately. The devil's pain immediately began to shrink and dodge under the fiery flames. Soon, Harry and Ron fell. Seeing this, Augustus also fell with Hermione in his arms. After landing, Augustus straightened Hermione's messy hair, and the girl gave him a sweet smile. And Harry and Ron rubbed the place where they fell, obviously not lightly. What appeared in the eyes of several people was a deep, dark passage. Except for the cold ground and the stone walls on both sides, there was an unknown work. The long and winding stone corridor was silent and twisting. In addition to the sound of their own footsteps, there was the sound of water droplets slowly dripping down the wall. The corridor went downhill, reminding Harry of Gringotts. His heart skipped a beat, and he remembered the legendary giant guarding the wizard's bank vault. If he really encountered a dragon, he really didn't know what to do. "If you let Augustus know, you will definitely praise him that you think too much." "Can you hear anything?" Ron whispered. Harry listened carefully, and there seemed to be a gentle rustling and tinkling in front of him. They came to the end of the corridor, and in front of them was a brightly lit room with a high vaulted ceiling. Countless little birds, as dazzling as jewels, fluttered around the room with their wings flapping. Opposite the room there is a thick wooden door 637 heavy. "You say if we cross the room they'll attack us?" Ron asked. "Obviously, if you want to know the function of these little things, you have to pass through this open space first." Augustus glanced at the unknown creatures with wings that were densely packed in the air and said lightly. Harry took a deep breath, shielded his face with his arms, and rushed across the room quickly. He thought there would be sharp mouths and claws to rip him at any moment, but it turned out to be fine. He came to the door unscathed, pulled the handle, and the door was locked. Augustus came over, holding Hermione's hand, and Harry then pulled and pushed, but the wooden door wouldn't move, and Hermione tried to open her arrow again to no avail. "What?" Ron asked. "Didn't you notice that these flying birds above your head are actually the key to opening this door? It's not hard to see that these little things are keys with wings." After Augustus finished speaking, he began to look around. Every corner of the room, while Harry and Ron looked up at the swarm of flying keys. "But there are hundreds of keys on it." Ron looked at the keyhole of the door, and then looked at the keys flying in the sky, and suddenly said with a little breakdown, "We're looking for a big antique key, maybe silver, shaped like a doorknob." Hermione didn't just complain like Ron did, and began to observe and analyze it carefully, and could see that Augustus had no influence on her. Small, at least not as reckless as before. At this time, Harry saw a few flying swept away not far away. His eyes suddenly lit up, and he walked over, as if he was about to fly up to find the key. Seeing this, Augustus shook his head. He didn't want to watch Potter ride the flying sky and swept away to perform a good seeker's show, so the writing wheel opened inadvertently. In an instant, his dynamic vision increased to a perverted level. The swirling keys moved very slowly in his eyes, and soon, Augustus found a worn-out silver key hidden among the keys, with drooping wings, as if it had been caught and roughly stuffed inside. In the keyhole general, the wand in Augustus's hand pointed to the key with sky-blue feathers. A wizard's hand cast it in a direction. The somewhat listless key was instantly grasped by an invisible big hand in the air. After struggling for a few times, the key was useless. The shrug was handed to Augustus. Obviously, it was used to this rough way. Before Harry could fly up, he had to get off his broom and gather next to Augustus. "Is it this one?" Harry asked a little uncertainly. "Try it and you won't know." Augustus took the key, shoved it into the keyhole, and twisted it hard. Yes, it was it. There was a click, and as soon as the lock snapped open, the key flew away again. It was caught twice in a row. He looked haggard. "Ready?" Augustus asked Harry, Ron, and Hermione, holding the doorknob in his hand. Seeing the three nodded, he pushed the door open. The second room was pitch black and nothing could be seen. But as soon as they stepped in, the house was suddenly brightly lit, illuminating a shocking scene. They stood on the edge of a huge chessboard with black chess pieces in front of them. Those chess pieces were taller than them and seemed to be carved by throwing black stones or the like. At the other end of the room, facing them, were some white chess pieces. Harry and Ron shivered a little. Those tall white chess pieces had no features on their faces. Hermione was relatively better with Augustus by her side, but her body trembled slightly. "What now?" Harry whispered. "It wasn't obvious," said Ron. "We had to play chess to get to the other side of the room." They saw a door behind the white pawn. "How?" Hermione asked nervously. Obviously, she had never seen such a scene. "In my opinion, we have to act as pawns." Ron seemed a little eager to try, and finally he had a chance to perform. I don't think it's necessary to be so troublesome, just go over there. Augustus shook his head. He had no interest in accompanying the little guys to get through the level. The magic stone was his purpose. Now he wants him to calm down and play chess. Impossible, he intends to be a little violent. These stone constructing statues are still exquisite, but they are only a little deterrent on the surface. They are much weaker than the puppets in Hawkage. He has killed a lot of puppet masters, so he may be frightened by these stiff stone statues. The silver wand pointed in the middle of the room, and suddenly, a huge dark cloud began to form on the roof. As the cloud slowly expanded, the entire room was covered with dark clouds, and huge hailstones fell from the clouds. Fell on the huge chessboard and sputtered clusters of ice crystals. The frost grew on the ground, covering the entire chessboard and the pieces. In less than a moment, the entire room became a world formed by ice crystal columns. 2.8 This is a scoped spell that Augustus developed when he was bored, and it's working just fine now. Harry and Ron stared blankly at the world of ice and snow in front of them. They didn't know what to say to express their current mood. In this country of ice, any language seemed too pale. Okay, it's easier this way. Hermione calmed her breath and murmured. She knew Augustus was powerful, but she didn't expect it to be so powerful. But at the same time, Hermione was a little sweet and proud because this someone she likes. Let's go, I don't know what else is waiting ahead. Augustus said lightly to Harry and Ron, then took Hermione's little hand and took the lead to walk across the mirror-like smooth and white ground that had been covered by huge ice blocks and walked towards the exit ahead. Senior, what do you think will happen next? Walking through the beautiful and cold ground, Harry was a little fortunate to be able to get the help of Augustus. Judging from the previous levels, it was impossible for them to pass without the help of Augustus. At least in his opinion. We've got through Sprout's trap, the Devil's Web. Flitwick should be the one who enchanted those keys. Professor McGonagall transformed the pieces, making them come alive. I think that's all that's left. Quirrel's magic and Snape's. Augustus answered Harry's question as he walked. They came to a door again. Can you open the door? Harry whispered, looking back at Augustus. He didn't dare to act without permission. Come in, Augustus nodded. Harry pushed the door open. Suddenly, a disgusting stench came to their nostrils and they had to lift up their clothes to block their noses. His eyes and Ron's eyes were also smoked with tears, and through the blurred tears, a troll, larger than the one they had fought against last time, lay motionless on the floor in front of him, lost perception. There was a large, bloody lump on the head. Augustus was already prepared, and the moment Harry opened the door, he gave himself and Hermione a fresh air, avoiding the stench of the troll's corpse. Great, we don't have to fight this troll, Harry whispered. They carefully stepped over the troll's sturdy legs. Come on, I'm out of breath, 35. He opened the next door, and for a while the two of them couldn't even see what was waiting for them next. Obviously there was a psychological shadow, but there was nothing scary here, just a table with 7 rows on it. Bottles of various shapes. 7 bottles are filled with luscious liquids which seem to contain endless magical powers, and each color reveals a mesmerizing color. It must be Snape's magic, said Harry. What should we do? Just as the 4 of them crossed the threshold, a flame suddenly rose up behind them, sealing the door. The flame was unusual, it was purple. At the same time, the door leading to the front also burst into black flames. They were stuck in the middle. Seeing the black flame, Augustus laughed immediately. Although the flame seemed a little weak, it was definitely not wrong. Black fiery. It seems that Snape's level is really good. Look, Hermione grabbed the roll of parchment that was lying next to the bottle. Augustus put his arm around Hermione from behind and read with her, danger lies ahead, safety lies behind. There are 2 of us who can help you. Drink them, one will lead you forward, the other will send you back to where you came from. Both contained nettle wine. 3 are killers waiting in line. Choose unless you wish to procrastinate here forever. We also provide 4 clues to help you choose. First, no matter how cunningly the poison hides, it is actually standing to the left of the nettle wine. Second, the contents of the bottles on the left and right ends are not well rounded. If you want to move forward, they are not will work for you. Third, you will find that the bottles vary in size. There is no death in the giant and the dwarf. The fourth, the second from the left and the second from the right, look different but taste the same. Interesting, logical reasoning. Augustus was a little intrigued, rarely seen this in the wizarding world, and it seemed that Snape really had a different taste. Hermione let out a long hiss, and Harry was surprised to see her smile, something he couldn't have laughed himself. As for Ron, he didn't even understand the content just now, so he stood there awkwardly pretending to be a devil flame, but looked at Augustus's hand around Hermione's waist with jealousy from time to time. Yes, said Hermione, it's not magic, it's logic, it's a riddle. Many of the greatest wizards and wizards don't have the slightest sense of logic, and they're stuck here forever. If that's the case, I'll leave this to you. Augustus glanced at Hermione, who was carefully studying the prompts. In fact, he could ignore the flames, but this was a good opportunity for Hermione to show her confidence. Heart, in Augustus's view, is still necessary. Just give me a minute, and I should be able to decipher this mystery in 1 minute. Hermione read the paper a few more times. She walked up and down the row of bottles, talking to herself, pointing at this or that bottle. Finally, she clapped her hands happily. Got it, she said. This tiniest bottle can help us get through the black flames, get the Philosopher's Stone. Harry looked at the inconspicuous little bottle. There's only enough in there for one man, he said, and less than a sip 35. Which bottle would allow one to return through the purple flames? Augustus asked, turning his head. Hermione pointed to a round bottle on the far right. Well then, Ron, drink the liquid in the bottle that can be returned, go back through the purple flame and return to the dormitory immediately to wait for our news. Hermione, you stay here, wait for me to return and don't need anything during this period. Move, Harry, drink the bottle that goes on and I'll go in with you right through the black flames. Augustus thought for a moment, then told the three of his plans. Hermione nodded and asked her to go back early. She was so worried about Augustus, so waiting here was the best choice. As for Ron, he had long been apprehensive about the terrifying encounter here. Now that he can go back in an open and honest manner, how can he disagree? So he quickly nodded. Needless to say, Harry came here for the Philosopher's Stone. You have to be careful. Hermione glanced at Augustus with some reluctance, then hugged him tightly. I'm leaving. Ron couldn't look any further, turned around and passed through the purple flames. Harry took a deep breath and grabbed the smallest bottle of 637. He turned to face the black flames. I'm here. After he finished speaking, he drank the liquid from the small bottle in one gulp. The potion was indeed like ice, and it penetrated into his whole body at once. He put down the bottle and walked forward. He mustered up his courage and saw the black flames licking his body, but he felt nothing at that moment. He asked. He could see nothing, only the black flames in front of him, and then he went smoothly to the other side, entered the last room. Reassuringly kissed Hermione's forehead, Augustus signaled her to be relieved, and then performed an earth escape rock color concealment technique. His whole body slowly disappeared into the air, and then went straight through the black flame. These black flames touched Augustus' body, rubbing against Augustus' black robe like clusters of well-behaved pets. In terms of the degree of control over flames, no wizard in this world can match him. Walking slowly into the room, Augustus glanced at the room, and it wasn't Snape or even Voldemort standing in the middle of the room. It's Quirrel. Of course Augustus knew that, but Harry didn't. The person in front of him was completely beyond his expectations, making him a little unacceptable. From Augustus' point of view, Potter must think he's really stupid. Augustus was invisible. Quirrel thought Potter was the only one who came in and immediately started the villain's death-defying performance. It's you, Harry gasped in astonishment. Quirrel smiled. Now his face doesn't twitch at all, the stupid look he used to confuse students and teachers. Yes, it's me. I was wondering if I'd meet you here, Potter. Why shouldn't it be Snape? Potter was still in disbelief. He simply couldn't accept the fact that if this was true, wouldn't it mean that all his previous inferences were wrong? Snape, Rocky laughed again, but not the usual loud laugh, but sharp and cold. Yeah, he does look like a bad guy, so with him around, who's going to doubt Casey poor not Baba's Rocky professor? Luo performed with a carefree expression as if everything was under control. However, I have to say that his trick is to use Snape to hide his scheming. Of course, it's limited to Potter. Harry obviously couldn't accept this fact. This can't be true, never will. But during Quidditch that day, Snape tried to kill me. Harry was still arguing, but more like convincing himself that his self-esteem had taken a serious blow. No, that's not right. I wanted to kill you. On the contrary, Snape wanted to save you. If it wasn't for some unknown reason, my spell would suddenly fail and you would have fallen off the flying sweeper that day. A mess. Snape wants to save me. Harry suddenly showed a look of disbelief. He had been doubting the person who saved him. Of course, why else would he be the referee in your next game? He's so that I won't have another chance to make another move. That's funny, Rocky said coldly. Actually, he didn't have to do it at all because Dumbledore was watching and I didn't dare to do anything. Everyone thought Snape was preventing Gryffindor from winning and he was unpopular for that. What a waste of time. No matter what, I can still kill you tonight. Rocky flicked his fingers and a rope suddenly appeared, tying Harry tightly. You're too much of a nosy, Potter. You must have seen me walking around the campus on Halloween when I was checking what was guarding that rock. Did you let that troll come out? Potter looked at Quirrell in horror. At this time, he had to believe that Quirrell was really the murderer behind the scenes, and he was indeed an idiot. Of course, I have a special talent for dealing with trolls. You must have seen what I did to the one in the previous room. But while everyone was running around looking for it, Snape had already suspected me, and he went directly to the third floor to find me. It's a pity that my troll didn't kill you, and even the three-headed dog didn't tear Snape's leg. Really pity? Well, Potter, wait for me in peace. I'm off to check out this fun mirror. It was only then that Harry realized that there was a large framed mirror behind Rocky, the Mirror of Erist. Augustus, who was hiding beside them at this moment, looked at the mirror with an incomprehensible meaning in his eyes. This magic mirror can make people see the most urgent and strongest desires in their hearts. It is precisely because of this feature that it is used as the last item to protect the Philosopher's Stone against Voldemort. Dumbledore hides magic in a mirror as the final level to protect the Philosopher's Stone. Only those who want to find the stone find it, but don't want to use it can obtain the Philosopher's Stone. Otherwise, they will see pictures of them turning stones into gold with magic stones or drinking elixir of life and the like, and never get the magic stone. What Augustus saw in the mirror was himself, and it seemed to be an ordinary mirror. Augustus was not surprised at all. Although the level of alchemy reflected in this mirror was very high, it was not enough to guess his mind. In other words, this mirror is not enough to break through the barrier of the blood wheel eye. Seeing the Mirror of Erist, Augustus didn't show up immediately. He felt that Quirrell and Potter were very talented in drama, and their performances were very interesting. He wanted to continue watching jokes. This mirror is the key to finding the Philosopher's Stone, Rocky muttered, walking beside the frame. I'm sure Dumbledore can provide some clues. Unfortunately, he's still in London until he returns. I've come a long way. Although he didn't know why Augustus didn't show up yet, Harry knew that all he had to do now was try to get Rocky to talk as much as possible, and not let him focus on studying the mirror. Also hope that Augustus shows up sooner. I saw you and Snape talking. Potter began to stall for time, and Augustus was happy to watch the two jokers continue, thinking about getting the Philosopher's Stone next. Yeah, Rocky responded absent-mindedly as he circled the mirror. It was at that time that he found me and wanted to see where I had come. In fact, he had been suspicious of me all the time, thinking he could scare me, but didn't know that I had a master by my side. 35 Rocky came out from behind the mirror and stared greedily at it. I've seen the stone, I'm going to report it to my master, but how on earth can I get it? Harry tried desperately to break free of the rope, but it was so tight that it was all he could do to distract Rocky. But Snape always looked like he hated me. Oh, he really hates you, said Rocky languidly. Don't you know he hated each other when he was at Hogwarts with your father, but he didn't want to at all, you die. But I heard you crying the other day. I thought Snape was threatening you, Harry said casually. This time, Potter's words seemed to touch a certain nerve in Quirrell, and a wave of fear flashed across Rocky's face. Sometimes, Quirrell whispered, I find it hard to follow my master's teachings. He's a great wizard and I'm too weak. 55. You mean he was in the classroom with you at that time? Hearing this, Harry gasped. He's with me all the time, Rocky said quietly. I met him when I was traveling the world. I was just a stupid young man with some weird ideas about good and evil in my head. It was the master who made me realize how much I am mistakes and ignorance. In fact, good and evil do not exist, only strength is the most important thing, and those who are weak should. Since then I have followed him faithfully, but I also Wang Heizhou, he's been too harsh on me, he's let him down so many times. Rocky said suddenly, his voice trembling, he wouldn't forgive me easily. When I didn't steal the stone from Gringotts at the time, he was very angry and punished me severely. Decided to monitor me more closely in the future. Rocky's voice faded slowly, and Harry couldn't help remembering when he was in Diagon Alley. How could he be so stupid? Didn't see Rocky there that day and shook hands with him in the leaky cauldron. Quirrell lost interest in the conversation just as Harry was in a state of chagrin. It's hard to find. Is that stone in the mirror? Shall I break it? 33 Rocky cursed angrily. Seeing this, Augustus also knew that the performance of the two was about to end, so he slowly showed his body, and he knew that the next thing was the highlight. The sudden appearance of Augustus made Quirrell, who was still about to say something, look like a duck whose throat was being choked. He was surprised and said nothing, pointing at Augustus with a look of horror. August. Why are you here? I thought that only Potter was there and I could easily take Potter, so Quirrell leaked a lot of secrets. But now Augustus suddenly appeared after he told all the secrets. How could it not make him shocked and angry? Quirrell felt a pang of fear at the same time as his anger. He served as a professor of defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts for a year, and he was not in vain. Quirrell had already heard about this student who had never taken his class. The heir to the first black magic family Black, the descendant of the magic family Salazar, the genius of potions, the genius of magic spells, the genius of transfiguration, the genius of Quidditch, and so on. Not only that, he also learned from other professors that Augustus has completed the phoenix form of **CK Gus, and his strength is definitely not inferior to Snape. In a word, compared with the mediocre him, Augustus was a genius who looked down on everyone. Even if the other party was still a student, his strength was definitely not weaker than him, maybe a lot stronger. The appearance of Augustus instantly made his odds of winning infinitely close to zero. The master's current strength has not recovered if he is defeated by Augustus. Thinking of this, Quirrell suddenly shuddered, a little afraid to think further. The way Voldemort punished him was brutal. Senior, stop him, Quirrell is the one who wanted to steal the magician all the time, don't let him succeed. Seeing Augustus appear, Harry felt relieved and shouted not far away. But Augustus ignored him. Do you still need to remind him? Quirrell wasn't the most shocking thing about Augustus' appearance. That's right, it was Voldemort who possessed Quirrell. A powerful dark wizard like Voldemort, who has experienced too many things, will not take chances, and he does not think that Augustus will not find his existence. So in the next second, Voldemort knew there was going to be a fight to the death tonight. Before Quirrell could figure out what to do, a hoarse, low voice full of dark fluctuations suddenly echoed in the secret room. Why? Augustus, why are you doing this against me? Have you forgotten the glory of being a pureblood wizard? The voice instantly made Quirrell awe and fear. To go against you is to betray the glory of pure blood. It's ridiculous. Before saying this, please clarify one thing first. That is, it is me who is pure blood, not you. Psi, you only just a poor half-blood who has the right to talk to me like this. Just because you almost led the pure blood to ruin, Voldemort's remarks immediately angered Augustus. It seems that the lessons from the Forbidden Forest were not enough, and Voldemort did not learn what humility is. Damn. The words of the two angered each other. Unlike Voldemort's warning, the angered Augustus was even more merciless. Mixed blood has always been Voldemort's greatest shame and pain. No one has ever dared to say it to him. It happened to do so. After this taunt by Augustus, there is no doubt that Voldemort is on the verge of rage. Voldemort also knew that if he didn't kill Augustus tonight, let alone take the Philosopher's Stone and be resurrected, even the semi-entity he had finally condensed would disappear from then on, and it would be a long time before he wanted to be resurrected again. Master, your strength is still, Quirrell said in a low voice, trembling in horror when he felt Voldemort's change, but just halfway through, his body suddenly trembled, his eyes rolled white and his face turned purple. All the veins are exposed. Seeing this, Augustus didn't know what Voldemort wanted to do, but he didn't stop him. He hadn't had a good fight for a long time, and he hoped that he could relax a little tonight. That's right, Voldemort is draining Quirrell's life force. From this point of view, Voldemort is indeed ruthless. Quirrell worked diligently for his resurrection plan for several years. He never complained or resisted in the slightest, but in the end he didn't even have a ward and was drawn by Voldemort dried life force. It's so stupid and pathetic. In just a few seconds, Quirrell's body seemed to have been drained of all moisture and turned into a zombie, but he did not collapse. To Harry's horror, Quirrell turned around and in the back of his head there was another face. Fear. Harry had never seen such disgusting and horrifying images. Even a troll would be so much better. Scarlet long narrow eyes, snake-like nose, gray-black skin with several black blood vessels bursting on it looked evil and terrifying. The moment he saw this face, a name suddenly popped into Harry's mind. Voldemort. At this moment Harry froze all over and only fear and hatred remained in his eyes. It seems that absorbing the life force of the unicorn blood, and the poor worm Quirrell has temporarily restored some of your strength. Looking at Voldemort, who was staring at him coldly, his eyes full of murderous intent, Augustus said slowly with an icy arc on the corner of his mouth. It's only 30%, but it's more than enough to kill you, a traitor. When I kill you and take the Philosopher's Stone, everything will come back. Although Voldemort looked calm, his inner anger and killing intent had already broken through the sky. The reason he didn't take action immediately was because it would take a little time to completely convert the life force extracted from Quirrell's body into magic power. As a culprit of the times, wouldn't it be good to be obediently submerged in the long river of time? Why do you still have to come out after more than 10 years? Don't you know that even if you are resurrected, you are already outdated? The silver wand in his hand gradually extended and turned into a sharp magic sword. Augustus looked at Voldemort's ugly appearance and said disdainfully, "Then let me see if you are qualified to completely eliminate me." 35. With the anger of the Dark Lord, a terrifying magic wave suddenly erupted in his dry and ugly body, and black mist filled his surroundings, looking evil and dark. Under this powerful magic fluctuation, Harry was instantly stunned. At the same time, the same amazing magic fluctuations broke out on Augustus, which not only blocked Voldemort's magic fluctuations, but also formed a countermeasure in an instant. For a time, the blue and black halos in the underground space resisted, but it was obvious that the black halo was gradually being eroded. Seeing this, Voldemort's face suddenly became a lot ugly. Once upon a time, this was his favorite trick to suppress the enemy, and it didn't help, but now he's being suppressed. Knowing that it would be a waste of mana to go on like this, Voldemort drew Quirrel's wand. For more than 10 years, he has not released a few powerful black magic spells. Today, even if all these years of hard work are in vain, he will kill this Augustus who deeply stabbed him. For a time, the flames raged and the lightning flashed. Open the secret room volume directly or intersperse something during the holiday. Everyone come and leave a message in the comment area. The first volume is coming to an end. After holding the wand, Voldemort's feeling for Augustus suddenly changed. At least he was much more wizard-like than before, and even seemed to have some grace. Also, how could Voldemort be a lunatic who can be called a once-in-a-century genius by Dumbledore, who was also well-educated when he was at Hogwarts? The corner of Augustus' mouth drew a slight arc, and he made a few marks with one hand in an instant. Suddenly, a group of fiery red crows formed in the air. The dense crows were burning with fiery flames, and the entire small room was suddenly filled with a stream of heat. The crimson crows occupied most of the room, as Augustus' wand turned to Voldemort. The crows flapped their wings and snarled at Voldemort. Voldemort was not surprised at all, snorted coldly, and pointed his wand in the air. There are many obstacles. One after another invisible air obstacles appeared in the air, and the fire crows encountered various obstacles while flying in the air. They collided with the air wall and collided with hot winds. Augustus' wand pointed at the fire crows. The fire crows stopped instantly facing each other. Voldemort opened his mouth, and in the next second, a fiery pure flame spewed out of the crow's mouth, spraying from all angles in the sky with a powerful force. Voldemort looked at the flames flying from all directions in the air, a dignified flash in his eyes. The wand pointed to the open space aside. A green snake appeared in the underground space. The snake seemed to be some kind of element, summoned beast-like existence. He let out a satisfied hiss on the ground, then raised his head to stare at the flames in the air. Opened his mouth and spewed out cloudy dark green icy undercurrents. The dark energy met the flames in the air, collided with clusters of annihilated energy clusters, and fell into the room on the floor. It corrodes large and small round holes. Augustus waved his wand. The fire crows in the sky disappeared into the sky. A pure white and crystal Costin appeared in the sky immediately. Costin let out a proud cry, and the amber pupils reflected the ground on the ground, the shadow of the dark green giant snake. As if it had found its prey, spread out its huge wings and swept through the air and shot out towards the giant snake. Although there is no breakthrough in the fusion of Augustus' magic power and chakra, it is now possible to use both energies to fight at the same time. It is easier to use magic power to affect the characteristics of the outside world, as well as the characteristics of chakra affinity elements, which makes the battle more free. It can be seen from the fire crow just now and the frost haydonking now. A look of disdain flashed in the giant snake's golden pupils, and he raised his head and made a hissing threat. In the next second, golden rays of light flashed from the giant snake's eyes and shot towards haydonking flying in the air. Adjust all directions and angles in the air, easily dodging the golden light from flying. The light hits the ceiling of the room through the air, and the wooden ceiling instantly turns into a marble-like cold stone gray brick. Stone, Costin, who was close to the giant snake, opened his sharp claws, whimpered in his mouth, and attacked the body of the giant snake with a speed that could not be detected by the naked eye. There were a few scars on the body, and the wounds were surrounded by the frost effect brought by the claws of Costin. The giant snake let out a few painful groans, a trace of anger flashed in the golden pupils, and the huge tail was drawn towards the Costin in the air. Costin, who was close at hand, did not escape, was hit by the dark green tail, rolled a few times in the air, and a pure white scar appeared on Costin's wings. High Donking made a sharp cry, and the wings began to flap rapidly in the air. As the flapping frequency of the wings accelerated, a swirling hurricane began to appear in the air. The vortex of the storm was mixed with a pale white frost breath, and an icy cold, the small wind group slowly formed in the air. And the next moment, it attacked the dark green giant snake hovering in a ball on the ground. The giant snake raised its head grimly, opened its mouth, and faced the violent frost vortex that flew in. A mass of crimson flames spewed out. It was the crimson flame that Voldemort used in the Forbidden Forest before. The flame encountered the vortex formed in the air, and the fire grew stronger by the wind. It was just a small red pillar of fire, and soon grew up at an extremely fast speed. Half of the underground space seems to be spread by scarlet flames. The fierce fire in the sky extinguished the incoming storm, and then surrounded High Donking in the air. High Donking tried to break out of the encirclement of the scarlet fiery fire in the air, but the scope of the flame was too large and he was looking for it. After it was difficult to rush out from several angles, High Donking let out a scream and was slowly eroded by the scarlet fire and died in the air. After destroying both the storm and the frost cinnamon, the crimson fiery flames attacked Augustus, who was standing there spiritually. And the fiery flames that had already occupied the sky quickly surrounded Augustus. And for flowers. Seeing this, Augustus had to admire Voldemort's grasp of the timing of the battle. The wind volcano forest used the mutual restraining effect of attributes to achieve the perfect strategic goal. It seems that the name of the Dark Lord is not for nothing. Voldemort's experience is indeed rich. Just as Voldemort looked at Augustus, who was surrounded by fierce flames and could not escape, he sneered and was about to make a mockery when suddenly, Augustus threw a strange object at him. Of course, Voldemort didn't know what it was, and it was strange that he knew the ninja's kunai. With a sound of whoosh, the black kunai instantly passed through the sea of fire and came to Voldemort. Point 0. The characteristic kunai made of rare metals, it is not difficult to pass through the fierce fire. Voldemort thought it was Augustus's dying struggle and sneered and waved a few obstacles without paying too much attention. Kuwu was blocked by many obstacles and stopped weakly 1 meter in front of Voldemort. However, at the moment when kunai stopped, Augustus, surrounded by crimson fiery flames, suddenly disappeared. Voldemort was stunned for a moment. His face was full of astonishment, knowing that this is Hogwarts. It is almost impossible for a wizard to use apparition without permission. That's why he decided that Augustus was going to die, but what was this apparition? Of course, Voldemort did not know that there is an energy called chakra, and there is a space technique called Flying Thor. In the next second, Augustus' slender figure cut through the space and appeared in front of Voldemort. The silver magic sword cut through an icy arc, and in an instant it slashed towards Voldemort. Hiss. At a critical juncture, the dark green giant snake rushed over quickly under the control of Voldemort and abruptly blocked the fatal blow with its body. In front of the magic sword with super armor-piercing and magic-breaking effects, the giant snake's body was cut off like tofu in an instant, and the snake's head was sprayed with scarlet blood and flew into the sky. Taking advantage of this crucial second, Voldemort turned into a black mist and retreated. After a distance apart, Voldemort looked at the twitching headless snake with lingering fears, his eyes full of horror. How is this possible? Work. Avada Kedavra, the strongest single attack in the Harry Potter world, few people survived after being hit by it. Augustus has studied Avada Kedavra for a long time. He knows that this is a spell similar to Soul Attack, but also has a certain physical attack effect. Once it hits the human body, it will be annihilated from the soul level. Yes, this is an extremely powerful and evil spell. In Augustus' view, there are many powerful and mysterious spells in this world, which need to be handled with caution, among which Avada Kedavra is one of them, and he can't guarantee that he will not be accidentally shot under any circumstances. Vadasso life, so he has been looking for ways to break and block the death curse. Augustus once carefully recalled the method of deciphering Avada in the original book. According to his understanding, there are 5 kinds of deciphering methods in the original book. The first is Kinship Guardian, which is the ancient guardian spell used by Harry's mother Lily on Harry, which can rebound Avada's life. The consanguineous protection it produced allowed Harry to escape death, and this protection continued until Harry reached adulthood. Although this guardian spell is powerful, it is too restrictive and costly, so Augustus did not study it in depth. The second type, wands with twin cores. If one wand fires a life-threatening spell and the other wand returns with other spells, because the twin wands do not kill each other, all the spells on both sides will be invalidated, and a special flashback spell will be generated, which will make one of the wands replay. Cast the spell it cast before. Both Harry's wand and Voldemort's wand had cores from the same phoenix feathers, so when they were dueling in the cemetery, both Voldemort's death charm and Harry's disarm charm failed, and Cedric D appeared. Gory, the muggle old man, Bertha Jorkins, the souls of Harry's parents who helped Harry escape back to Hogwarts. This method of counteracting the death curse, in Augustus's opinion, is only applicable to Voldemort and Potter, who fell in love and killed each other. For him, it has no inspiration at all, so it is directly ignored. The third is to make Horcruxes. You can also use a Horcrux to make yourself immortal. If you have a Horcrux, you will only lose your body and magic power if you're hit by the Avada Solitaire. But the situation at that time was very weak. Even Voldemort said, it's worse than the humblest wandering soul. There in the days and nights when I can't close my eyes, I just force myself to live again and again every second. Augustus is very disdainful of this, and he is the most disdainful of this kind of self-cutting method. It is true that this will add a few more lives, but the side effects are also extremely severe. Splitting the soul would lead to insanity, irritability, madness, and never an inch of strength, which was simply intolerable to Augustus. So this method is not considered either. The fourth, the body of the phoenix. The suffering charm kills all life but doesn't work on the phoenix, it only regenerates it. When Dumbledore fought Voldemort at the Ministry of Magic, one of Voldemort's life-threatening curses was swallowed by Phoenix Fox, and Fox was reborn. Augustus, *CK Gus happens to be a dark phoenix, and of course has the ability to regenerate nirvana, so Augustus has kept this in his heart. If one day he really has no other way to escape, then when Avadazu is killed at the moment when he is about to join, he only needs to transform into a black phoenix. Nirvana rebirth is better than death, right? Although it will be weak for a while. The last method is the most conventional and the most applicable, and that is physical defense. The death stroke can be blocked by solid obstacles, such as walls, shields, etc. Therefore, you can use the transformation spell to summon a shield, which can barely block the life-suppressing spell, depending on the degree of firmness. Or you can dodge directly and use the terrain to evade the life-threatening curse. The above 5 methods were summed up by Augustus from the original work to defend against the death curse. But due to various reasons, there were many that he could not use or did not want to adopt. Only the transformation into a phoenix and physical defense inspired him. However, neither the transformation into a phoenix nor the physical defense achieved the defensive effect that Augustus expected, so later, he also thought of some solutions. The most successful of them is the Guardian Charm that is blessed on the Hook Jade necklace, which Augustus calls the Half-Moon Guardian Charm. It seems to be just a blue spherical shield, but it actually contains the great effort of Augustus. The Half-Moon Patronus Charm attached to the Gaoyu necklace is a powerful defense technique developed by Augustus combining the sealing technique of the Naruto world, the Patronus Charm of this world, and the armor protection. Armor and body protection focusing on physical and energy defense, Patronus spell focusing on soul defense, sealing, which plays a role in strengthening and stabilizing the structure. When the three are combined, the Banyu Patronus spell has the guardian of the 3 aspects of physics, energy, and soul. Moreover, the 3 defenses formed a complementary effect, which was very mysterious. After Augustus completed the test, he felt a little incredible. It can be said that the Half-Moon Patronus spell is the most powerful guardian spell in the Harry Potter world. Of course, the guardianship of blood relatives can barely compare. However, even the Half-Moon Patronus charm attached to the Hook Jade necklace did not stop Augustus from studying the method of defending against the death curse. 640 because this self-initiated Patronus charm is one-off after all, and the one-time defense in battle obviously there are big limitations. After awakening the kaleidoscope, Augustus came up with a solution, yes, that is Souza. When Augustus was in the Naruto world, his identity was Uchiha Itachi. His Susanoo was equipped with 3 major artifacts: the 10-fist sword, the 8-foot mirror, and the 8-foot Kyangu jade. Susanoo's defense was considered abnormal, and the 8-foot mirror's ability to bounce back all attacks made him a rare opponent in Naruto world. So after awakening the kaleidoscope, Augustus always wanted to test whether Souza could defend against Avada's life, especially the death curse released by a wizard of Voldemort's level. If so, then Augustus will no longer have to worry about the death curse. Because Souza is a kaleidoscope of pupils, it can be summoned in an instant, and it is fully capable of dealing with all emergencies. What's more, after countless uses, Augustus can even attach an 8-foot mirror to the primary form of Souza. As long as the 8-foot mirror can rebound Avada's life, then everything will be solved. In Augustus' expectant gaze, the green death curse energy slammed into the 8-foot mirror in front of Souza. Souza, who was steaming with red flames, blocked the huge shield on his left arm in front of him. Suddenly, the tragic green light and the red 8-foot mirror impacted, and even the surrounding fierce fire was almost extinguished by the powerful energy impact. Voldemort only vaguely saw a huge figure appearing in the sea of fire, and then his sight was covered by the dazzling light. Protected by Souza in the center, Augustus did not suffer any impact, but he could feel that his pupil power was drained instantly after Avada Suo hit the 8-foot mirror. Under the blessing of the kaleidoscope pupil power, the 8-foot mirror actually absorbed all the green light, and after a while it bounced back with the same power. So far, Augustus can be sure that the 8-foot mirror is able to defend against the death curse, and the effect is very good and it can even bounce back. However, due to the lack of control of the direction, the green light of Avada's life did not shoot at Voldemort, but rushed towards the mirror of Eris not far away. Augustus watched all this with interest but didn't stop it, which saved him some strength. I saw that in the dazzling light and flames, a tragic green energy instantly hit the mirror of Eris. Snapped. The one-shot death curse that poured all of Voldemort's magic power. How could an alchemy item be able to resist? The moment it was hit by the green light, countless cracks appeared on the magic mirror. Afterwards, this magic mirror with magical power and a long history suddenly turned into countless fragments and burst open. At this time, Voldemort also saw the giant in the flames, and the death curse that was bounced out and immediately froze in place. His distorted face appeared stunned and sluggish. He, who is known as the Dark Lord in the world, may be the knight he shows this expression the most tonight. The death curse he used with all his strength was actually bounced back. It was so similar to that night 12 years ago, when the blow he swore was inexplicably bounced back and hit himself, so that he must be reborn as a reptile now, in which only he himself knew the taste of it. But he did not expect that such a scene would appear again tonight. Why is this? Why? Voldemort was roaring wildly in his heart, almost crazy. But he couldn't understand why the strongest death curse would be bounced again and again. Augustus glanced at the stunned Voldemort with disdain, and the invisible wizard's hand instantly grabbed into the distance. Among the countless pieces of magic mirror, a scarlet gem exudes a mysterious light, attracting his attention. That's right, it's the Sorcerer's Stone. Augustus hadn't forgotten his purpose tonight. The abuse of Voldemort was just incidental, and his real purpose was the Philosopher's Stone. In fact, just now Augustus could completely control the 8-foot mirror to bounce the death curse on Voldemort, but he didn't do it. Augustus knew about Dumbledore's way of hiding the Philosopher's Stone. Although the Mirror of Eris does exist some magical places, in any case, the mirror is the key to hiding the Philosopher's Stone. If the mirror doesn't even exist, then Dumbledore, no matter how many methods Leto used on it, it was in vain. The magic mirror was broken, and the magic stone would naturally appear. Augustus didn't want to fight Dumbledore for the time being, so he chose to use Voldemort's attack to destroy the magic mirror so that old Dumbledore had nothing to say. He was the one who fought with Voldemort, so the dropped Sorcerer's Stone was naturally his trophy. Soon, the Scarlet Sorcerer's Stone fell into Augustus' hands. Seeing that the purpose of the night had been achieved, Augustus looked at the embarrassed Voldemort again and suddenly lost interest. The Philosopher's Stone is in hand, and Fei Lei Shen and Souza have also tested it, so there is no need for you to exist. Looking at Voldemort, who looked at him resentfully, a cold arc twitched at the corner of Augustus' mouth. What is this, giant? Why is my death curse being bounced back? Did Augustus look at him coldly, didn't say a word, and walk around the edge of death again with your doubts? From the wine gourd in Souza's hand, a crimson sword light suddenly rose up. 10-fist sword shot. As an extremely powerful sealing sword, the special feature of the 10-fist sword is not only its sealing ability, but also its attack speed. In Hokage, Orochimaru and Nagato barely reacted, and were pierced and sealed by the 10-fist sword, showing the speed of the 10-fist sword. Similarly, Voldemort, who had run out of oil, had no time to react. A red energy penetrated his chest, his eyes widened, and he couldn't spit out a word. Fright and unwillingness appeared on his face. However, the face soon became stiff and pale. With the pulling of the 10-fist sword, Voldemort's remnant soul was instantly enveloped by the sword light and sucked into the wine gourd. All that was left was Quirrel's broken husk that had been drained of his vitality. With the suppression of the 10-fist sword, this remnant of Voldemort will hardly have the chance to turn over again. Of course, because of the Horcrux, this guy will definitely be resurrected. Since then, our dear Dark Lord has once again fallen into the... After Voldemort was sealed, the Souza around Augustus swept away, looking at the fiery fire burning around him. He waved his hand, and suddenly the dangerous and unusual fiery fire seemed to have encountered a king, and they all surrendered and gradually extinguished. But after the flames went out, the underground space was already a mess. There are broken walls and scorched stones everywhere, telling the tragic battle. Just as Augustus was about to go back to find Hermione, a phoenix cry pierced through the space. The fire of the phoenix flashed, and immediately Dumbledore and Fawkes appeared in the underground space. Looking at the unconscious Harry, Quirrell's mummified corpse, and the broken mirror of Eris, how could Dumbledore not know what happened? Although he was a little angry, he didn't show it. Because the losses suffered by the trolls are still vivid in my mind, if anything happens to Augustus again, it will definitely be him who suffers. Is it Voldemort? Dang Wang's Bridor took a deep breath and looked at Augustus knowingly. Augustus nodded irrefutably and then said, "In return for saving the Savior, I took this magic stone, oh right, I think you should send him to the medical wing first, because the battle just now was still fierce, but I didn't treat him what protection measures to release roar." Seeing Dumbledore, whose face instantly turned even uglier, Augustus threw the Philosopher's Stone in his hand and said with a chuckle. The usual kind smile on Dumbledore's face was gone. He picked up Harry and instantly disappeared into the underground space. Which is more important, the Philosopher's Stone or the Savior, he still can distinguish clearly. After Dumbledore left, Augustus passed through the black and fiery barrier and found Hermione. At this time, the little girl was looking at the exit nervously, with anxiety and worry on her face. Seeing Augustus appear, she was relieved and showed surprised. He threw himself into Augustus's arms. After the Voldemort incident, Potter lay in the medical wing for a full week. There was no other way. First, he was stunned by the magic wave, then he was covered with gravel, and then he was roasted with fierce fire. Potter was lucky to be able to save his life. Although badly injured, Potter was very happy because they blocked Voldemort's resurrection plan. For this, he was especially grateful to Augustus, because in Potter's opinion, without Augustus, Voldemort's conspiracy would have succeeded that night. Too bad Augustus didn't respond to his gratitude. As for Dumbledore, of course, he was very angry. His carefully arranged savior training plan was completely destroyed by Augustus. But he had no way to take Augustus. Instead, he wanted to reward Augustus, which was really embarrassing. Because the level was cracked by Augustus and Voldemort was indeed destroyed by Augustus, there is no doubt about these points. No matter how angry Dumbledore was, there was nothing he could do. Not even the Philosopher's Stone would come back. He was sure that if 17 were to go back to the Philosopher's Stone now, he would definitely be refuted by Augustus for 10,000 reasons, and then he would take the opportunity to prevent him from going down the stairs. So he didn't make fun of himself. But after the event, Dumbledore thought it might be a good thing. The Philosopher's Stone was not so easy to use. This old fox was very thoughtful. The last school-wide banquet at the end of the term came in a light-hearted and cheerful atmosphere, filled with people in the spacious hall, decorated in green and silver for Slytherin, to celebrate their 7th consecutive year of winning the Academy Cup champion. On the wall behind the guest of honor was a huge banner with a painted Slytherin snake. Every student at the Slytherin table was chattering excitedly when Augustus came in, and this semester's House Cup was fairly easy to get with Augustus. A moment later, Dumbledore also arrived, and the noise in the auditorium gradually subsided. "It's been another year," said Dumbledore, looking kindly. "It's time again, it's time to award the House Cup. Now I'll announce the scores for the houses as follows. 4th, Gryffindor, 312 points. When Dumbledore made this announcement, all of Gryffindor's little lions bowed their heads in frustration. The last one is really the first time for them. Some students who are not very open-minded have already looked at Potter and Ron angrily. As for Hermione, they didn't dare to stare. Everyone knew that the genius of Slytherin was very close to this little girl. Potter blushed naturally. He also knew that he had deducted a lot of points from it, and he didn't dare to look up. Ron pouted, showing a very thick skin. Little Hermione was naturally very embarrassed, sighed, and continued to listen to Dumbledore's announcement. 3rd place, Hufflepuff, 352 points. The Hufflepuff students applauded happily. "This year is not bad, you have improved one and you are not at the bottom." 2nd place, Ravenclaw, 426 points. Augustus applauded, of course, for the sake of his girlfriend Penelo. Seeing Augustus applauding, the Slytherin students naturally followed suit. Suddenly there was applause in the hall. 1st place, Slytherin, 520 points. As soon as Dumbledore's voice fell, a thunderous cheer erupted from the Slytherin table. Draco tapped the table hard with his goblet. Everyone looked at Augustus with joy and adoration. Of the 520 minutes, at least 1/3 of them was contributed by Augustus. For almost every class he took, the professor would give him extra points. Many students now refer to Augustus as the Prince of Slytherin, especially the girls. Just as the Slytherin students were scrambling to celebrate, Dumbledore spoke again. "Slytherin is doing well," said Dumbledore. "However, a few recent events must be taken into account." The auditorium became very quiet, and the smiles of the Slytherins also subsided. "Cough, cough," Dumbledore cleared his throat. "I still have some final points to assign. Let me see, by the way. The first item, Miss Hermione Granger, she faced the fire, calmly reasoned logically. I want to reward Gryffindor House 50 points." When Hermione heard this, she suddenly looked surprised and then turned her face to the ground. Buried in his arms, he looked a little excited. If it weren't for the crowd, Augustus would have fallen into his arms. The surrounding Gryffindor classmates were also ecstatic. "The second item, Harry Potter," said Dumbledore. The auditorium suddenly became extraordinarily silent. "He has shown daring courage and extraordinary courage, for which I will award Gryffindor House 60 points." Hearing this, Augustus suddenly laughed. What Dumbledore said was really level. But who made him the headmaster? You can be happy. The noise was simply deafening. Those students who could still mentally calculate their scores while shouting hoarsely knew that Gryffindor now has 472 points, not far from Slytherin's score. Is it going to counterattack? Many people can't help but think. Dumbledore raised a hand. The auditorium gradually became quiet again. There are many kinds of courage, Dumbledore smiled. We need superhuman guts to deal with our enemies, and it takes a great deal of courage to stand our ground in front of our friends. Therefore, I would like to reward Mr. Neville Longbottom. 10:35. If someone were standing outside the Great Hall at this moment, they might have thought that there was an explosion here, and the cheers from the Gryffindor table rose from wave to wave. The little lion stood up and cheered loudly, only to see Neville's shocked expression, and he was suddenly overwhelmed by the crowd that came to hug him. He never won a point for Gryffindor. But the funny thing is that the reward directly skipped classmate Ron from Dumbledore's point of view. Ron, who watched the whole game and hurriedly exited at the end, was just hilarious. Except for a proper blow to morale when he encountered danger, basically nothing is done. So Dumbledore really couldn't give Ron extra points in his conscience. Just as the Gryffindors were rejoicing, Dumbledore raised his hand again, and the auditorium fell silent for a second. Yes, we still need to make one last reward, and that is Mr. Augustus, who is extraordinary in his own way. His magical attainments broke through Professor Sprawny's devil's web, Professor McGonagall's deformed chess, and finally succeeded in protecting the Philosopher's Stone. For this, Slytherin Academy added 100%. The auditorium was silent for a few seconds. The next moment, the cheers of the Slytherin students almost exploded the starry sky in the auditorium hall. Draco jumped up excitedly and threw his hat into the air. If the entire Slytherin said there are still people who can calm down, only Augustus with a smile in his eyes. It is indeed a nostalgic feeling of the prosperous time of the student years. Just after taking a shower, Penelo was wearing a long purple dress and was preparing breakfast for the two of them. Augustus was flipping through the Daily Prophet, passing the time. On the grill in the kitchen utensils are putting the freshly fried eggs on the plate. For breakfast, there are toast, pumpkin porridge, fried eggs, fried meat, and fresh milk, which are very rich. The two have frequent activities at night, so it is still very important to have a rich nutrition. The breakfast was completed quickly under the control of magic. Penelo worked a lot in cooking magic, and now she is a competent little wife, and the plate handed to Augustus is full of food. Augustus took a sip of fresh milk and said, I received a letter from Aunt Narcissa yesterday saying that Draco will come over this afternoon. Are you really going to give Draco special training? Penelo asked with a smile. Of course, this kid always does some naive things, and his strength has not grown, so it is necessary to give him some special training, otherwise he will never grow up. Thinking of Draco's performance last school year, Augustus couldn't help feeling a little helpless. Seeing that Augustus had already made up his mind, Penelo could only laugh and continue to have breakfast. At the same time, he observed a moment of silence for Draco. Augustus practiced Penelo had also met several times. 640 after breakfast, Augustus took Penelo out of the castle, and in Penelo's surprised laughter, the two began to dance on the lake. Penelo's feet were attached to his own chakra by Augustus, so they could walk on the lake together. Penelo felt very wonderful to be able to walk on the lake freely, surrounded by beautiful and quiet scenery. Behind the romantic ancient castle, at the foot of the sparkling lake, and the handsome and gentle Augustus with him, just like dreamy and full of romance. There was a smile on the corner of the girl's mouth. When Penelo was a little tired, Augustus hugged her and lay on the lake together. But before the girl could say something touching, he raised the corner of his mouth and snapped his fingers. A blue barrier wrapped the two of them, and then they sank into the lake together. Suddenly, Penelo found that he had come to the underwater world. Different from the romance on the lake before, this time, it is full of fantastic colors, psi, and the world under the lake has a magical and magnificent beauty. After taking Penelo to visit the many beautiful and fantastic scenery in Loch Ness, Augustus returned to the lake with the girl, and it was close to noon. It is worth mentioning that the mermaid family has moved to Loch Ness, but Augustus did not take Penelo to see it. As for the reason, it goes without saying. Perhaps because she was happy with the fantasy experience just now, the girl offered one of them on her own initiative. I'll take care of you tonight. After speaking, he took the girl back to the castle. After the two finished their lunch, it was already afternoon, and soon Draco appeared in the fireplace. But looking at the expression on this kid's face, he seemed reluctant. Why you seem reluctant to look at you? Augustus took the tea that Penelo had made, raised his eyebrows and said to his little cousin, How come, cousin, I do it voluntarily? Seeing Augustus' displeasure, Draco said flatteringly, Let's talk, I'm going to the study. Looking at the cousins, Penelo smiled lightly while covering Zio's mouth and walked towards the study. There are many precious magic books left by Ravenclaw, and girls like to read quietly there. Seeing Penelo reading, Augustus looked at Draco and said, I know you don't want to suffer, but what I want to say is that your performance last semester really disappointed me. 55. Penello wasn't there and Augustus wasn't going to save face for Draco. Augustus said this and immediately made Draco close his head. After all, this kid is still very arrogant. You know, Potter didn't even know what magic was before he entered Hogwarts, but such a rookie has pressed your head over and over again. Whether it's Quidditch or some other aspects, you've been beaten by him. I know you've always used him as a competitor, but what I want to say is that you set yourself too low a goal. But even that low goal you haven't achieved. After hearing Augustus' criticism, Draco's face became even more unsightly, and Augustus' words really touched his sore spot. I'll give you some special training in the next 2 weeks. If you want to beat Potter, just listen to me and don't complain. 99. Looking at the dejected Draco, Augustus said slightly solemnly. Thinking of being able to beat Potter, Draco couldn't help but nodded, but it still looks a little shy. Seeing this, Augustus couldn't help but sigh. If you can make it through 2 weeks, I'll take you to a dragon farm in Romania when it's over. 35. Augustus' words instantly brought Draco back to life, his eyes widening. Cousin, is this what it is? Augustus nodded helplessly, so the training began with Draco's expectation and anxiety. Looking at Draco, who was waiting in the ice lake training ground, Augustus said slowly, "Are you ready?" Draco took a deep breath and nodded, holding the wand tightly in his hand. Seeing this, Augustus' wand burst into a dazzling blue light. With a surge of magic power, a snow-white frost giant wolf gradually took shape and appeared in the training ground, staring at Draco. The first volume is almost over, and the last few chapters have been written in the transition period, so it seems a little boring. I'm sorry, I will pay attention to it later. Next, I plan to go to France to meet Sister Furong by chance, and then open the Secret Room volume as soon as possible. I hope everyone can subscribe and support. The author has been working hard. Looking at the giant frost wolf the size of a calf on the opposite side, Draco couldn't help swallowing his saliva and shivered a little. Cousin, this. Don't worry, I won't save you. Seeing Draco looking a little scared, Augustus chuckled lightly. At the same time, with a wave of the wand, a circular silver halo appeared on the ground, 50 meters in diameter. You can't get out of this circle unless you destroy this giant frost wolf. Of course, it may also be eaten by it. Outside the silver circle, Augustus said slowly. His remarks made Draco even more frightened, but looking at the expression of Augustus, he didn't seem to be joking with him, and there was no room for relaxation. Seeing this, Draco could only insist on the scalp. No, it should be said that he carried it hard because the frost giant wolf has launched an attack. With a low roar, this giant frost wolf made of ice and snow flashed murderous intent in its crimson pupils, and its body instantly turned into a white shadow, rushing towards Draco at an extremely fast speed. Having never faced such a ferocious creature before, Draco's calf trembled a little, but he still managed to cast a spell. There are many obstacles. Immediately, the frost giant wolf became sluggish. Seeing that his attack was effective, Draco finally became calmer, burning flames. With the wave of the wand, flames appeared around the giant frost wolf. This kind of elemental attack caused the giant frost wolf to fly a high amount of damage, which could be seen from the melting of the ice and snow on its surface. Seeing this, Augustus couldn't help but nod his head. He was okay, at least he knew how to use fire to attack frost-type enemies. However, the frost giant wolf he summoned was not so easy to deal with. It didn't take long for Draco to be happy. The frost giant wolf broke free of all obstacles, and his speed became fast again. I saw the frost giant wolf ran to Draco 10 meters away, suddenly jumped hard and jumped into the air, and at the same time an ice blue light flashed on the front paws. Under Draco's shocked gaze, the frost giant wolf swung down at him with a savage paw with a huge power. At this moment, Draco felt the breath of death for the first time. This was a feeling he had never experienced after being spoiled for more than 10 years. However, even if his head was about to be smashed to pieces, the giant wolf had no intention of stopping at all. Draco subconsciously glanced at Augustus outside the arena and saw that his cousin was watching him, but he held his arms in his arms, up with a cold-eyed look on the sidelines. Seeing this, Draco felt a sudden panic if he was really hit by this claw. The fear of death spread in his heart, and between life and death, Draco fell to the ground and rolled to the side to hide. This is completely his subconscious instinctive behavior, but it is very effective to let him avoid the fierce claws of the giant wolf. However, even so, Draco's back was slashed with 3 deep scars and blood spattered on the ground. Draco finally got a chance to breathe, and at the moment when he stopped, Draco released several obstacles one after another to stop the giant wolf from chasing. He only felt a piercing pain in his back, and the burning pain made him realize that this was really a battle of life and death. He just passed by the god of death. It was also at this moment that Draco truly realized that he and this giant frost wolf would die. Outside the arena, Augustus still stood with his arms crossed, without any intention of helping. Seeing this, Draco was also desperate, and could only focus all his attention on the giant frost wolf that was rushing towards him. His hand holding the wand was still shaking a little, but it wasn't as bad as before. Pass out 39. An arcane wave flew towards the giant frost wolf, which was heavily restrained by the obstacles. Suddenly, the wolf stumbled. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Draco once again released a raging flame, and under the scorching of the high-temperature flames, the body of the frost giant wolf obviously shrank in a circle. However, after a series of attacks, the frost giant wolf once again got rid of the many obstacles and rushed over. It was the last attack, and the frost giant wolf jumped into the air. Seeing this, Draco took a deep breath. Armor protection, he first blessed himself with a layer of defense and then stared at the frost giant wolf that rushed towards him. Shen Feng has no shadow. When the giant wolf was only a few meters away from Draco, this powerful spell was finally released. The invisible blade flew out in an instant, slashing on the body of the frost giant wolf, and in an instant, ice crystals shot in all directions. The imposing icy waves were directly smashed into pieces in midair, and the power of Shen Feng Wang was beyond doubt. This powerful attacking spell was created by Snape. As Snape's godson, of course Draco had learned it, and at a critical moment he chose to use this trick to confront him. Ask for flowers. Clearly he won. However, because Shen Feng Wang belongs to a relatively advanced spell, and Draco has just passed the first grade, after releasing this spell he has collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. Obviously his magic power has been used up. And the spirit is also exhausted from the thrilling battle. At this time, Augustus had appeared beside him at some point and applauded for him. Draco, well done. Reaching out his hand and pulling Draco up, Augustus praised without hesitation. Even by his critical eyes, Draco was doing well. After receiving praise from Augustus, Draco still had a lingering expression on his face, and it was obvious that he had not recovered from the feeling of life and death just now. Cousin, I really almost died just now. Draco said with some fear he didn't expect Augustus to die. Don't worry, this giant frost wolf was summoned by me and is under my control. I will stop it at the last minute. Besides, you won't win. I won't let you face the inability to defeat enemy. At this time, Draco realized that he really killed the extremely powerful frost giant wolf. He looked at the ice crystals on the ground in disbelief, and then looked at his hands, obviously still a little shocked. Remember, you are the young master of the Malfoy family. You should become a strong person. You performed well today. Come back with me. 35. After that, Augustus walked out of the training ground. Draco followed him in a daze, still immersed in shock. It turns out that I can be this strong too. For the next 2 weeks, Augustus summoned an elemental creature to fight Draco every day. The first day was the Frost Wolf, the second day was the Swamp Troll, the third day was the Thunderhawk, and the fourth day was the Fire Rhino. In a word, every time Augustus chooses a creature that is infinitely close to Draco's strength in order to force Draco to improve. Although Draco was exhausted every day, his strength and character were growing rapidly. It can be seen from his progress that what this kid lacks is not magic and knowledge, but experience. Augustus also saw this and would conduct practical training for him. On the last day, Draco was confronted with a hippogriff, a magical creature similar to a griffin that appeared in the original book. Ask for subscription support, work. In the tragic training, 2 weeks passed in a hurry. Looking at the hippogriff that was beheaded by Shen Feng Wang, Draco was no longer as trembling as he was on the first day. On the contrary, after beheading this fierce magical creature, Draco seemed very calm, with no other reaction except the slightly excited expression on his face. Seeing this, Augustus nodded in satisfaction. Draco, your special training is over. Augustus is very pleased with Draco's progress in the past 2 weeks. It seems that this kid's talent is really good. In the past, he was mainly spoiled and he had never experienced any training, so he was so weak. Cousin, I can definitely beat Potter now. Although he was a little tired from the intense consumption of magic power, Draco's eyes were bright, and his platinum blonde hair and good facial features made him look like a Malfoy heir in the 640 style. Of course, with your current strength, Potter is not an opponent at all. What I want to tell you is, don't play those small tricks anymore, just rely on your own strength and step on Potter's feet with integrity. Watching his little cousin making rapid progress, Augustus admonished. Draco nodded seriously. But then he remembered something and a pleasing smile appeared on his face. Cousin, you said you wanted to take me to the Romanian dragon farm. Well, maybe in some respects this kid still hasn't grown. Looking at Draco, looking at him expectantly, 2 black lines hang on Augustus' forehead. Go back and pack up, I'll take you and Penello in the afternoon. Hearing Augustus' words, Draco trotted back excitedly, obviously to pack up. Draco, the meaning of this name is the dragon constellation, the little dragon of his nickname. Just from these 2 points, we can see how much this kid likes dragons. He has long wanted to go to the Romanian dragon farm, especially after sending the Norwegian Ridgeback Norbert last semester. But Lucius and Narcissa were worried about his safety and never agreed to let him go. Now that Augustus agreed to him, the kid was of course very excited. Even after 2 weeks of cruel special training, his temperament has improved a lot, and Draco is still very much looking forward to it. Romania, Southern Valley. As the most famous dragon farm in the entire European magic circle, dozens of ferocious dragons are domesticated here. Whether it is the Norwegian Ridgeback, the Swedish short-nosed dragon, or the Hungarian Horntail, you can see it here. This afternoon, the dragon farm welcomed several distinguished guests, and the manager of the dragon farm, Charles, personally came to the gate to receive them. "Dear Master Augustus, welcome." 9. Looking at the handsome boy walking towards him, Charles bowed his head and said respectfully, "Oh, and Master Malfoy and a beautiful lady." Charles' attitude is very low. In fact, as the manager of Europe's largest dragon farm, he usually enjoys what others treat him like this. But today's people are not ordinary people. One is his shareholder, and he is also a major shareholder, and the other is the shareholder's son. In short, neither of them can be provoked by him, otherwise he can get out with a single sentence. "Master Augustus, let me show you the way. No one knows the terrain better than me," Charles said flatteringly. The dragon raising farm is a hilly area with many hillsides, and the roar of the dragon can be heard from time to time, and most people do not dare to enter. Those dragons are either domesticated or imprisoned in various valleys, trapped with special magic chains, but there is still a great danger. "No need, you can go and do it, we will visit by ourselves." Augustus rejected Charles' request and said lightly that he didn't like being disturbed by outsiders. Charles wanted to say something else. It seemed that he was worried about the safety of the three of Augustus, but was swayed away by the impatient Augustus. Penello felt a little frightened when he heard the roars of these dragons and held Augustus's hand tightly. And this kid Draco has taken out a whole set of armor from nowhere. He wears a tall dragon-headed hat. From time to time, flames shoot out from the dragon's mouth. He wears a small robe embroidered with red scales. On the back of the robe, there are 2 dragon wing-like things. He was flapping vigorously, making him slightly float several meters high and fly slowly. His funny dress made Penello laugh out loud, and the nervousness and fear in his heart were also dispelled a lot. "Don't worry, baby, those big lizards can't hurt you with me." Feeling that Penello was still a little nervous, Augustus hugged her waist and comforted. Hearing that Augustus described the vicious dragon as a large lizard, Penello laughed immediately, thinking that these dragons are really a bit like a large lizard but with an extra pair of wings. Led by Augustus, the 3 of them wandered among the hills and boulders together. "Oh, look at my cousin, it's the Hungarian Horntail. I've only seen it in the magic book. Wow, so domineering." When walking around a corner, Draco, who ran in front of him, suddenly shouted excitedly. Augustus and Penello followed his gaze and looked between the boulders not far away. Sure enough, a ferocious dragon was entrenched. There it looked like it was resting. It has jagged wings, black scales on its body, and looks like a lizard. It has yellow eyes, bronze horns, and a long tail protruding from almost bronze thorns, making it look extremely hideous. Draco obviously admired this very ferocious-looking dragon and ran around excitedly, as if he wanted to watch it from a different angle. Seeing this, Augustus couldn't help sighing. It seems that it takes time for this kid to fully grow up. At this moment, the Hungarian Horntail seemed to be awakened by Draco's yelling, and the brown eyes suddenly opened. "Draco, come back." 35. Seeing that Dela 2.8 has crossed the cordon to observe the Hungarian Horntail, Augustus cried out. But obviously, the excited Draco didn't do it the first time. Roar, although it looks like a large lizard, it is indeed a head dragon, and it is also a grumpy and fierce Hungarian wasp. There is no doubt that he was provoked by Draco's provocation. I saw its body that was originally entrenched there suddenly stretched out, swept across with its barbed tail, shattered a few giant pieces, and then flapped its wings. And suddenly a gust of wind swept past. With the gust of wind, there is also a crimson flame breath. Draco was also stunned. He didn't expect this Hungarian wasp to have such a grumpy temper, and it would breathe fire as soon as it came up. But the 2 weeks of life and death training was not in vain. The moment the Hungarian hornets were breathing fire, he drew his wand. A lot of obstacles, armor protection. In just a few seconds, Draco cast 3 spells in a row. His movements were extremely fast, and there was no panic on his face. For the past 14 days, he had faced such attacks every day, have become accustomed to it. There is no doubt that the fire breathing of the Hungarian Horntail did not cause any harm to this kid. But after the clear group was evaporated by the flames, his clothes and hair were still wet, and he looked a little embarrassed. At this time, Draco finally withdrew obediently. He didn't want to fight a Hungarian wasp. Standing outside the cordon, the Hungarian horntail was no longer a threat to him. "Can't you be honest?" Holding Penello's hand, Augustus couldn't help but scolded his little cousin who was still excited and continued on to the next spot. Along the way, the three of them saw all kinds of dragons. Of course, Draco was very excited. In his words, dragons are the most powerful creatures in the world. Of course, Augustus disagreed, but obviously he didn't listen to Draco. In Augustus' view, these so-called dragons were all the same winged lizards and very weak. Just when they visited for about an hour, they suddenly heard the roar of dragons and the noise of wizards in front of them. Walking forward for a while, Augustus only saw that in the valley ahead, a dozen wizards were confronting a dark red dragon. The dragon seemed to be going mad, and the wizards of the dragon farm were trying to suppress it. Augustus also saw a wizard wailing on the ground on the other side, with a pool of blood on the ground, apparently bitten. The celestial fireball dragon. Here Draco screamed excitedly again. It seemed that he really knew a lot about dragons. Hearing Draco's words, Augustus felt a sigh of relief. Such an ugly big lizard with such a weak chicken can also be called a celestial dragon. In particular, the word fireball was added in the middle, which sounded ironic, like a juggling act. "Charles, what's going on?" Seeing Charles hurried over from the other side, Augustus asked. "Master Augustus, this celestial fireball dragon was delivered just a few days ago, but for some reason it often goes mad and has already bitten several guard wizards." Charles' face was full of helplessness. They tried many ways, but they just couldn't make this irritable dragon quiet down. The celestial fireball dragon. Augustus couldn't help but read it again, still feeling a strong sense of irony. "Charles, what are you going to do? It's impossible to send it back, and it can't be raised anymore. It seems that it can only be killed and sold to the Ministry of Magic," Charles said helplessly. But looking at the madness of this fireball dragon, it seems that it is not easy to kill it. Thinking of this, the expression on Charles' face suddenly became even more helpless. Crazy dragons are never easy creatures to deal with. Seeing this, Augustus suddenly laughed. He was worried that there was no place to vent his unhappiness. "Let them all retreat, I leave it here." Charles looked at Augustus in surprise, not knowing what the boss meant. "Let them back off and I'll deal with it." Augustus said it again impatiently. Seeing that the boss seemed a little unhappy, Charles suddenly became clever and obeyed unconditionally, so he called back all the wizards who surrounded the celestial fireball dragon in the past. Seeing that the wizards who had been holding him back were scared and left, this crazy celestial fireball dragon suddenly became even more arrogant, spitting flames uncontrollably, scorching the surrounding boulders to black. Penello looked at Augustus worriedly. "Don't worry, I'm very strong, just let Draco see how weak these big lizards are." Augustus rubbed Penello's hair, signaling her to be relieved, then walked into the cordon. Draco naturally watched excitedly, lest the world be in chaos. He had not seen Augustus fight anyone yet. Seeing another wizard who doesn't know whether to live or die approaching, the mad fireball dragon was instantly enraged and roared at Augustus, causing the chains around his neck to rattle. Following the roar, a crimson fireball sprayed out from its mouth and smashed into Augustus fiercely. The fiery temperature radiated from the fireball distorted the air. Penello in the distance only felt a heat wave coming, and he couldn't help but worry more. Fire escape, the art of arrogant fire dragon. Under everyone's unexpected gaze, a crimson fire dragon gradually formed in front of Augustus, which was several times larger than the fireball that the fireball dragon spewed out, and it didn't seem to exist at one level. After the fire dragon was formed, looking at the fireball flying towards him, a trace of disdain flashed in his eyes. He took a big mouth and swallowed the fireball directly. After swallowing the fireball, the size of the fire dragon increased again, and the hot breath directly evaporated all the water in the valley. The surrounding wizards watched this scene in horror, and at the same time had to release a shield for themselves. This keeps the heat wave away. The alchemy items on Penello and Draco also automatically released a shield to protect them from the heat. The celestial fireball dragon in the field felt the deepest aura of this fire dragon. It roared uneasy, but it sounded a little lack of confidence. This giant dragon made of flames not only surpassed it in size, but also exudes an aura that frightens it. However, Augustus had no sympathy. He really wanted to slaughter this big lizard that insulted the image of the dragon in his mind. With a wave of one hand, the ferocious fire dragon rushed towards the celestial fireball dragon, and soon, the mad fireball dragon was entangled by the fiery fire dragon and roared in pain. As a dragon playing with fire, it was the first time that it was so miserably burned by flames. Fortunately, the scale armor has super strong magic resistance and fire resistance, so it was not directly burned to ashes. Even so, after the flames dissipated, the fireball dragon was only half burned. Life can't be mad anymore, yet Augustus wasn't going to let him go. Roar of Frost. 35. As soon as the flames dissipated, Augustus waved his wand, and a blue light shot into the air. Immediately, a huge dark cloud began to form in the air. As the dark cloud slowly expanded, the entire valley was covered by dark clouds. Up, huge hailstones fell densely from the clouds, smashed between the boulders, sputtered clusters of ice crystals, and the frost grew on the ground, covering the entire ground, and within a moment the valley changed. It has become a world where ice crystal pillars are formed. The celestial fireball dragon in the central area was quickly frozen into an ice sculpture with fear, and it even had traces of burning flames on its body. Charles, it's up to you next. After speaking to the stunned Charles, Augustus walked in the direction of Penelo and Draco. The girl's face was full of admiration now. Although she knew that Augustus was very powerful, she was still very shocked by the easy slaying of the dragon. After the shock, she was deeply adored and admired. She is very proud to have such a boyfriend. As for Draco, this kid's mouth was already open enough to swallow a dragon egg. He never imagined that the extremely powerful dragon in his mind would be solved by 2 curses of Augustus. This unscientific. Patting his little cousin on the shoulder, Augustus said slowly, "Remember, Draco, the strongest creature in this world is not a dragon but a wizard." After that, Draco, who was dumbfounded and thoughtful, left with Penelo. Looking at the celestial fireball dragon turned into an ice sculpture, and remembering that he easily blocked the flames spewed by the Hungarian horntail, Draco suddenly felt that perhaps the dragon was really not as powerful as he looked like. So will one day, like his cousin 643, he will be able to slay dragons with his own hands. Thinking of this, Draco suddenly felt a shudder, not because of fear, but because of excitement. Looking at Augustus' strong and upright back, Draco's eyes flashed with light and he followed. After this trip to the dragon farm, Draco's admiration for Augustus deepened, and at the same time his requirements for himself increased a lot. After returning, Lucius and Narcissa felt very much about his changes. Shocked and happy, they didn't know how Augustus could make Draco complete such a reborn change in just 2 weeks. And Penelo, after continuing to spend a sweet week with Augustus in Ice Lake Castle, was also reluctant to go back to his home at the strong request of the Claywatts. The girl's parents missed her, and Augustus also said this. "There is no way we can't always occupy other people's daughters." After a week in the alchemy room, Augustus finally felt a little bored. Bored, the nerd wizard finally decided to go out to relax. Augustus still prefers romantic capitals like Paris to places like the Dragon Farm and the Forbidden Forest. So he decided to go shopping in Paris, and heard that the witches there are very beautiful and very warm and open. Apparitions. Augustus painted the scene of Paris in his mind, disappearing in place with the completion of the spell. And when he reappeared, people were already standing under the Eiffel Tower. Such a large and conspicuous landmark ensures that Augustus will not be injured by teleportation errors, nor will he be split in half by using apparition as some wizards do. Augustus stood for a moment, feeling a little dizzy at the long apparition. If it was replaced by other wizards and performed such an ultra-long-distance apparition, it is estimated that they would have exploded and died. Although he was alone, Augustus was still very interested in hanging out in Paris, because he liked the city very much before he traveled through it, but unfortunately he never came. It now appears that, perhaps, he prefers the warm city of Paris to the dignified atmosphere of London. Wandering the streets of Paris, Augustus enjoyed the visual impact of the wonderfully exotic, and the constant winks from those passionate French girls along the way. Augustus' tall and slender figure, handsome face, elegant speech, coupled with his unique personal temperament have no solution to the lethality of girls. Unconsciously, Augustus has come to the world-famous Champs-Élysées. But he didn't come here to shop. Who told the wizarding world in France to set up their trading center in this place full of muggles? Of course, this may be out of their pride. According to the description, Augustus quickly found the entrance of the muggle world to the wizarding world. This is a brand new store with a brand new brand that will always be decorated. There are lively well-known international brand chain stores on the left and right sides. The endless stream of people walk past its door from time to time, but it seems strange that they have never noticed this store at all. Augustus pushed open the door and walked in, but the store was empty. He went straight to the last wall and tapped 3 times with his wand on a very inconspicuous gray spot. The entire wall gradually became transparent, and it didn't take long before it completely disappeared in front of Augustus, revealing the lively square behind. The commercial center of France, Starshine Plaza, is very different from Diagon Alley in the UK. It looks like a dream park with all kinds of beautiful flowers blooming everywhere. The scattered buildings stand one by one, and it seems that there is no planning at all, but it is inconceivable that it will not affect the beauty of the entire park. The architectural style of these stores is also very unique, showing the peculiar imagination of French wizards everywhere, which is completely different from the British Diagon Alley. Wizards come and go through the shops picking out their favorite items. They seem to be enjoying the shopping, and they were much more flamboyantly dressed than the wizards of England. Augustus looked up and couldn't see a few orthodox dark-colored robes in England, most of which were made of silk and looked extremely light. After finding a bench under a tree and sitting down, Augustus looked around at the surrounding environment, enjoying the exotic atmosphere different from Diagon Alley, and time slipped unknowingly. I don't know how long it took. When Augustus came back to his senses, the sky had gradually darkened. At this time, a little lowly came to the right of Augustus. He looked less than 10 years old. He had pale silver hair and big eyes. He looked very beautiful, but the little face that should have been innocent and cute now has a small face hanging on it, an aggrieved expression. She looked around as if looking for someone. Augustus' resistance to little lowly was not high, and he was in a good mood now, so he took the initiative to say, "Little sister, what are you looking for? Do you need help?" Little lowly shrank back as if frightened, but after seeing Augustus's appearance, he was stunned for a moment. Augustus's appearance is lethal to girls regardless of age. Little lowly quickly became indifferent to Augustus. What kind of vigilance? Such a good-looking big brother should not be a bad person. Coupled with Augustus' sunny smile that melted her fears, little lowly replied in a trembling voice, Gabrielle and her sister are separated." "Oh, Gabriel, is that your names?" "It's a very nice name." Although Augustus felt that the name was familiar, he couldn't remember it for a while, so he smiled and patted the vacant seat beside him. "Come on. Sit down first, tell me what your sister looks like. Big brother will help you, Tilda, let's find it together." Little lowly Gabriel hesitated for a moment, but finally sat down and began to describe the appearance of her sister to this kind and handsome big brother. Augustus listened, and the more he listened, the more ironic he felt. What this little lowly was describing was not a human at all, but a goddess. What a powerful love sister not. After comforting Gabrielle, Augustus took the initiative to say that he was visiting France, and asked her about interesting places nearby, successfully attracting little Laurie's attention. At least she had temporarily forgotten crying. It didn't take long for Augustus to sense that a beautiful woman was running in their direction. She took a breath and looked at Augustus and her sister. Her voice was a little hoarse, but it added to the taste. "Who are you? Why are you with my sister?" Augustus was still sitting and had no plans to get up. He glanced up and down at the woman in front of him. Even if he was picky, he had to give her a high score. But he didn't like the questioning tone, so he replied lazily, "Hello, beautiful lady. My name is Augustus Blake. As you can see, I'm helping this lovely little sister find her family. So, are you his sister?" 39s. It was only at this time that the girl saw Augustus's appearance, and she was slightly stunned like her sister. But it was obvious that her vigilance was much stronger than that of little lowly. The girl Jiao said proudly, "Florence de Lacquer, it's a pleasure to meet you." Hearing the woman's self-introduction, Augustus was taken aback for a moment. No wonder that little lowly's name was a little familiar. It turned out to be Furong. The de Lacquer sisters, worthy of Vila blood, are indeed beautiful. Augustus' expression seemed a little playboy to Fleur, so she frowned slightly and said, "Is that what you're doing to sit and help?" Augustus blinked his eyes and said innocently, "Yeah, wouldn't it be better if I helped Gabriel find my sister while I was sitting?" Humph, Furong squeezed out such a voice from her nose, fully expressing her feelings. Although this stranger does look a little charming, but he laughs so badly, he must be a playboy, Furong thought. So she reached out and pulled Gabriel to her side. "Thank you for your help, then we will say goodbye." Augustus smiled slightly and didn't mind Furong's unreasonableness, but he felt that this woman was really straightforward and lovely. He waved at the little lowly Gabrielle. "Goodbye then, beautiful little princess, it's time for me to go too." Although he didn't get along with Augustus for a long time, Gabriel liked this kind big brother very much. He not only has such a gentle voice but also looks so handsome, and he can also make a lot of interesting magic to make him happy. Thinking about it, Gabriel looked at Augustus shyly and asked in a low voice, "Big brother, you haven't found a place to live, have you?" "If you don't mind, Gabriel's family is very big." Furong was taken aback by her sister's words. "Gabriel, how can you invite someone to your house the first time you meet?" Little Laurie suddenly pouted in grievance. "But big brother helped me." Looking at the annoyed Fleur and the squeamish Gabriel, Augustus's bad taste suddenly came out. He gently pulled Gabrielle's little hand, smiled happily and said, "Thank you so much, my little boy. Princess, I am worried that I have nowhere to stay. Let me repay this kindness slowly." Furong glared at Augustus, wanting to reject this ill-intentioned playboy, but Gabriel was right, the other party did help his sister. Go. On the way, the silver-haired little Lori happily pulled Augustus and walked up and down. Fleur deliberately walked to the other side of Augustus and asked in a low voice, "What the hell are you thinking about, you be asterisk D?" "Zah? What do you mean?" Augustus pretended to be stupid. "I just arrived in France today and I haven't found a place to stay. Thank you so much for inviting me, the French people are so warm." Asterisk hash. You, Furong was in a hurry, stomped her feet fiercely and walked to the front alone. The two sisters' homes were not too far from the square and the three arrived quickly. This is a typical wizard's residence with 2 floors up and down. Although it is not very big, it is very warmly decorated. Bright flowers bloom in the living room all year round. Their mother was a beautiful blonde woman, gentle and graceful, and she warmly welcomed Augustus, who came to her house as a guest. "I guess it's almost time." Madame de Lacquer's eyes have been scanning back and forth between Augustus and Fleur, with a clear smile in the corners of her eyes. "My Fleur finally got rid of that arrogant arrogance." "Are you angry? My mother said it a long time ago. Hee, the young man is so handsome, I am very satisfied." "Mom, it's not like that." Fleur glared at Augustus and said angrily, he was picked up by Gabrielle. Okay, whatever you want." Madame de Lacquer clearly didn't listen. "Come on, it's dinner time, young man, come with you too." The dinner was very rich, not only the steak fried to the right, the fragrant pickled sauerkraut, and the custard that Augustus loved. Madame de Lacquer had been lovingly helping Augustus with food, but she did not notice that Fleur, who was beside her, was staring at Augustus from time to time. Augustus deliberately ignored Furong's annoyed eyes. He just thought that this woman was really too interesting, and it was worth his while to follow him. Augustus soon became one with Gabrielle and the mother and daughter, but Fleur was left alone. This made this arrogant woman even more angry. In the evening, Madame de Lacquer arranged a room for Augustus to rest, and after saying good night to each other, she led Gabriel to bed. Although little Loli was still a little reluctant to part, she thought that she could still see her big brother tomorrow, so she finally returned to her room obediently. Augustus lay on the comfortable big bed and recalled the harvest of the day, feeling very satisfied. Just when he was about to rest, the door of the room slowly opened a little and a familiar figure flashed in quickly. "Is it Fleur? What is she doing here?" Augustus wondered. Are French women already so enthusiastic? No, she obviously doesn't like me during the day. With that in mind, Augustus pretended to have fallen asleep, lying still on the bed. Augustus looked at the little guy in front of him in surprise. Compared with the dragons in this world, this little black dragon has undergone earth-shaking changes. From the appearance alone, we can tell that his bloodline transformation plan has been completed. Looking at the appearance of this little guy, where is the appearance of a black dragon? A pair of still immature wings, long body, eagle claws, and a dragon head were similar to what Augustus imagined. They looked like a yinglong. Although they were still immature, they could already see their style in the future. It was inappropriate to call it Little Black Dragon now. Augustus thought about it and decided to call it Yinglong. It was just a name anyway. Perhaps the life force transformed by the magic power of the Hungarian horntail was strong enough that after Xiao Yinglong struggled twice, he even waved his tender wings and rose into the air. It seems that he is born with a unique affinity for air. After taking off in the air, Xiao Yinglong's wings don't even need to be waved. They can shuttle back and forth freely in the air, as if it is not air but water. After wandering around happily for 2 times in the air, Xiao Yinglong flew again, wrapped around Augustus' neck and called out twice. Augustus also liked this little guy very much, rubbed his little head. The little guy was directly wrapped around Augustus' neck and couldn't come down, and he enjoyed Augustus's touch comfortably. Perhaps because of the bloodlines of the feathered serpent and the ice lake lizard, the little guy not only has fine scales on his body, but also has a string of fine and supple manes on his back. The analysis of the Philosopher's Stone was completed, and the dragon eggs had hatched. Augustus did not intend to stay in the alchemy room any longer. He teleported Xiao Yinglong to the island in the heart of the lake. Seeing the blue sky and green lake water, Xiao Yinglong was even happier and flew out with his little wings. However, it didn't take long. Suddenly, a huge ripple appeared on the lake. Augustus was a little surprised. The ice lake lizard normally wouldn't appear. This guy could sleep better than him, and he was willing to come out today for some reason. I saw the water surface on the shore suddenly separated, and a huge dark blue monster rose up, covered with hard scales, and a huge monster with a long neck appeared, which startled Xiao Yinglong, who was playing. However, after seeing the other party's appearance and feeling the familiar aura, Xiao Yinglong not only was not afraid, but shook his head and leaned over, flying happily in front of the ice lake lizard dragon, looking at Augustus for a while. How to see how it looks like the little guy is, looking for his mother. The ice lake lizard was also full of doubts. It was taken away by Augustus before, but today it suddenly felt a very familiar and friendly atmosphere on the shore, which made it very surprised. A little guy who doesn't know him at all, but his body exudes an aura that is in the same vein as him. Especially when the little guy was playing around in front of it, it actually felt a trace of love in its heart. This was the first time ever for this 1,000-year-old ice lake lizard. When the little guy saw the ice lake lizard dragon, he didn't mean to be angry at all. He even stepped forward and scratched the ice lake lizard dragon. Augustus was also drunk. However, he also knew the reason. Xiao Yinglong had the bloodline of the ice lake lizard in his body. In a sense, it was no exaggeration that the ice lake lizard was the mother of the little guy. Seeing this, Augustus is no longer worried. Afterwards, Xiao Yinglong flew on the back of the ice lake lizard and started to play on it. To Augustus's surprise, the ice lake lizard, who usually dominated the Loch Ness and bowed his head in front of him, was patient. Floating on the water, let Xiao Yinglong play on it, not angry at all. Later, Augustus also saw that Xiao Yinglong was so happy that he plunged his head into the water, and then rushed out of the water and flew into the sky after a while, spit out a small fireball, and then froze a small piece of the lake into ice, had a great time playing. Seeing this, Augustus also knew that Xiao Yinglong perfectly inherited the bloodline of the black dragon, feathered snake, and ice lake lizard. When it was almost dark, Augustus took the little guy back to the castle, and it seemed that the ice lake lizard dragon was still a little reluctant. In the next few days, Augustus used it to observe Xiao Yinglong's growth and bloodline adaptation. As for the food, let this little guy catch it in Loch Ness. Because the bloodline is extremely powerful, and the vitality of a Hungarian wasp transformed from the magic power of a Hungarian wasp is also contained in the body, the little guy grows very fast. In less than a week, the body length is close to 1 meter long and the wings are also fuller. Looks more handsome. Because he likes this little guy very much, Augustus first signed a psychic contract with it, and then imposed a half-moon patron saint spell on it to ensure the little guy's safety and ensure that the little guy can be the first to be in danger. Arrived, but Augustus felt that maybe in a few years, few people would be able to threaten this little guy. In addition to playing with Augustus, Xiao Yinglong ran into Loch Ness to find the ice lake lizard dragon, so the creatures in Loch Ness found sadly that, except for the ice lake lizard on their heads, now there are more of them in the lake, a troublesome little bully. To Augustus's surprise, the little mermaid Anna didn't know when she met Xiao Yinglong, and often brought the little guy to the shore to find Augustus. In such a happy time, the school day is approaching. Augustus is about to usher in his 4th school year, and this school year, the Chamber of Secrets is about to open. A few days ago, Lucius found him and vaguely expressed some meaning. Regarding a diary, Augustus just told him not to worry, he could do whatever he wanted, and then he ignored it. The remnant soul in that diary is a joke, and the 1,000-year-old basilisk in the secret room is the target he wants to subdue. Of course, he didn't mind letting the Dark Lord lose another Horcrux. However, Augustus still felt a bit of a headache looking at the letter he received in 2.8. Because after Quirrel last semester, Hogwarts will welcome another professional and funny defense against the dark arts teacher, and the level is higher. Looking at the list of books listed in the letter, Augustus couldn't help laughing. Required reading for 4th graders, Advanced Spells by Miranda Gorshak. Break with a Ghost by Gilderoy Lockhart. Swim with the Ghoul by Gilderoy Lockhart. Vacation with the Dominatrix by Gilderoy Lockhart. It's basically the book of the flower peacock, and Augustus is considering whether to buy it or not. Just as Augustus was about to leave, he received letters from Penello and Hermione and of course Fleur and Gabriel. Looking for a wave of monthly passes for flowers, the data is a little weak recently. Can you guys support this wave? Thank you, author. This year's banquet was nothing new except for the little girls Luna and Ginny worthy of Augustus' attention. The next day, the news that Harry and Ron came to the school by speed had spread all over the school. At breakfast, Hermione reluctantly told Augustus that she would not have helped them find them on the train yesterday. You waste a lot of time. Hearing Hermione's words, Augustus didn't know what to do. Could it be that I didn't waste that time? Just when Hermione complained that the two were too stupid, an owl swept across the hall and plunged into the pile of snacks. Augustus' mouth twitched when he saw it. Sure enough, everything in the Weasley family was extremely personal, even the owl. Not excluded. Then I heard a huge roar coming from the long table of Gryffindor, and the angry voice filled the whole hall and even shook the dust from the top of the June 43 flower. You dare to sneak away in a car and be seen by muggles. I wouldn't be surprised if they kicked you out of school. If I catch you, you'll be good to see. I don't think you've ever thought about how worried we'd be when we found out the car was gone. Mrs. Weasley's voice was at least 100 times louder than usual, howling in the air. The dishes and spoons on the table were throbbing up and down, and the sound of the stone wall bouncing back was deafening. Everyone in the hall turned around to see who had received the roaring bullet, and Ron slumped on the chair, wishing to shrink his whole body into a ball so that his flushed face would not be seen by others. I got a letter from Dumbledore last night. I think your dad will die of shame. We never taught you to do this. You nearly killed Harry. Harry finally waited until his name came out. He pretended to plug his ears with his hands so he couldn't hear the sound that echoed through the hall. ... It's a shame for the family. Your father was suspended from work in the unit to investigate. It's all your fault. If you dare to take another wrong step, we will take you home immediately. When he finally finished speaking, people were still buzzing around him. The red envelope fell from Ron's hands to the ground and quickly burst into flames and burned to ashes. At this time, even Ginny was a little ashamed and moved to the side. It was too embarrassing. After the sound stopped, the students' laughter and discussions followed, and everyone was overjoyed by Weasley's embarrassing appearance. Because there were so many people at the table, Hermione was embarrassed to appear too close and intimate with Augustus, and soon left with one of her roommates. So Augustus came to Ravenclaw's table again, but Penelo was not there. Of course Augustus knew this, because Penelo was resting in the dormitory now. As for why he knew, needless to say, he just sent the girl back to the dormitory in the morning. Last night Penelo was tossed by this guy all night and he was already exhausted. I don't know why, since he was ridiculous on the train yesterday, Augustus felt that the desire in his heart seemed to be getting bigger and bigger, so that he still felt a little bit intolerable at night. And he took Penelo outside and tossed it all night before it was finished. Augustus guessed that there was a little mistake in the fusion of magic and chakra before, which strengthened his desire in some aspects. But he did not intend to suppress it, because it was not necessary. In Penelo's absence, it was obvious that Augustus had come to the Ravenclaw table. And yes, it was autumn. He felt bad for the girl's behavior as a light bulb yesterday and many times before, and felt that it was necessary to punish her. Q-Ben was extremely beautiful, and had a typical Oriental appearance, which was very consistent with Augustus. Aesthetically, since even Angelina and Katie have been accepted, of course, Q, who has a closer relationship, can't let it go. Seeing Augustus sit over, Q suddenly felt a little surprised. In the absence of Penelo-senpai, the other party rarely came over. Why did you do something bad yesterday and pretend you don't know now? Seeing Q looking a little confused, Augustus raised his brows as if you were wrong. Immediately Q May's face blushed a little, obviously knowing that Augustus had discovered her own thoughts. What? No, senior, when did I do something bad? A blush flashed across Q's face, dodging Augustus' deep and charming eyes, pretending to focus on the toast on the plate. Augustus sat next to Q. The two were very close. The faint fragrance of the girl made him a little moved, especially Q's soft lines full of oriental charm and her gentle and agile temperament. Feeling Augustus' fiery gaze and the distance from him, Q suddenly felt panic and shyness. Although Q was a little surprised by Augustus's ungentlemanly behavior, he wasn't angry. There was a hint of joy. Although the relationship between the two has always been good, Q always felt that there was still a sense of distance between him and Augustus. Now Augustus's performance has made her look forward to it. Of course, out of the girl's restraint, the girl still kept some distance from Augustus. The two chatted for a long time, and Augustus could feel a burst of admiration and joy in Q's eyes. Maybe it's time to find a chance to accept this little girl. The days that followed were somewhat unremarkable, but what was supposed to come would still come. On this day, Augustus, who was resting by the lake, found Hermione walking by the lake sadly with red eyes. This suddenly made him frown, and in an instant he came to the girl's side. Before the girl could react, Augustus pulled him closer to his arms. After seeing that it was Augustus, Hermione's eyes turned even redder. "What's wrong?" Lifting the girl's chin and looking into Hermione's eyes, Augustus asked distressedly. However, Hermione hesitated for a moment. With tears in her eyes, she hesitantly asked Augustus, "Senior, do you people from pureblood families look down on muggle-born people?" 19. Hearing Hermione's words, Augustus was stunned for a moment, recalling that there seemed to be such a scene in the original book. But that was what Draco said, and it was impossible for Draco in 2.8 to say these words. "Who told you?" Although Augustus's tone was gentle, it revealed a chill. Hermione was the woman she had long recognized, so how dare someone provoke her like this? "I don't know. I received a letter in the morning calling me a mudblood and saying that you don't really like me, senior, saying that a hemp seed like me, lowly, is not worthy at all. Damn you people from pure blood families don't like to associate with muggles. Is this true?" Hermione gritted her teeth and asked her psychological words. When she came out, judging from the way she was sobbing, these words hit her a lot. After hearing Hermione's words, Augustus' eyes had completely cooled down. Although he still didn't know who did it, it didn't affect the rise of his anger. Seeing Hermione's sad expression, Augustus temporarily suppressed the anger in his heart, held up the girl's pretty face and comforted. Although there are many pure-blood families who hold this view, I don't think so. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here to comfort you, would I? And you see, Penello and you are both Muggle-born, but I didn't alienate you because of this. Don't worry, I don't care about your origin. Hearing Augustus' comfort, Hermione finally felt relieved, but the content of the letter still gave her a great impact. Senior, what about your family? What do they think? Hermione asked nervously. She actually knew Augustus's feelings for her. What she was most worried about was that Augustus' family would have such thoughts. If someone really thinks so, she really doesn't know how to get along with Augustus.
Hello, everyone. As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500+ novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.